Welcome everyone to the Miss Manhua channel. Today's story is about Kento Shinkawa, a cold amateur fighter with a 10-fight losing streak. In every match, a rage ignites within him, awakening his primitive, destructive instincts. At that moment, Kento fights like a wild beast, pushing his opponent to the brink of despair. But when he tries to restrain that rage, his talent shines in a dangerous way. This time, Kento's opponent is Ryuji, a man who scorns him for his terrible record. With excessive confidence, Ryuji constantly mocks and provokes Kento. Kento just coldly ignores him, causing an enraged Ryuji to rush in and attack. The unexpected happened. Kento dodged the blow smoothly and then delivered a clean counter, causing the crowd to erupt. Just as the match seemed decided, Kento suddenly went berserk, repeatedly punching Ryuji and screaming curses. The referee couldn't intervene, and the coach, as if expecting it, quickly rushed into the ring. After that match, Kento caught the eye of the powerful FFC chairman, though he initially planned to ban Kento from the tournament. He now found him incredibly interesting and full of potential. From then on, Kento earned a new nickname, a villain devoured by battle, an untamable beast. A dark space enveloped him, as a voice whispered in his head, "Kill him." That voice suddenly grew louder, causing the sleeping Kento to jolt awake. A flash of light appeared, then it blazed brilliantly. It then vanished into the smoke of the arena, amidst the frenzied cheers of the audience. Before him were numerous opponents, each with an injured face. His own body was covered in just as many wounds. But Kento just stood there dazed, staring at his own bloody hands. Suddenly a voice called out, "Hey, Kento!" He snapped out of the illusion, turning blankly to look at his coach. The man was shouting to get his attention. "What's wrong with you, kid? Calm down." The crowd chanted Ryuji's name, Kento's opponent, who smugly said, "Come on, Ryuji, you can do it. Smash that kid's face in. He can't even hold on. This match is yours. That guy has lost every fight so far." The competition began, and the two fighters got into their ready stances. The referee shouted, "Fighters to the center of the ring." Ryuji said to Kento, 10 straight pathetic losses. You should just give up." The referee continued to shout, "Let's start, get in position." He then signaled for both of them to return to their corners. Kento's coach encouraged him, "Kento, calm down. Just do what we practiced and you'll be fine." Kento looked anxious before the tense match. The referee explained the rules. No knees and no elbows to the face. Understand. His coach yelled, "Kento, fight." Ryuji approached Kento, throwing the first attack. But Kento stood still without any guard up. Ryuji clenched his fist and glared at his opponent. Kento's state made him wonder, what's with this guy? Across from him, Kento wore a dazed, emotionless expression like a soulless corpse. Ryuji immediately had a bad feeling. Why do I feel so bad? Really bad. From Kento's perspective of the ring, it suddenly transformed into the arena from his illusion. A ring with thousands of spectators. Ryuji wondered, "What the hell are you looking at? Damn, your eyes look completely dead. How could you even think of stepping into the ring?" "Whatever," he said as he lunged forward to strike. "I'll finish you quickly." He stomped his foot to gain momentum and charged forward. Ryuji calculated, "If I slip in here and land a precise hook, then victory is in my hands." Suddenly, Kento's eyes turned bloodshot, with bulging veins that looked terrifying. This shocked Ryuji, causing him to miss his punch. His hook didn't even touch Kento, but Kento immediately countered with incredible speed. He swung an uppercut into Ryuji's chin, sending blood flying. Ryuji immediately collapsed onto the ring floor. Kento stood amidst the cheers of thousands of spectators. In his vision, a figure appeared giving a thumbs up, then pointing a thumb down. Back in reality, Ryuji had lost and was down on the floor. Kento suddenly shouted in anger, "Die, die, die!" Red specks of blood flew from his mouth. He madly threw a flurry of punches at Ryuji, amidst the cheers of thousands of imaginary spectators. The referee, in reality, tried his best to intervene. "Stop, do you hear me?" Kento shoved him away. "You son of a bitch." The terrified referee broke into a cold sweat looking at him. He continued his merciless assault. Kento kept screaming, "Die, die, you son of a bitch." A powerful fist came crashing down with his shout, a fatal blow that seemed intended to take a life. Luckily for Ryuji, the punch glanced off the floor. As Kento raised his fist to strike again, his coach ran in and tackled him. He stopped him just in time. "What's wrong with you?" Kento's eyes were crazed, and a terrifying aura radiated from him. Chairman Kanemaru of the FFC burst out laughing. "Well, it seems we have a very interesting fighter here." Two other men also commented, "Amateur or not, this is something else entirely. After all, it's not just a street brawl." "You're right, and this isn't professional wrestling either." The chairman rested his chin on his hand, observing him intently. Suddenly, Kento's eyes returned to normal. The chairman continued, continuing to attack a downed opponent. "That's a character issue." The other man replied, "He's strangely calm about it on a normal day. That guy knocked out his opponent. Got disqualified. But it seems like he doesn't really care about it." The chairman mused. "Perhaps I should meet him privately," the man next to him asked in surprise. "You mean just you?" "Mr. Chairman, Do you see something promising in him? Honestly, I thought you'd be considering banning him entirely, he replied. Exactly. Besides, there are plenty of strong fighters out there. What are you all looking at? The chairman grew serious. Was that just pure luck? Or in other words, the two men asked further. Kinoshita. Did Ryuji Kinoshita leave an opening before he attacked? The chairman asked back. Have you ever seen him lose like that, even when countered? To be knocked out by someone with such a flimsy punch, but that guy perfectly dodged every attack, didn't he? Do you think an amateur could do that? The two men began to understand. Wait, does that mean? Usually no one in the lightweight class has that kind of pure, terrifying power. The chairman showed a sly expression. And besides, wouldn't it be more interesting to have a wild beast like him in the octagon cage? He looked toward Kento being led away by his coach. He continued, a villain, devoured by the fights, a beast no one can tame. At a fighting venue, bright lights illuminated everything. Out in the hallway, a voice full of anger and disappointment rang out. Hey, what was that all about? Your opponent was already down, and then you even attacked the referee. Shiraishi stood there scolding Kento. You're not just facing disqualification, but a possible ban from the organization. He put a hand to his forehead in frustration. Damn it. I thought today would be your first win. This isn't like you at all. What happened to him? Shiraishi's words made his face darken. Kento lowered his head and said quietly, I'm sorry. I'll make sure to apologize to him properly. Shiraishi crossed his arms and added, even after those injuries, after 10 consecutive losses, you still came to the gym every day. But then a week before the match, you disappeared. What happened during that week? He remained silent, not answering. At that moment, terrible memories flooded back into Kento's mind. Bloody battles relentlessly invaded his thoughts. This forced Kento to grit his teeth in pain, sweat pouring down like a stream. Seeing this unusual reaction, Shiraishi was momentarily stunned. The young man's hand was shaking uncontrollably. Shiraishi immediately placed a hand on Kento's shoulder and called out in concern. Hey, Kento, he thought to himself. His face is pale and his pupils are dilated. He's frozen and shaking like crazy. What the hell happened to him? Worry was clearly written on his face. Without hesitation, Shiraishi grabbed a nearby glass of ice water. He pressed the glass to Kento's nose and mouth, saying, Here, press this to your mouth and breathe slowly. Shiraishi frowned and thought, Is he having a panic attack? Right. Then he asked aloud, Wait, has this happened before? Just then, the door creaked open. Someone was entering. Shiraishi glanced behind him. It turned out to be Kanemaru Joe, who looked at Shiraishi and spoke. It's been a while. Shiraishi, hasn't it? Shiraishi quickly greeted him. Mr. Chairman, Kanemaru asked softly. So, you're Shinkawa Kento, right? As Kento's coach. Shiraishi turned and bowed in apology. I sincerely apologize for what happened. I'll go apologize to his opponent right away, sir. Kanemaru waved his hand. No need to apologize to me. These things should be settled between the fighters themselves. Shiraishi explained. Of course you're right about that part. But for some reason he's a bit unstable today. He's not usually like this, sir. Kanemaru replied. Even if it's an amateur match, this situation, he warned in a stern voice. It's not something we can take lightly. Hearing this, Shiraishi fell silent with a sad expression. Kanemaru continued. As you know, the Martial Arts Association is not a charity. Keeping a fighter who can't control his emotions, that's too big of a risk. Shiraishi bowed his head in acknowledgement. Yes, that's true, sir. Suddenly, Kanemaru changed his tone to praise. But the match was very impressive. That's why I'm thinking of giving him a chance. Shiraishi quickly spoke up. 1 week from now, we're holding the FFC 7 event. Kanemaru said heavily. One of our underground fighters has withdrawn from the event. I guess he got scared. Shiraishi asked uncomfortably. A chance? Are you serious? Shiraishi replied softly. Anyway, I'd like him to participate as a replacement. Wait, if someone withdrew, that must mean the opponent is very strong. Right, Kanemaru answered concisely. It's Oji Taisei, the lightweight prince. Immediately, Shiraishi whipped his head around to look at a poster on the wall. Oji Taisei. You mean that Oji Taisei? The number 3 ranked lightweight in the FFC, he replied calmly. Precisely, Shiraishi asked in a panic. What? You want an amateur to fight the 3rd ranked lightweight, and on top of that, he's a welterweight. There's no way he can make the weight cut in a week, Kanemaru said softly. Of course, if you refuse, that's fine too. However, if you refuse, I think any future contracts with the FFC will be impossible. Kanemaru's cold smile was like a sharp blade. Or how about this? If he makes this fight interesting, I'll guarantee him a professional debut match. How about that? Shiraishi hesitated. This is very difficult to answer right away, sir. I need to discuss it with my fighter first. Just then, Kento spoke up unexpectedly. There's no need. Kanemaru and Shiraishi both looked at him in shock. Kento continued. We'll take it. Please let me participate. Shiraishi found it strange and asked, Kento, why so bold all of a sudden today? Conversely, Kanemaru looked pleased and said, forget about all that. Once you turn pro, no one cares what happened in the amateurs. This is a life-changing opportunity. Please give Miss Manhua a like and subscribe to cheer Kento on. Let's grab this chance and go for it. He then placed a hand on Kento's shoulder. Thank you for today. The young man's hand suddenly clenched into a fist so tight the veins popped. Shiraishi quickly interjected. We will contact you shortly, sir. Kanemaru smirked. Very well, I'll be waiting for your answer. He turned to leave, not forgetting to add, the match is only a week away. I can't wait too long. After Kanemaru left, Shiraishi turned to ask again, hey, are you really serious about this? If you fight at lightweight, you'll have to lose 10 kilograms in 1 week. Kento looked at him and said, I'll be nothing but a walking corpse then. I know that. Even though it sounds like a sweet deal. They're just trying to keep the match from being cancelled. Shiraishi asked, you know you're going to lose anyway. It's obvious. And you're still going to do it. Kento was resolute. Yes, I'll do it. Seeing this, Shiraishi suddenly realized. His hands have stopped shaking. He then agreed. All right, but promise me one thing. Kento looked at him in surprise. A promise. Shiraishi said sternly. If what happened today happens again, our gym will ban you for life. We are a team that fights together. What happened today was just a street brawl. His words made Kento fall silent for a long moment. Shiraishi repeated. You ignored all the rules, disrespected the match, the referee, and your opponent. Your actions had no respect in them. Kento thought about that scene and said decisively, there won't be a next time, sir. He repeated in a low voice, there won't be a next time, sir. Hearing that, Shiraishi gave a slight smile. Really? He put a hand on his shoulder. I understand. How are you feeling now? If you're better, it's time to go apologize to the other team. Kento's gaze was sharp as a knife as he replied, yes, sir. Shiraishi put an arm around his shoulder and said cheerfully, anyway, congratulations on your first co-win, Kento replied softly. Thank you, coach. Suddenly a phone rang. A young man answered the phone. I'm sorry, Chairman. Mr. Taisei is a little busy. The person on the other side asked, wait, who is it? The young man replied, it's Mr. Kanemaru, the chairman of FFC. The opponent for next week's match has been decided, sir. Hearing this, the man slammed his beer mug down on the table. The girl next to him jumped in fright. The man gritted his teeth in anger. Damn it. I'm trying to have a good time here. Who the hell is it this time? Images of that strange dream appeared again, with soldiers swarming towards the city gates. A soldier was witnessing a mighty army charging forward. They held swords, riding horses as fast as a storm. That soldier was panting heavily. Just then, another soldier lunged forward, swinging a sword to cut him down. Kento was suddenly awakened by a voice. Sir, Shinkawa-san, the orange-haired female doctor asked with concern. Mr. Shinkawa, are you all right? I'm sorry. Kento was silent for a moment to regain his composure. Then he asked blankly. What were we talking about? The doctor replied. I don't remember either. So the symptoms are recurring hallucinations after a specific dream, right? Kento looked tired and replied, yes. It's like a long, endless nightmare. The doctor typed on her keyboard and said, I see. I'll prescribe you some anti-anxiety medication and sleeping pills. Kento softly called. Wait, but she continued. We can create some habits, but they're not addictive, so don't worry. If one pill isn't enough, you can take another dose. You can take it on an empty stomach, but you can't mix it with alcohol. Since this is your first time, I'll give you a 1-week supply. Please come back when you've finished it. Kento replied concisely. Yes, ma'am. He asked further. That's it, the doctor replied. Yes, sir. You'll receive your prescription at the counter. A short while after leaving the hospital, Kento thought, a dream. I really wish it was just a dream. Then he said softly, at least they didn't treat me like a crazy person. Unbeknownst to Kento, the doctor from before was watching him from above. She crossed her arms and silently watched Kento leave. The female doctor murmured, patient name, Shinkawa Kento, male, 20 years old, an amateur MMA fighter. He said that while sleeping. He had an out-of-body experience and spent 5 years as a combat slave in Greece. The dream is so vivid, he can't even tell what is real and what is fake anymore. Meanwhile, Kento had returned to his apartment and was walking down the stairs. How will the story of the fighter Kento continue? Click subscribe and turn on notifications for the Miss Manhwa channel so you don't miss the next part. Symptoms of insomnia and panic have started to appear, so he was prescribed anti-anxiety medication and sleeping pills. He also mentioned deja vu and reliving memories of those battles. It started to interfere with his daily life. Back to Kento. He stepped towards something. It turned out Kento was looking in a mirror. His expression suddenly darkened, and his eyebrows furrowed. every time those memories emerged, he overreacted to stimulation and began to lose control. Memories of his own past actions rushed back into Kento's mind, with symptoms of hyperactivity. Stop it. Do you hear me? Hey, what is wrong? Kento stared at his own reflection in the mirror for a long time. Then, he lifted the side of his shirt with his other hand. It revealed a very large bruise. The doctor continued her speculation. Based on what was mentioned, I have decided these are symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. He said that he was trapped for 5 years, fighting in hellish battles inside a dream. But this type of illness only appears with continuous exposure. So, could one nightmare really change a person this much? Kento stared intently at his phone screen. On the screen was a replay of a match between two fighters. The dominant fighter in the video was relentlessly throwing brutal punches at the face of the fighter on the ground. The referee saw the other man was in trouble and rushed in to separate them. That blonde fighter immediately jumped up in celebration. A TKO victory in just 7 seconds of the first round. Shiraishi, sitting beside him, spoke softly. This is his 4th TKO. His record so far is 13 matches and 9 wins. He frowned and glanced over to ask, "So what do you think?" Kento admitted, "This guy is very strong." Shiraishi agreed. "Yes, very impressive. After all, he is a national gold medalist in wrestling. His height is 7 centimeters taller than average, weighing 80 kilograms. And after the weigh-in, he usually bulks up to 100 kilograms. You have a similar height, but you must lose 10 kilograms in 1 week, which frankly I'm not sure you can accomplish." Shiraishi raised a finger seriously and added, "You can't waste time working out too much. You will need to fast and cut weight that way. It will be very difficult. It will not just be painful, but your physical condition will also be affected. And since this is not a proper weight cut, you won't have enough time to recover after the weigh-in. You will have to fight like a walking corpse and find a way to get back into top shape to face your opponent, all while under the 5-minute 3-round rules. Your first 5-minute round after being used to 3 minutes will feel like hell. And I still haven't told Mr. Kanemaru you are withdrawing yet, so today is your only chance," Kento quietly said. "I already said I would participate. I will participate." And seeing his stubbornness, Shiraishi could only let out a helpless sigh. Then he stood up abruptly and asked, "Are you sure there's no other way?" Shiraishi clenched his fist and told him, "All right, but the reality is you're at a disadvantage in every aspect. Honestly, your chance of winning is almost 0. But if you've decided to fight, then don't think about losing. In any match, just focus on winning. There is only one way to win. You must bring the fight to the ground in the first round, land a few hard punches, and knock him out," Kento asked with curiosity, like the last match. "Right," and Shiraishi replied concisely, "Yes." He walked over and picked up a red glove. Kento also stepped forward and said, "But perhaps the opponent will also come up with some countermeasures," and Shiraishi said while trying on the glove. "That is highly likely. They will only focus on not getting knocked out, and as long as they can avoid a knockout, that's probably all they care about. We'll do a little sparring to warm up. Once we're warmed up, put on your gloves." Kento clenched both of his hands. Shiraishi frowned and got into a ready stance. "Just imagine your match with Oji. You are in extremely bad condition after the weight cut, so try to conserve as much energy as possible while fighting. Your opponent knows this, so he won't fight a hard match with you." And Kento also got into a ready stance, asking, "So what is your plan, coach?" Shiraishi brought his hands close to his head. "Even so, just keep moving forward." He threw a punch forward and then retracted it. "That's right. Go in and keep your chin down." Next, Shiraishi stepped back. "If he doesn't approach, then bait a punch from him and counterattack. Just think of me as Oji." Kento kept his hands up and charged forward quickly. He swiftly threw a punch. "The moment I move, punch me in the head and knock me out." "Understood." And as soon as he finished speaking, Shiraishi blocked a powerful blow from Kento. That last blow left him wide-eyed with astonishment, not giving Shiraishi a chance to move. Kento continued to gather momentum, swinging his arm from behind. He relentlessly struck with another punch, causing Shiraishi to struggle a bit to block it. Looking at his own hands trembling after that last punch, Shiraishi exclaimed in his thoughts in surprise. What is this? What the hell is this kid?" In front of him now, Kento seemed like a completely different person. Shiraishi continued to get into a ready stance. Kento followed up with another blow, the force of which seemed double the previous ones. Shiraishi smirked slightly. "It's possible, this kid," he excitedly shouted. "Come on, hit me." Kento's eyes were bloodshot as he threw a punch. He knocked Shiraishi's glove away, which made the coach very happy. "Could it be? This match is going to be amazing." Someone shouted, "Coach, this kid is going to die." Takeshi quickly advised, "Someone has died from a weight cut in 1 FC before, right?" He frowned and continued, "Cutting 10 kilograms in a week is too risky. We should stop." Shiraishi suddenly glared at Kento, who was standing behind him, and said, "I know that because I was also a fighter. But I told you there was a reason we had to do this." "Right. Besides, Kento usually controls his food intake and salt consumption, so it's not impossible. It just depends on whether he can endure it, Takeshi said in a low voice. But even if the weight cut is successful, his opponent is Oji Taisei, the third-ranked fighter in the lightweight division. He has no chance. Right, and in that condition he's going to get beaten like a dog, Shiraishi said. Actually, many fighters have given up after experiencing this kind of psychological trauma. He crossed his arms and continued. If he wants to give up, he can give up. That's just how it is. Fighting doesn't make money and only makes your family worry. This match is only for mental satisfaction and not for making a living. He should give up while he still can. Takeshi frowned and said, No, that. Then he turned to advise Kento. Kento, no one will blame you if you withdraw now. Tell your coach you're withdrawing from the match. And he quietly replied, I'm fine. Shiraishi also added, he said it himself. After you warm up, you should prepare for sparring. This will be a tough fight. We'll have to work together. Shiraishi walked over and gave Kento a mouthguard, instructing him. From now on, eat 1 banana a day and train. Then eat an avocado and train again. That's how you will train for the week using the least amount of energy. When you can't sleep, eat broccoli or bell peppers. It will be very difficult to speak due to the calorie deficit. Are you ready? And Kento answered without hesitation. Yes, sir. Takeshi, standing by, asked once more. Are you sure? And Shiraishi put out a hand to reassure him. Don't worry too much. I've been through this once, and I'll help him. He gave the red headgear to Takeshi. Remember to fight seriously. However, he unhappily pushed away the headgear Shiraishi offered. This action from Takeshi took the coach by surprise. He angrily bit his lip, thinking to himself, what the hell is the coach thinking? If that's the case, I'll make him give up, as the two men faced each other, with an unfriendly expression. Takeshi extended his fist forward. You should withdraw. Kento. Kento also responded by punching his hand. Suddenly he glared fiercely. He immediately got into a ready stance. The atmosphere between the two now became tense. Kento focused on observing everything around him. Takeshi took the initiative and threw a punch forward. Just as that fist came close to his face, Kento easily dodged it. This left Takeshi astonished. Exclaiming in his mind, he dodged it. Takeshi relentlessly attacked Kento. As he threw the next blow, Kento dodged it by stepping back. Then he crouched to build momentum and charged. He lunged forward like a flash, like a beast hunting its prey. Then he hit Takeshi hard in the face. The power of the blow was so strong it distorted his face. The mouthguard in Takeshi's mouth also fell out. He had been defeated by Kento in a single blow. Witnessing the scene, the others below were all wide-eyed and open-mouthed. Takeshi was taken down by a rookie, and he is currently the 5th-ranked welterweight fighter. Suddenly, Kento took a breath. In his head now, the gruesome sound echoed relentlessly. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Shiraishi quickly ran over and asked, Are you okay? But Takeshi was knocked unconscious and couldn't answer. A moment later, he gave him a water bottle to drink. That's why I told you to wear headgear, and he replied with a frown. I let my guard down for a moment. Takeshi couldn't accept this defeat and tried to get up, saying, Again, I can still fight. But Shiraishi said sternly, If this were a real match, could you say that? You may think you're fine, but your body doesn't think so, he stubbornly exclaimed. But I really. Before he could finish his sentence, he looked up. The person standing before him now was completely different from the Kento that Takeshi knew. Kento's eyes were filled with killing intent, like a wild animal ready to pounce on its prey at any moment. Takeshi uttered, That guy. It's like he's become a different person. And Shiraishi replied, Yeah. Kento slowly raised his tightly clenched fists and looked at them. Then his hand muscles gradually relaxed. Kento walked over and extended his hand to Takeshi. Thank you very much. He smiled in relief and accepted. I lost. I underestimated you and got knocked out quickly. The two of them shook hands. Shiraishi, standing by, said, Takeshi will teach you how to wrestle. That's your weakness, Kento. If you train with him for a few days, your body will remember how to defend and time things. He turned and said loudly, From now on, Takeshi will take a break. And the whole team. Everyone below shouted in unison. Yes, sir. Shiraishi continued. We will take turns sparring. 1 round each, starting with Shuji. And Shuji immediately put on his headgear and replied, Yes, sir. Shiraishi turned to instruct Kento again. Just think that if you retreat, you will lose. Don't back down. Just keep moving forward and applying pressure. Conserve your energy while forcing your opponent to constantly drain their stamina. Understand? Kento then replied, Yes, sir. Shiraishi shouted loudly, All right, begin. Shuji and Kento immediately got into their ready stances. Shuji quickly gained momentum and charged forward. Kento also moved in sync, running towards his opponent. Night fell. The scene shifts to an Isekai Amaru restaurant. A glass of water was placed on the table. The waitress cheerfully brought out the food. Sorry to have kept you all waiting. And seeing the delicious dishes made them exclaim, Wow. The doctor smiled and teased. Akane, aren't you on a diet? Akane smiled and said, Today is a temporary break from my strict diet rules. It's fine. The girl next to her also agreed. That's right. When you eat something delicious, there are no calories. Outside, a person in a full hoodie was jogging. That person ran past the window where the three women were eating. The doctor immediately recognized something. The jogger outside was none other than Kento. He ran to the point where sweat streamed down his face. Kento just kept running. Was that person? The next day at the gym, the sounds of fighting echoed. The two people in the ring were constantly throwing punches at each other. Kento once again had the upper hand. He continuously threw punches with unbelievable power at his opponent. Shuji, watching from below, spoke softly. Everyone has been knocked down by him at least once, even if not knocked out. And Takeshi crossed his arms and said, "See? I'm not the only one who got his ass kicked." Shuji turned and smirked. "But big bro, you were completely knocked unconscious, weren't you?" And Takeshi shamefully made an excuse. "That's because I fought him first and let my guard down. If you had gone up first, you'd be in the next life by now." Shuji curled his lip and said, "If I had gone first, I would have definitely dodged that blow easily and countered." Takeshi turned back to watch the match and then teased him. "That's big talk for someone who couldn't move after taking 2 hooks to the body." And Shuji blushed and replied, "Well, that's because we weren't allowed to fight back." Takeshi smirked excitedly. "Anyway, I'm really looking forward to the next match." Shuji smiled in agreement. "Me too," Takeshi added. "That said, the weight cut is the only problem." But just then, Shiraishi appeared from behind and said, "It will be quite difficult because the time is too short. Your punching power will decrease significantly from the first day. On the first day, your punches still made my hands sweat even though I was wearing punching mitts. And now from the third day, your power has been significantly reduced, although his weight is decreasing slowly, with only 1 day to recover. I don't know if he can regain his original condition." Shiraishi frowned and thought to himself, "This match is already tough, but even if he makes weight to enter the ring, at this rate he won't even be able to land a single punch." The scene shifts to a desert. The soldiers marched hastily in the enveloping sand. They were gradually becoming exhausted and worn out. The sand continued to blow, obscuring everything. Suddenly a soldier glared fiercely. He stood up and commanded loudly, "Raise your spears." That soldier glared and bit his lip tightly. The marching army appeared and disappeared in the sandy haze. A soldier had raised his spear and shield and gotten into a ready stance. Back in reality, Kento with a gaunt face was lying on the bed. He slowly sat up. Then he turned and twisted open a water bottle. Then Kento put a pill in his mouth. Next he ate a banana. Then he put on his jacket again. Kento continued his jog to start a new day. A moment later, he felt tired and leaned against a nearby house pillar. The scene changes to a sauna room. Everyone was changing in the locker room. When Kento took off his shirt, Shuji saw the bruise on his body and was surprised. He asked, "What's wrong? It looks like you have a muscle strain." Takeshi also turned in surprise and said, "What's wrong? You didn't even get hit in sparring." Shiraishi thought to himself, could it be a torn muscle? The latissimus dorsi muscle is heavily involved in punching power. Then Kento stepped onto the scale. Shiraishi continued to frown and think. Could this be due to the sudden increase in his striking power? The weight displayed on the digital screen was 78.5 kilograms. Shuji pointed and said, "Only 30 grams left. You can cut the rest with water, right?" And Takeshi's jaw dropped in amazement. Damn, this guy really lost 10 kilograms in a week. He turned and said to Kento, "I thought you were going to give up and forfeit the match." "That's really impressive." Takeshi put an arm around his shoulder and encouraged him. "Just a little more. The goal is in sight." The screen displaying the sauna's temperature now read 100 degrees Celsius. The people sitting inside were sweating continuously. "We're gonna die." Only Kento remained silent and said nothing. Images of terrible memories continued to appear in his mind. Vultures circled in the crimson sky. Each one looked ferocious. One of them aimed straight and flew right towards Kento. However, he decisively stabbed his sword through it. Kento's eyes lit up fiercely. Back in the bathroom, his haggard face also said nothing. A little later, Kento stepped back on the scale. The number on the digital screen showed 70.2 kilograms. Just a few more grams. Seeing this result, everyone cheered in encouragement. "Just a little more. That's it. Keep going." They put their arms around each other, smiling. The last 5 minutes. Suddenly, 2 big tattooed guys shouted loudly, "Hey, you guys, stop monopolizing the sauna and making so much noise, you freaks," one said with a cocky voice. "Looks like we have some inconsiderate guys here." And the other one added, "When we get out, I'll teach this bunch a lesson." A moment later, the door of that sauna opened. A pair of skinny feet were slowly stepping out, followed by Takeshi and Shiraishi, drenched in sweat. The moment they saw them, fear was evident on their faces. Look at those muscles. They look like boxers. So that's why they were so arrogant. They're fighters. It was Shuji helping Kento walk out. Seeing Kento, those guys exclaimed in shock. "My God, that guy's condition looks really bad. Should we call an ambulance?" Shuji walked over to them and said with a smile, "This guy is currently cutting weight, sir. Thanks for your concern." Kento's face was covered in sweat, and his eyes looked very scary. Those two guys looked terrified. This guy is crazy, agreed. The scene changes to the next morning. At the weigh-in room, the MC called the name, Shinkawa Kento, and he immediately stepped onto the scale looking like a walking skeleton. That mech looked at the weight. 70 kilograms, passed. Takeshi exclaimed happily, nice. Both Shiraishi and Shuji also celebrated. Great. Kanemaru, standing nearby, also slightly curved his lips into a smile. The MC continued to call the name, Oji Taisei, and a second later he walked out. Oji's face was confident as he glanced past Kento. Realizing something, Joe frowned angrily. That guy. The MC looked at the weight. Oji, 77.4 kilograms, failed. At this time, only a man's voice could be heard. 77.4 kilograms. Failed. And Oji, hearing this, just smirked. After that announcement, an angry voice yelled, "This son of a bitch." Shioda and Kameda, seeing this, broke into a sweat and said nothing. As for Shiraishi, he just frowned in confusion. Right after that moment, Kanemaru angrily approached and yelled loudly, "What kind of game are you playing?" The guy with Oji saw this and smirked, then explained, "I'm sorry, sir. Due to severe cramps and vomiting, the doctor advised him to stop." He didn't calm down, but became even more furious, growling out each word. "You weigh 80 kilograms, and now you're over by 7 kilograms. That means you didn't even try to cut weight from the beginning. And this was supposed to be the main event." The guy hearing this just lowered his head, still smiling, and said, "I'm sorry. The match was just decided a few days ago, so I didn't have enough time to prepare." Kanemaru was still not appeased and continued to question, "Do you think an apology is enough?" And Oji once again took the blame. "I haven't even received my fight purse yet, so legally there's no problem. Besides, I've already terminated my annual contract with FFC." Hearing those words, the man could only grit his teeth and couldn't do anything. Then Kanemaru frowned and asked, "So why didn't you say so earlier instead of waiting until weigh-in day to make excuses?" Next, he pointed directly at Oji and continued, "You're just trying to protect your own image because you already have a contract somewhere else. Right." And the guy hearing this immediately turned away and said, "That's a very unfair accusation, sir." And then Kanemaru frowned and relented. Fine. He immediately offered a condition. "If you win, I will give you 3 billion yen, 1.5 billion for the fight purse, and 1.5 billion as a win bonus." And the guy, after hearing about that huge sum of money, was a little swayed. Suddenly, Kanemaru glared and then smirked cunningly. "But if you lose everything. If the fight is decided by points, you will be deducted 1 point as a penalty for failing to make weight." After saying that, he immediately asked again, "So what? Still going to listen to the doctor?" The guy hearing that said nothing. But immediately, Oji Taisei broke into a smile and replied, "If that's the case, then I'll accept and fight." At the same time, Kento approached and said, "What about me?" Suddenly, Shiraishi touched his shoulder and squinted. "No need to rush. Someone who can't even make weight can't be a real fighter." He continued to humiliate the guy. And intentionally getting disqualified is very irresponsible. This is a disgrace for a professional athlete. Oji, hearing those words, couldn't contain his anger and shouted, "You must have the guts of a lion to say that. I already said the doctor didn't allow it." And the man next to him also hastily tried to intervene. Next, he looked at Kanemaru, who, seeing this, immediately broke into a sweat and waved his hand. "We will find another opponent in the same weight class as Oji. As for Shinkawa, we will pay 100,000 yen for the fight purse as discussed." "All right." Kento, hearing this, remained silent. And at the same time, Kanemaru continued, "And just to let you know," he narrowed his eyes and then gave a cunning smile, "if you still want to fight in the main event, I will pay you, Oji, an additional 1.5 billion yen as an extra bonus if you win, a total of 1.6 billion. Shiraishi, hearing that number, couldn't help but be shocked. Shioda Takeshi was no exception, just for one fight. Kameda Shuji also hesitated. 1.6 billion yen. Suddenly, Kento spoke up, "I'll fight." And the man next to him, hearing that, immediately turned to him in horror. Then Shiraishi cautiously said, "In your condition." And he, hearing that, immediately replied, "Anyway, there are still 24 hours until the match." Kento glared slightly and said in a confident tone, "Plenty of time to recover." Kanemaru, looking at his demeanor, just quietly smirked to himself. Oji also showed his contempt and said, "You've got guts. Instead of letting your name rot at the bottom, you take this chance to climb high." He glanced at Kento and continued, "Anyway, your prize money will just turn into hospital bills." Hearing him say that, he immediately said in a low voice, "You're the trash son of a bitch who couldn't make weight." Oji, seeing him curse him, immediately glared and gritted his teeth. "What the hell did you say?" Kanemaru, seeing the tense situation, immediately intervened. "Oji, if you're going to do that, at least wait until the media arrives." The guy, hearing that, tried to suppress his anger and turned to leave. Back to the present. The voice of the man from before spoke up again. "Shinkawa, 70 kilograms. passed. He continued, OG, 77.4 kilograms, failed. The audience hearing that were all shocked. OG is way overweight. What's the reason for this? A person seeing this turned to Soa and said, over 7 kilograms means he barely cut any weight at all. And she also looked and replied, it seems the rumors about collaborating with 1FC are true. The guy, after hearing her speak, hesitated, accepting a contract while cutting weight without any issues. That's unprecedented. And Soa said, it seems he wants to conserve his energy because the situation has changed. She looked up slightly and continued, I guess the prize money for this match became irrelevant after signing a contract with one. Just then, Keimaru took the mic and said loudly, although OG failed to make weight, Shinkawa still wants to proceed with the fight. Then he turned to look at OG and continued, however, it would be meaningless if the fighter who failed to make weight has no motivation to compete. And then Kanemaru announced, so we have made the following offer. If he loses, he gets no money. If he wins, he gets double. The man holding the camera hearing this was surprised. For real? I've never heard of anything like this before. Soa beside him also smirked and exclaimed, Chairman Kanemaru, he must be very desperate to say something like that. She continued, putting that aside, I wonder if Mr. Shinkawa can come out of this alive. The man also turned and replied, with a 7-kilogram weight difference. This is just a one-sided match. At the same time on the stage, the sound of camera flashes echoed. All cameras were pointed at the two men. OG looked at Shinkawa with contempt and said confidently, I'll make you regret this decision, you little brat. He heard the man challenge him but said nothing. At the same time, Kanemaru held the mic towards him and said, Shinkawa, please say a few words. Kento took the mic but still didn't open his mouth to speak. But then suddenly he growled, I will end this match in the first round. All the reporters below relentlessly raised their cameras to capture this moment. The man hearing this smiled slightly and exclaimed, that's the spirit of a true warrior. At the same time, Soa looked at her phone screen and said, but I heard he lost 11 consecutive matches in the amateur league. And the man, not believing it, immediately gasped. She looked up again and smiled slightly with a judging look. Even if there is a difference between amateur and professional, that is still very bad. And the person next to her hesitantly said, can this match even last? He might be knocked out immediately by OG. At the same time, OG Taisei Buman fully turned and said loudly, did you guys hear that nonsense? Not wanting to be outdone by Kento, he immediately snatched the mic from someone's hand. Then OG approached him and said confidently, I can already see the image of you crying and begging tomorrow. He continued to speak with a contemptuous voice. I think I'll play with him a little before knocking him out in the first round. And at the same time, everyone's voices cheered in unison. Soa, watching that scene, smiled slightly. OG's aura is truly overwhelming. The man beside her immediately said, but this match, if it's to attract a crowd, then it won't be bad. At the same time, a voice said, investigate OG. Something strange. Check the contract thoroughly too. It was Kanemaru, he continued. The media, all the YouTubers, and those nosy troublemakers will also be attracted by this. The girl walking beside him hearing this immediately replied, yes sir. We will try to lower his image as much as possible. Kanemaru seemed unsatisfied and gave another order. Record a video and send it to 1FC. We will let them know his true character. And then he asserted, that son of a bitch. We will make him regret deceiving us. And suddenly the girl spoke up. By the way, next she looked over at Kanemaru and wondered, why did you choose Shinkawa as the opponent, sir? Wouldn't it be counterproductive if the match ends too quickly? And he, hearing that, replied, that is certainly what everyone thinks. Then Kanemaru continued, the appeal of combat sports is predicting what shouldn't happen until the fight ends. And she hesitated to ask, so you think Shinkawa will win? Kanemaru, hearing this, said, I don't hope for that much. As long as he puts up a decent fight, that's enough. He continued, the audience wants to see the underdogs fight back. And, right at this moment, the girl frowned and said in a low voice, they also crave their failure. Kanemaru, hearing this, winked in agreement. Exactly, and then he asserted, this will be a dramatic public execution. After that interview, night finally fell. The car with its lights on continued to speed down the road. Hearing this, Kanemaru instantly agreed. He then confirmed this would be a very dramatic public execution. After that interview, night finally fell. The lit-up car continued to speed down the road. Inside the car were Shinkawa Kento, Shiraishi, and Shiota Takeshi. He suddenly turned and suggested, we should change our strategy. Hearing that, he chewed and looked confused. A strategy. Shiraishi continued, OG was penalized for not making weight. If you can win by points, then you have already won. Shiota heard him and, glancing at Kento, said, look how happily he is eating. He brought a spoon to his mouth and asked, so I should just score more points? He immediately turned back and replied, yes. Feint first and score with jabs and leg kicks. Don't force it. And the driver chimed in, This chicken rice after a weigh-in looks damn good. Shiraishi kept analyzing. Only punch when you counterattack. If not, then use your footwork to escape. And at the same time, Kamita handed Kento a soda and suggested, drink some soda. He took the bottle and chugged some down. Then said, this is the opposite of my usual strategy. Hearing this, he looked back and said, that plan was more like a gamble. This time it is a real strategy. Kento finished drinking and gave the bottle to Kamita, then said, but I do not think anyone wants to see a fight like that. Shiraishi glanced at him and said, you are already at a disadvantage. Do not try to stall. Just hold your ground. He continued, do you not want to prove your doubters wrong? Kento fell into thought. Then Shiraishi hesitated slightly. But you said you would win in the first round. Kento quickly replied, win or lose does not matter. You have to let me keep my word, coach. He immediately shot back. In a fight, there is no such thing as trying your best, only winning or losing. After hearing him say that, he became more determined, stating firmly, then I will win. Seeing this, Kamita glanced over and gave a slight smirk. Shiota, who was driving, could not help but smile upon hearing this. A tear gently fell from Shiraishi's eye as he spoke. That is right. And then he offered encouragement. You have come this far, so give it everything you have. Kento said nothing and just quietly continued to eat. The guy next to him saw this and said there is still plenty left. Eat more. Shiota heard this and shouted, save some for me too. Hours later, a loud and powerful voice boomed. FFC 97. The main event has arrived. The announcer stood in the ring and said enthusiastically, let us see who will be the lightweight champion. He then began the introductions. In the blue corner, Kento. He walked out full of fighting spirit. His eyes shone with determination. The people in the stands cheered nonstop. Kento, fight your heart out. Rookie, take him down. Let us go. On another side, a quiet and somber scene appeared. Kento saw that scene and said nothing. The man next to Soa was surprised and spoke. He has recovered quite a bit in just one day. She squinted her eyes and exclaimed, he is also unexpectedly handsome. Then Soa expressed her pity for him. It is painful that such a handsome man will be beaten black and blue. The match announcer then looked to the side and continued his introduction. And in the red corner, ranked third in the lightweight division, Oji Taisei. He walked out confidently along with it. The crowd in the stands began to cheer louder and louder. Oji, we are counting on you. Beat the hell out of that pretty boy. If you take him down quickly, one is waiting for you. Hearing those cheers, Oji became even more arrogant. They continued to scream, take him down, Oji. Kanemaru, watching from below, could not help but get angry and curse. That bastard. As for the girl, she held her phone up towards him to record. Her gaze towards Oji was incredibly cold and sharp. The people in the stands continued to chant Oji's name, while he was lost in his confidence, continuously flexing his muscles. Oji then turned to Kento and sneered contemptuously. Have you been eating properly? He pointed at him and continued. From today on, you will probably be eating hospital food for a long time. He heard this but did not bother to argue back. His teammates in the stands cheered nonstop. Kento, go all out. Smash the face of that pig who could not make weight. The man in the ring shouted, are you ready? Then the referee swung his arm to signal, fight. Kento just stared straight at Oji. A loud voice announced, round one has begun. Next, both fighters got into their fighting stances. As if he could not wait any longer, he immediately swung his leg up and aimed it straight at him. Next, Oji rushed forward, and then he delivered a powerful kick straight to Kento's leg. Cheers erupted again, but it seemed he was completely unfazed by the attack. Seeing this, Oji broke into a sweat in amazement, wondering what the hell is wrong with this guy. He kept staring at Shinkawa Kento and thought doubtfully, is he really just going to take these kicks? Oji then continued to kick his thigh and yelled, if that is what you want, then I will gladly oblige. Kento stood still without retaliating, letting him continuously land blows on him. Shiraishi saw this and glared, shouting loudly, what are you doing? Number 6, hurry up. Seeing he was not fighting back, Oji prepared another blow and said smugly, you are going to be crawling home today, sonny. Suddenly a different scene appeared. A loud sound of something crashing was heard. Then thousands of sharp arrows flew across the sky, and they all rained down, but were blocked by a sturdy shield. Behind it was a pair of spirited eyes looking up. With just one shield, that knight was able to stop those arrows. Then came his fierce counterattack. Back in the present, Kento was still standing firm. His calf had been kicked by him until it turned red. Suddenly, Kento's body started to sway a little. Oji saw this and excitedly rushed in, shouting, this is it! Witnessing that scene, Shiraishi broke out in a sweat and said loudly, this is bad. The other one could not help but yell anxiously, holy crap. But in that moment, his eyes narrowed slightly, and his gaze became much sharper. Kento was seen stomping his foot hard on the mat. Then he immediately dodged to the left to avoid that dangerous blow. But Oji was never going to be that easy. He immediately threw another punch. This time he dodged that attack with ease. Kanemaru saw this, and his eyes widened in astonishment. Then, without letting Oji do anything else, Kento quickly and forcefully swung his arm back. Next, he raised his fist and landed a straight punch on his cheek. Soa and the person next to her could not help but be amazed. As for Oji, after taking the hit, he immediately glared and gnashed his teeth in anger. Next, he swung a fist at Kento and roared, "Do not fuck with me, you miserable piece of trash," and he dodged it once again. Then came Kento's counterattack. He was seen clenching his fist, and then a straight uppercut was delivered by Kento, right to Oji's chin. Seeing this, Shiraishi continuously shouted his support. "The round is almost over. Stay sharp until the end, kid." Then followed a scene of the two fighters in a tight clinch on the canvas, but Kento's subsequent expression sent shivers down one's spine. He was seen delivering one straight blow to his body. Immediately after taking that powerful blow, Oji completely fell to the canvas. Kanemaru looked up at the scene before him and could not help but be impressed. This is beyond expectations. Soa below was still surprised and asked, "Did you get that shot?" The man beside her answered with wide-eyed shock, "No." Kento's counterattack began. He was seen clenching his fist tightly, and then Kento delivered a full uppercut straight to Oji's chin. Then followed the scene of the two fighters in a close clinch in the ring. But Kento's expression afterward was chilling. He was seen landing a single straight blow to his body. Right after taking that powerful blow, Oji completely collapsed onto the mat. The referee quickly signaled to stop and shouted loudly, "All right, the fight is over." The commentator saw this and was amazed. This is insane. The rookie Shinkawa has defeated the high-ranked fighter Oji. Kento suddenly gasped for breath after the fight ended. Next, he glared and looked up in the stands. The spectators continuously hurled insults at him. His pupils shrank, as if he had just seen something horrifying. Just then, the sound of Shiraishi shouting from below snapped him out of it. At the same time, his teammates rushed into the ring and joyfully ran towards him. Shiota hugged Kento and cried joyfully, "You won, kid. You did it." And Kameda also happily chimed in, and he is undefeated too. Shiraishi ruffled his hair and laughed loudly, just as planned. Good job. At the same time, Kento also smiled faintly, but suddenly his eyes flew open and he looked to the side. The mood of the people in the stands did not seem very happy to see him win. Seeing this, Kento narrowed his eyes slightly and pouted. The commentator spoke. "It seems he lost his balance after that direct leg kick." The person next to him replied, "That is right. He could not even block it. That gave me a scare." He looked at the screen and continued. "However, it is surprising to see such composure from a rookie in his pro debut against a third-ranked opponent." The other one affirmed, "It seems Oji completely fell into Shinkawa's trap. He kept going. I thought it would be a one-sided battle, but Shinkawa gave Oji no chance to attack until the end. It was miraculous." At that moment, Kanemaru's face appeared with a cunning smile. The voice continued to echo, "It is unprecedented for a rookie to defeat a veteran fighter with a size advantage." The commentator continued to speak loudly. Just as Shinkawa declared yesterday, he completely knocked out Oji in the first round. The other person immediately spoke. "Oji has finally come to, but he must feel bitter about it." The whole arena went silent. Looking at the audience's reaction, everyone was dumbfounded, making the commentator exclaim, "It makes sense. Most of the audience here are Oji's fans." Then the man came forward and loudly declared, "Shinkawa, the new star of martial arts." He brilliantly took down a top contender, and this was only his debut match. He continued, "It seems there is going to be a big shakeup in the lightweight division. We definitely cannot miss this opportunity." And at that moment, Kanemaru and the girls were approaching. The reporter started the interview. "Shinkawa, please share your feelings right now." Different from what was expected, Kento just frowned and replied dejectedly, "It was fucking disappointing." After hearing that, the reporter could only laugh awkwardly. "You mean you did not go all out?" He continued. There were indeed many unexpected incidents in this match. The reporter asked about his condition. "Shinkawa, you lost over 10 kilograms in just 1 week, while Oji failed his weight gain. Did you have any difficulty fighting under such conditions?" He calmly and definitively replied, "Hell no." A reporter down below frowned unhappily upon hearing that. As for the interviewing reporter, he forced himself to say, "I can see a top-tier fighting spirit here." He continued, "Before the match, many people predicted Oji would win, but you really crushed their hopes. Do you have any comment on this?" Without much thought, Kento immediately spoke challengingly into the mic. "Bring me the champion." The other person couldn't help but be shocked by this, but he just smirked confidently. If he is not afraid, then bring him on. After hearing that challenge, Kento's teammates all stared with their mouths agape in disbelief. Even the people present could not believe their ears. Kanemaru Joe heard this and shook his head slightly with a small laugh. "Putting on a show, huh? I thought Oji was the villain." He then continued, "But it seems there is another factor." Below were comments with different reactions. Did Oji really not gain weight? He was over 7 kilograms heavier. That pig, he is a joke. Did you see Shinkawa's face during the interview? Shinkawa is handsome as hell, after all those malicious comments. Look at him now, lol. It was like a fight between a lightweight and a middleweight. The result. Shinkawa is seriously amazing. Is there any lightweight now who can take on Shinkawa? More text appeared. It was just because Oji was careless. But I believe Haruyama will be different. If Oji was serious, Shinkawa would be in the hospital. Meanwhile, in another place, Haruyama looked at a screen and said, "It has been a long time since a guy had so much nerve." Then his coach came over and handed him a can of water, saying, "It seems a new wind is about to blow through the martial arts world." He took it, and the coach continued to affirm, "The problem is that wind will be extinguished soon. Those who dare to challenge you." Suddenly, the coach quickly explained, "I understand the feeling of beating a third-ranked fighter on your debut." He continued to exclaim, "He has a good punch." Haruyama's coach spoke up, and that calmness does not seem like a rookie at all. Haruyama replied while drinking his water, "It feels like that kid has been through countless real battles." He then put the can down hard and said, "If Oji had prepared better, that fight would have been more interesting." Then Haruyama looked up and sighed. He was not really determined from the start. He has not shown his true skills yet. What a pity. And then he put on his mask, while the coach said, "The organizers want a match with you while the Shinkawa fever is still hot." Haruyama aggressively walked over to a large tire and signaled, "Tell them I agree." Then he lifted it with all his strength and said, "This fever will end when he loses his next match." His coach heard this and immediately replied, "Understood. I will contact the organizers. It is not bad to defend your title before the UFC." At the same time, the veins on Haruyama's arm bulged. Next, he lifted the tire and let out a loud shout. And then Haruyama slammed it to the ground, creating an extremely loud noise. Scene changes to a few days later. At the clinic, the female doctor's voice was heard. "It has been a week, huh?" Then she frowned at him and hesitated. "So about those dreams. When you dream." Kento listened quietly and obediently. Next he spoke up. "When I am dreaming, it is like, you know they are dreams. Like you realize this is not real." The doctor immediately exclaimed, "You mean a lucid dream?" Kento said seriously. "Normally you do not feel pain when you dream." He suddenly hesitated. But this one is different. She seemed quite surprised to hear that. Kento began to recount. Broken bones. The feeling of being cut by a sword. Being shot to pieces by a bow. It feels very real. Then he narrowed his eyes slightly and continued. "It is not realistic, but it is not a nightmare either." Kento did not stop. "No matter how much I struggled, I could not wake up. Not for a week, or even a whole month." Then he began to imagine. "There was one time I thought I had returned to the real world. I was so happy to finally be free," Kento continued. "But it was just another dream. I fell asleep from exhaustion while fighting in my dream." He continued the story, and 5 years passed. I was finally able to return. Next he confessed, "Honestly, I am still very scared that I might have to go there again." Kento's hands clenched together as he hesitated. "Even now, I am not sure if this life is a dream or reality. I am not sure if I am truly alive," Kento continued. "But there is one thing I am sure of." The doctor continued to sit and listen intently. He narrowed his eyes slightly and asserted, "To make it clear, I need to keep fighting." Scene changed to the cornerman. Shiraishi was seen walking up the stairs. Suddenly he was startled as if he had seen something strange. Before Shiraishi's eyes was the sight of Shinkawa holding a broom and cleaning. He could not help but gape in astonishment. Seeing Shiraishi, he turned and said, "Good morning," he replied. "You just had a fight yesterday and you're here this early, kid." Kento also spoke up. "I was not hurt much." But Shiraishi pointed to his leg and immediately said, "Even so, your leg must be bruised." He narrowed his eyes and let out a small yelp, having been found out. He did not stop and continued to question, "And what is with that sleepy as hell face?" Then Shiraishi frowned at Kento and advised, "You must remember to rest for the next fight. That is also part of training." And hearing this, he asked, "The next fight?" He immediately answered, "The organizers have contacted me about the title match." Kento's eyes widened in surprise upon hearing this. Seeing his expression, Shiraishi frowned and said, "It is because some idiot decided to issue a challenge on his own." At the same time, he was seen smirking slightly. He continued to speak in a serious tone. "Haruyama has never lost a single match." Kento casually asked back, "So what?" He looked at him and continued, "Anyway, our ultimate goal is still the championship title." And hearing that, he sighed. Next, Shiraishi put down the bag from his shoulder and said, "Haruyama is on a completely different level than Oji." Kento looked a little confused. He continued to explain thoroughly to him. "If Oji is a ferocious demon," Shiraishi continued, "then Haruyama is a cold-blooded robot that only plays mind games." He did not stop. He has mastered many diverse techniques, along with the ability to adapt to any situation. After hearing this, Kento said, "Even Oji was quite good at wrestling and boxing." Shiraishi immediately replied. Haruyama is a master of jiu-jitsu and kickboxing, so you need to be really careful, he added. What is even more fearsome is his body. Kento was a little curious after hearing that. His body. Shiraishi began to analyze. Haruyama is 1 centimeter shorter than the lightweight standard. This makes him look smaller, and then he continued. But he has a reach of up to 190 centimeters and a southpaw stance. After hearing that, he thought to himself, a southpaw with a long reach, huh? At the same time, Shiraishi raised his voice to ask, with that height-to-weight ratio. That means, Kento quickly guessed, does he have better developed muscles? He immediately replied exactly. His low center of gravity makes his body very balanced and hard to take down. It is not a big problem since you will not be grappling with him on the ground. In short, Haruyama's stance is southpaw. His attacks are hard to read. If you punch, it will be hard to hit because he tends to duck. Shiraishi continued his analysis. Furthermore, with his long reach, he will throw punches from very unpredictable angles. He did not stop. If you cannot close the distance on him, and also get hit, I am afraid you will lose your cool and try to rush him. Finally, Shiraishi confirmed. That will lead to a loss. Shinkawa heard this and narrowed his eyes, saying, Are you trying to scare me, coach? Shiraishi did not answer, but frowned and said, I thought I should advise you before you agreed to fight. At that moment, he declared with determination, I will fight. After hearing this, he crossed his arms and said sternly, I see. After talking like this, I guess you cannot back out now. Next, Shiraishi tilted his head and said, I will tell them you have agreed, Kento said with some surprise. I thought you would stop me, coach. He just smirked slightly and said, Well, you are 1 win and 10 losses anyway. Losing 1 more won't matter. He heard this and retorted, It is only 2 losses. Kento continued, I have nothing left to lose. Then he held out his hand as if to show his determination to him. Suddenly, Shiraishi spoke up. Someone from the 7th rank will be here this afternoon to interview you. No need to be too polite. Just answer comfortably. Kento wondered. An interview. At the same time, a black car had parked below. Soa gently stepped out of the car. Inside, everyone was still training together nonstop. She looked at this and remarked, The atmosphere in this gym is pretty good, is it not? Shiraishi also smiled. You think so? He then said, The truth is everyone is much more motivated after our rookie won. At the same time, he was seen doing pull-ups in another room. This time 60. Sweat poured down Kento's back. Next up was 61. Shiota saw this and commented, Still doing pull-ups. What a beast. Hearing that, Shinkawa pursed his lips and replied, Just imagine that. He continued, You will die if you fall. Then you will be able to do it. At that moment, Shiraishi walked over and reminded him, The reporter is here. That is enough training for now. Soa beside him also bowed politely. Suddenly, he looked at Kento and suggested, You should try live streaming your training session. At the same time, she held out her business card and introduced herself. I am Soa from the 7th rank. It is a pleasure to meet you. And he replied politely, Yes. Scene changes to a more formal room. Soa sat opposite Shinkawa Kento and said, I was very excited by your excellent performance in your debut match. He immediately replied, There is no need to flatter me. She asked again. I heard that champion Haruyama has accepted Shinkawa's challenge. Is that right? He also replied, It seems so. Next, Soa narrowed her eyes slightly and asked, Forgive me if I am being rude. I have to ask. Haruyama is undefeated, so many people think Shinkawa has no chance of winning. What do you think? Kento did not hesitate and immediately replied, I do not think much about it. The result will be the same as with Oji. She quickly frowned and asked further, So you are confident you can beat Haruyama? He bowed his head slightly and said with a determined voice, That is right. No matter what the fight is like, I will still win. After hearing this, she exclaimed, Quite determined, aren't you? And then Soa narrowed her eyes slightly and asked, However, compared to your record, it is also understandable why the majority thinks that way. She did not stop. How do you think you have changed compared to before? Shinkawa replied without hesitation. Before I might have been a bit unlucky, but now it feels like luck is on my side. Soa heard this and gave a forced smile. Some people say that luck is a kind of skill too. At the same time, a thought crossed her mind. This person is difficult to handle. She quickly composed herself and continued the interview. So let us put aside your amateur career for now. Can you tell me what made you learn martial arts? Kento did not seem to like this question. His eyes narrowed slightly. Time flashes back to the past. A group of big guys were seen bullying someone. Oki commanded. Get up, you coward. He then continuously punched him hard and shouted, What did you just say? Don't touch him. Try saying that again, you idiot. While another person nearby trembled with fear. Oki looked on and smirked. Pretty tough, are you not? He then threw a punch and arrogantly shouted, Then try this one, you moron. Then only a loud impact was heard. Back in the present, Soa stared with astonishment. You were bullied in middle school. She then hesitated. So that is why you dropped out of school, Kento said in a low voice. Well, a lot of things happened. Next, Soa asked. So you learned martial arts to become stronger, right? He did not deny it. Outside, Shiota peeked through the crack in the door and smiled faintly. He speaks quite well. Kameda stared at Soa with a lovesick expression, blushing as he remarked, She is really pretty. Suddenly a voice rang out from behind them. All right, everyone, we are here, another excited voice exclaimed. Thanks for the advice. He got annoyed by the noise and turned around growling. Who the hell are you guys? It was Oki. He swaggered in without a care in the world. Let's start right away. Today's topic is, what happens when a super strong guy fights an amateur martial artist? Okay, the chat channel once again became lively. Soa was sincere. So that is a wrap. Thank you for your time. She wanted to ask for an opinion. Of course, we will be careful with the information. Would it be all right if we filmed your training session? Kento was very indifferent. Whatever. Suddenly, Shiota rushed in hastily. Hey, Kento, do you know a guy named Oki? He says he is your high school friend. He quickly announced, Since you are in an interview, I will let him observe for now. He remained silent, his dissatisfaction clear on his face. Shiota did not seem to like that person very much. He seems to be a YouTuber, but his attitude is extremely arrogant. He repeated the question. Is he really your friend? He does not seem to know you have gone pro. Kento replied with annoyance. Not my friend, just a regular classmate. Soa patted the cameraman's shoulder. Good. Let us continue. Shiota offered with disdain. If it is annoying, how about I kick him out for you? He politely refused. I can handle it myself. I will deal with him sooner or later. He looked towards the reporters. But this is an important time for you. Kento reassured him. It is fine. Just ignore him. Saying that he slowly walked towards the noisy crowd. Hearing the footsteps, Oki turned to look. What hit him was Kento's dark expression. Oki feigned surprise. Is that you, Kento? He asked cheerfully. Heard you were training. You look leaner and tougher now, huh? He asked unhappily. How did you find this place? Oki was blunt. I heard from my amateur friends that you were competing too. You know I always have my sources. Right. Kento got straight to the point. So, what do you want? He tried to soften his tone. Come on. I just wanted to see an old friend. Do I need a reason? Oki's real purpose was, my viewers are getting antsy. They want to know who would win between a strong guy and a weak newbie. Shiota got angry and could not help but curse. You bastard. He was exasperated. Then why do you not go ask your friends? Oki made up an excuse. Well, they are too strong for someone like me to ask. He was very enthusiastic. If I fought him, it wouldn't make any money. The views wouldn't increase. Someone like you is perfect for this. Kento was pensive and silent. Oki still wanted to persuade him. Come on, what do you say? I already told my viewers about you. Just one sparring session is enough. Friends have to help each other, right? He showed clear contempt. What friends? Me and you. I only remember being your punching bag. He suddenly put his arm around his shoulder. Hey, don't say something so misleading, Oki said mockingly. You know, saying things like that in this day and age can cause a backlash. He tried to persuade him. You are overthinking it. We were just a bit impulsive back then. Oki desired, so let us just have a serious sparring match like men. How about it? Not bad, right? He showed contempt. Have you not asked your friends yet? Professionals do not beat on dogs like you. He laughed loudly again. That is fucking hilarious. A guy with a 10-loss streak is a professional. Oki joked again. If you are embarrassed, I will get a mosaic to cover your face for you. Kento left him with instructions. There are 3 sparring matches before it is our turn. Go stretch for about 20 minutes and wait. Hearing this, he was overjoyed. Really? You will fight. You seem to have gotten a little tougher. Oki waved enthusiastically. Okay, see you in 20 minutes. The comment section blew up continuously. Are you really gonna do it? Damn. This gym is annoying. The hypocrite is watching too. But you want to see it too, don't you? Let us just watch them fight. You will be banned if you lose 2 right. If he loses, this channel is gone too. Oki was excited. It is a deal, everyone. We will be fighting in 20 minutes, so just wait. He was very sure of himself. You guys will witness a regular guy beat this amateur to a pulp. The others who heard this cursed angrily. This son of a bitch. Oki pretended to be a victim. Huh. Are you trying to bully the weak? No. I am just a normal person who wants to fight better. He thought of himself as a good person. And that guy keeps treating me like a criminal. But I have never laid a finger on my classmates. Oki set his phone down. Anyway, I am going to stretch a bit. Watch Shinkawa's sparring session for a bit. Shiraishi said while helping him. I heard everything from Takeshi. He was a little worried. Will it be all right? He was very sure. Of course it will. Shiraishi looked at him with contempt. He is clearly one of those YouTubers who make a ton of money from live streams. He advised him carefully. Haruyama must have researched you thoroughly. but we will use that to our advantage to take the championship from him. He carefully encouraged him. You just do what you always do. Focus on your punches and flexibility. When Takeshi tries to take you down, just block it and purposely let them see you losing. And he nodded. Understood. The two stepped onto the sparring mat. The reporters were also ready. As for Oki, he put on an extremely confident expression, as if he had already won. The two sides tapped hands, signaling the start of the match. Kento did not hesitate and threw a kick. Being suddenly attacked made Shiota a bit startled. Kento's attack speed was so fast that he could only block it with his hands. The kick was so strong that it made Shiota grimace and click his tongue in awe. On the other side, Oki, who was filming, started to turn pale. Back on the mat, Shiota now began to counterattack. He did not hesitate and threw a punch at Kento, but he easily blocked it. Then Kento laughed and put his strength into his fist, preparing to throw another one. He grimaced and struck forward forcefully, but Shiota nimbly dodged the blow. Not willing to stop, Kento changed his attack direction. He threw a left hand with incredible speed towards Shiota. After dodging, he refused to lose and threw another punch back. Shiota put his strength into a punch straight at Kento, but it was blocked by his hand. Shiota was determined not to lose. He threw a right hook. Kento was not inferior. He frowned and swung his fist. Then Kento nimbly dodged Shiota's punch, his fist now striking his face hard. That reporter was surprised. He is overwhelming even the middleweight Shiota. Soa was proud. I told you so. He turned to her. What? She smiled brightly without saying anything more. After that punch, Shiota's whole face turned red. At this point, Kento put his strength into his leg. He lowered himself, preparing for the decisive blow, and then an uppercut from below immediately sent Shiota stumbling backward. Witnessing this scene, Oki and his lackey were agape with horror. The comment section was buzzing with discussion. That punch sounded seriously painful. That is a real pro. Unbelievable. How can he beat Shinkawa? Tsuyoshi, you are done for. You dug your own grave. He is screwed. Here. Condolence money, kid. White Sue has donated 50 yen. This is explosive, guys. 5,000 yen if they fight for real. Fight him. And beat him to a pulp. Only then did Oki realize how wrong his decision was. He stood there dazed. I messed up. The fight continues. Kento still holds the advantage. A flurry of continuous punches is thrown. Everyone chattered excitedly. Anyway, Shinkawa is the one who took down the third-ranked lightweight in just 27 seconds, haha. What's Oki going to do? For real. He challenged Haruyama too, didn't he? Is it true Shinkawa was bullied by Oki? He said he was a protector, but it was probably the other way around. Don't piss your pants, Tsuyoki. But would a fighter like him dare to fight him right before a title match? It looks like he's about to get what he deserves. Kento gasped for breath. Oki couldn't believe it. That coward. When did he get so strong? The two on the other side praised him. Kento's determination is really something. If his opponent wasn't Takeshi, he would have taken him down ages ago. They found it strange. Why would someone as talented as him be stuck in the amateurs for so long? Another person speculated. Maybe he awakened something. He was always that strong. They were very confident. He can definitely get that belt. I think Kento is more than capable of doing it. Oki was surprised. A belt. He hesitated and looked at the camera. Oki pretended there was a problem. Oh, what's wrong? The camera's battery suddenly died. Everyone immediately understood. Here come the excuses. You idiot. What a pity. Running away, are you? All talk. Soa suddenly cut in. Excuse me. She suddenly approached. May I interrupt for a moment? Soa wanted to interview. I heard you were Shinkawa's high school classmate. May I ask some questions related to Shinkawa at that time? She continued her task. You must be Oki. Right. It seems you're live streaming. Oki Tsuyoki wanted to avoid it. Ah, sorry. I'm still live streaming. Soa got straight to the point. Shinkawa said about you. He's not my friend, just a normal classmate. Do you know what he meant by that? Oki broke into a sweat awkwardly. Well, I'm not sure. A familiar figure approached. Kento said sternly. Are you ready, buddy? Oki started to look apprehensive. Well, I think there's a misunderstanding here. How about we just drop it? He showed a very annoyed attitude. Didn't you want to fight? Oki Tsuyoki quickly said. Well, Kento's presence was overwhelming. Scared now, are you, kid? He bowed his head helplessly. He looked thoughtfully. Then Kento decided, fine, if you don't dare, then get lost. Oki hastily ran away from there. All right, I'm sorry. He went to the camera. Suddenly a hand placed on Oki's shoulder. Hey, Shiota was very angry and demanded. Planning to run off without apologizing, kid. He stammered. It's none of your business. Kento didn't bother. Just leave him be, bro. He punched hard. An apology won't do anything. Kamita with a scowling face approached and demanded, but if you're going to come in here and make a mess, you should at least atone for it. He turned pale with fear. Finally, Oki Tsuyoki bowed his head. I'm sorry, Kento. The comments started popping up again. I just witnessed the most spectacular U-turn. Getting taught a lesson. What a pathetic guy who bullies others, then runs away like a dog with its tail between its legs. A scandal, everyone, ha ha ha. Goodbye, Tsuyoki. He had to endure the humiliation. At a hospital? The doctor slowly asked. How did you feel when you were apologized to? Kento was indifferent. It was empty. He recounted with frustration. Because of him, I got depressed, dropped out of school, and started training at the gym. She tried to advise. It's normal for people to get hurt. The doctor asserted that. And we grow by overcoming them. She had to emphasize. However, when the wound becomes too big and cannot heal easily, it will cause psychological damage. About the trauma, the doctor proposed. The way to overcome this is to be aware of oneself. She gave him advice. For example, understanding that you are different from your past self. The doctor wondered. If you could go back to the past, what would you say to yourself? Kento was deep in thought. He remembered that image. Kento got closer. If I can overcome this pain. He was determined. I will be stronger. She let him know. That is a famous quote from a German psychologist. Kento nodded. I understand. The words I uttered. He had realized that. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Kento recounted sadly. That's what I thought to get through that terrible time. She was a little stunned. He walked out the door. Kento looked at the picture. Hey, isn't that Haruyama Tosoa's daughter? Suddenly there was a mocking voice. Oh, that shameless guy. There was a disparaging voice. This kid is nothing like her father. That's right. Mika looked around. Daddy, where are you? Haruyama suddenly appeared. Boo! He hugged the little girl. I got you. A voice called out. Shinkawa, I'll write you a prescription. The nurse asked for his opinion. Should we process the payment here? Night was gradually falling. Kento was slowly leaving the hospital. He was deep in thought about today's treatment session. Kento arrived in front of an alley. He walked down the steps. Suddenly, Kento was startled. Oki suddenly appeared. You're back a little late, aren't you? Behind him were 3 or 4 thugs armed with weapons who appeared. Still living in this filthy place, huh? He was still bitter. Do you know how you destroyed my channel? How are you going to compensate me, you useless piece of shit? Oki stammered. Hey, you. He looked at him surprised. Are you laughing? Someone was watching and commenting. So, this is the footage of Kento's fight that was posted on that channel. Isn't the opponent Shiota from the middleweight division? He observed carefully. I don't know the details, but from the comments it doesn't seem to be staged. Kento easily defeated one of them. Haruyama had to admit, his opening match was too fast to notice, but it seems he has incredible punching power. Kento easily knocked them down one by one. He admired, his defense isn't bad either. Haruyama had soon realized, most of the strikes missed right. He watched intently. Even Shiota's punches had force. Kento was always seen as, his judgment is pretty good too. He dodges well even in unfavorable situations. He seemed to have discovered something, as analyzed. His weakness is also exposed. You saw it too, didn't you? A point to note, especially his grappling defense. He smashed the man's face into his knee, Haruyama concluded. He calculates the distance for everything except for some of his crappy punches. He seemed interested too. If this is how he beat Oji, it's not surprising how he kicks. Back on the other side. At this moment, Oki was trembling with fear. Kento with a darkened face quietly called, Oki. He coldly made a sarcastic remark. You're really childish. He raised the knife threateningly. Stay away from me. Kento without a word immediately grabbed Oki's hand. He became even more annoyed. A moment later, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the small alley. He asked for his opinion. What do you think? He gave his assessment. The more I observe, the simpler his punches seem. The coach thought about him. He should also sharpen his skills more, Haruyama added, and his ability to keep distance too. He still felt quite confident. But even if he performs well in sparring, it's not enough to withstand my attacks. He definitely won't be able to react in time. He had an idea. It's okay to be confident. But you understand why I showed you this, right? Haruyama also understood. To be cautious, otherwise I'll be defeated like Oji. The coach had to emphasize further. I don't mean to pressure you, but this fight is very important. He was very worried. We shouldn't be careless before the UUCF. He nodded. I know. Haruyama had already planned for the future. I'm 37 next year. It'll be another 3 years before I'm 40. Once I've accomplished everything, I can retire. Besides, I also have to take care of my family. Mika said she doesn't like to see her dad get hit at all. Right. He stared intently at the family picture. That's why I promised my wife. If I lose even once, I will retire. Haruyama recounted with difficulty. I started my career for my family. The responsibility I carry is different from the kids. So I can't lose. Kento's hands were covered in blood. He tried to wash it clean. Kento's eyes looked down. Arriving at the arena, the two of them walked out together. 2 fighters, face off. Haruyama Tosoa pressed his face close. You want this belt, don't you? He was also frank. Sorry, but I can't give it to you right now. I don't know what the future holds, but you should give up this time. Imes approached and asked, Shinkawa, you just received a request from the undefeated champion, who has won 9 consecutive fights. Can you describe your feelings right now, on the eve of the match? Kento was indifferent. I just want to get in the ring as soon as possible. Mick recounted. You mean you want to fight the champion as soon as possible? He nodded. Yes. Mac looked interested. Look at your will. He asked further. In the previous match, you completely defeated your opponent. Have you improved anything for this next match? Kento was determined. I'm betting my life to win. MC changed the subject. We understand your determination. And Haruyama, what do you think about the determination of your competitor? He stated seriously. I'm quite curious if this young fighter truly understands what it means to put his life on the line for victory. Haruyama was very confident. So I will teach him a lesson, Mick wondered. So you're going all out too? He was very serious. On the contrary, there has never been a fight where I haven't gone all out. Haruyama was ready, just like always. I will win for my family. MC was very much looking forward to it. Finally, do you have a few words you want to send to your opponent Shinkawa? He was still very calm. The more you look forward to it, the more disappointed you'll be when you lose. So even if you lose, I hope you don't take it too hard. You're still young. Kento immediately said, I've seen you on TV. He understood well. You care a lot about the little one, don't you? Haruyama faltered a bit. What is this guy trying to do? Kento asked more questions. Is your family the reason you fight with your life on the line? He stammered. Hey, this has nothing to do with... He became empathetic. I understand too. Haruyama narrowed his eyes and assessed him. Kento was not to be outdone, but quickly mediated. The two are glaring at each other without backing down. Finally, he announced, the showdown. We will be looking forward to this main event tomorrow. Don't miss it, ladies and gentlemen. In the office, Soa was typing on the computer. Tomorrow, there will be the appearance of a young teenager in the professional division facing the undefeated king with 9 consecutive wins. She was very diligent, stepping into the ring to fight for the FFC lightweight title. The article described clearly. There has never been a case in history where a young fighter with 11 losses became a champion after 2 professional fights. Something to look forward to. If the fighter, Shinkawa Kento, defeats the champion and takes the belt, he will be the youngest FFC champion in history. To conclude the article, will Shinkawa bring a breakthrough performance in this match? Shiraishi was not at ease and gave some advice. Remember, you are the one in control of this fight, he reminded him. From beginning to end, stay calm and stick to the plan. Show them what you've done. Go out there and prove yourself. The command rang out, signaling him to step into the ring. Shinkawa, go. Kento turned his face. Below the ring, Kanemaru was watching him intently. In the stands, the supporters were cheering enthusiastically. They chanted, Haruyama, Haruyama, Haruyama. Suddenly, the secretary noticed the man sitting near her. She leaned closer. Mr. Chairman, the secretary wanted to talk about him. I thought they came from UUCF. Kanemaru showed his attitude. Didn't John send them to watch Haruyama's match? She found it strange. Haruyama must be the world champion. I think he is fully capable of going international, but why hasn't UFC noticed him yet? He seemed to realize. Haruyama has won too much. She was confused. Is there a problem with that? Kanemaru had to explain. In martial arts, winning and losing both play important roles. He understood clearly. That's why even UFC can't decide. She was curious. Is he the type of person who collapses after one loss? Or, at this time, in the stands, Haruyama's wife was clenching her hands in prayer for her husband. Soa was also very much looking forward to it, while the referee shouted loudly, ready. He had already made a comment. The type of person who stays healthy and bounces back after everything. Kento looked on seriously. Haruyama was also ready. Referee commanded, fight. Haruyama didn't hesitate and rushed forward, seeing his move. Kento suddenly glared and watched intently. He was analyzing the speed. He quickly threw a punch with all his strength. He quickly blocked it. Kento exclaimed, so long. He felt that. It's like using a sword and fighting against a spearman. Kento counterattacked. This blow was immediately knocked away by Haruyama's hand. He also refused to be defeated, and continuously threw punches with all his might at his face. That punch hit him straight in the face. He felt that. Even if I fight head-on, Haruyama is always ready to disrupt my rhythm. Kento felt the difficulty. Even if I land a few direct hits, they are all completely blocked. He became tense and got countered. He continued to throw punches, and more. Kento blocked the blow. He's kicking too. He felt extremely tense. He stood below the ring and cheered. Don't lose focus. Don't waver. He found it interesting. A left-hander with such a long reach. What a difficult opponent for the pure puncher Shinkawa. She was curious. So a right-handed fighter can't imitate and fight back against a left-handed one. Kanemaru confirmed. That's right. But he also emphasized. But even if a right-handed fighter has less chance against a left-handed fighter, the left-handed fighter must fight continuously. The fight was still very tense. Haruyama was relentlessly throwing fatal blows at his face. Kento remembered the endless battle I once saw in my dream. A special point was, in that deadly place there were no weight classes. I had to face all kinds of sizes. There was still one thing, but among them. The scary thing was, there were no left-handed people at all. It can be mentioned, the phalanx, the formation used shields to block attacks. They had a rule. At that time, all soldiers had to hold their shields in their left hand and use their spears in their right hand. Therefore, there were no left-handed warriors at all. Kento was even more confused. Moreover, this is the first time I've fought a left-handed fighter. He was very much looking forward to it. Come on, Shinkawa, how will you handle this? The other person was deep in thought. Haruyama started to challenge him. What's wrong? Aren't you very confident in your punches? Kento remained silent. He became even more arrogant. I told you, didn't I? You're not good enough to touch the belt. He suddenly threw a surprising blow. Haruyama faltered a bit. This kid. Don't tell me He was punched hard in the face. A kick was thrown. He was utterly stunned. This kid. Don't tell me Haruyama took a punch right to the face, imitating my movements. That's right. His face swelled up and turned red. No one expected it. Shiraishi was very excited. That's more like it. Kanemaru was amused. It seems you've figured out how to move like a left-hander. He became even more focused. Haruyama dodged flexibly. Kento tried to attack. He gritted his teeth, wanting to counterattack. Unfortunately, he got hit. He maintained a confident demeanor. Even so, it can't compare to our vast training experience. Kanemaru waited. Let's see how you handle this. Kento broke into a sweat. As far as he knew, in the past, many soldiers were primarily civilians living with their families. A common characteristic was, they all had no intention of risking their lives on the battlefield. But the drawback was, to survive, they chose status and began to carry shields. However, the sad thing was, slaves didn't even have a choice. They were forced, compelled to be sent into the raiding party to break through the enemy's front lines. They suffered immensely, constantly having to dodge arrows and spears raining down on them, constantly evading and disrupting the enemy formation. It was even risking my own life. That was exactly my role. Kento quickly dodged. Haruyama attacked relentlessly. Earlier he had stated, I wonder if a young fighter truly understands the meaning of risking his life to win. He knew it better than anyone, risking my life to win. Otherwise, only death awaits. Kento immediately counterattacked. Haruyama was not afraid at all. You're just flailing wildly, trying to force your way forward with just willpower and turn this match into a brawl. He shouted loudly. Just keep pushing him. He reminded him again. You're in my way. Haruyama kicked him. You're in my way. Kento struggled to defend. He was getting a little tired. This guy is a beast. Suddenly, Haruyama panicked. How much closer are you going to get? He tried to stop him. Don't come any closer. Kento was still determined. Haruyama seized the opportunity. My time has come. He was very confident. You really think you can stop my charge just by backing up? Haruyama said smugly. You fool, I'm just trolling. He still stood his ground. He continued. Your hips are too loose. He was deep in thought. Haruyama grappled Kento and took him down. He had the advantage. He tried to shout, counter. Haruyama punched relentlessly. His face was vicious. Let's end this. Haruyama prepared to deliver the finishing blow. Suddenly he pulled his head closer. His feet pushed hard against the cage wall. He was planning to do something. Everyone was amazed. No one could believe it. Kento reversed the takedown. Haruyama was in trouble. He locked him up tightly. His hand gripped tightly. He broke out in a heavy sweat. Everyone cheered. That's more like it. Good job, kid. Just keep that armbar locked in. He squeezed his body tighter. He screamed in pain. Haruyama's face contorted. He became even more frenzied. Heavy attacks. The muscles bulged with more veins. The voice echoed. Finish him. It was terrifying. Finish him. Finish him. Finish him. He decided. Finish him. The arena roared with excited screams. The screams echoed. Kill him. Kill him. He called out in fear. Referee, kill him. Kill him. Shiraishi shouted to stop him. Hey Kento, stop right now. The girl was worried. You. Kento was startled. He jumped to the other side. The referee ran to Haruyama's side. Kento was covered in sweat. The man sitting far away was very certain. I knew it. That fighter is not normal. He suddenly stood up. She immediately followed. Everyone ran up and hugged him. Kento, that armbar was awesome. One person said joyfully. I really can't believe it. We only focused on grappling and defense, and only taught you one single offensive technique. They admired him greatly, but to be able to turn the tables with a cage-assisted armbar, did Ronda Rousey possess you or something? He also had to praise him. This is truly Kento's strength. He is the monster of the octagon. He suddenly became thoughtful. Kento thought. A monster. He felt trapped, for a moment. My mind was only on killing or being killed. Kento was a little tired. Even now, Haruyama had to approach and admit, "You surprised me. I didn't expect you to have honed your grappling skills so much." He shook hands. "Congratulations, champion." Kento also praised him. "You also gave it your all," the other person said. The Demon King of Lightweight Haruyama's Grand Championship has been passed to the new champion. They discussed excitedly. The new king of the throne is Shinkawa Kento, the youngest FFC champion in history. He's barely 20 years old. Right. Winning the FFC title with just 2 fights. They were incredibly amazed, and the fight only lasted 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Has there ever been a match like this before? The other person was very excited. "You're absolutely right. This is the most impressive rookie I've ever seen." There's another piece of news. Many fighters and experts had predicted an overwhelming victory for the champion. The other person even felt, this must be a nightmare match for Haruyama, whose 9-fight winning streak was broken. Sadly, it was rumored that there was a request from the UUFC, but on the stage where he should have proven his worth, he chose to end it by handing over the belt to a rookie. She suddenly called, "Mr. Chairman," she immediately reported. "Right now, someone is on the phone with Mr. John Shelby." She tried. "I'm not close enough to get the details," but she was confident. "I'm sure they're discussing Shinkawa Kento." He immediately took notice. So the number 2, John Shelby, is targeting Shinkawa. She called again, "Mr. Chairman." He looked. "What now?" She didn't understand. "Haruyama. So he's not planning to have a rematch." Haruyama held the mic and announced, "Yes, I would like to sincerely thank everyone who has always supported and cheered for me. This time, I would like to officially announce the end of my fighting career." Everyone was very surprised. An angry hand slammed down. Kanemaru was very angry. That idiot. Just says whatever he wants. The person next to him tried to smooth things over. "Maybe he's just a little emotional after the fight." He continued, "It would be a lie to say I'm not disappointed, but I'm sure that Shinkawa's victory was not due to luck." Haruyama was sad. "Before the match, I was sure that I would win, and I wasn't careless at all. I had every reason to win," Haruyama reasserted. "Otherwise, I would have had more trouble before the match." He expressed his feelings. "I have won every single match and defended my title, but I just wondered why I haven't received any invitations from bigger organizations yet." Now Haruyama knew. After losing to Shinkawa, "I finally understand why." He didn't stop. "And if I can't perform on a big stage with my current abilities, I think it's time to leave the ring. I don't have much time left to grow as a fighter," Haruyama graciously admitted. "So I want to sincerely accept this defeat." The man sitting below was in an awkward position. He was very sincere. "I sincerely apologize to my fans, but this decision is for myself and my family." Haruyama returned the mic. The other person regretted. "This is quite sudden and unexpected, but I understand. Thank you very much, sir." That person turned around. "Shinkawa, and how do you feel about becoming the champion?" He was very indifferent. "I want to get back in the ring as soon as possible." The person was surprised. "As soon as possible." Kento confirmed. "That's right. I believe the ring is where I belong." The person wondered, "Since you're not injured, do you want to continue with a short fight?" Kento was normal, depending on the situation. "I can fight twice a day." The person was apprehensive. "Pretty confident, aren't you, but with your current condition? It seems like it's not impossible." "Right. So the final question." The person wanted to know. "Your amazing performance has attracted a lot of attention, but I've heard from many fighters that they still doubt your abilities. So, do you have a few words you want to send to those who challenge your belt?" he declared. "I don't care about that miscellaneous gossip, I just want to fight." Kento was determined. "So don't be scared. If you've got it, bring it. I'll take you all on." He returned the mic. Kento stepped up. Haruyama laughed. "Oh my. My announcement was completely overshadowed." She turned around. "Mr. Chairman," he gritted his teeth. "For sure. I will definitely not let him go," Kanemaru declared. "He is mine." He had to praise. "That interview just now. You answered very well, kid." Shiraishi was very confident. "To become undefeated. There's only training. That has always been your motivation," he obediently said. "Yes, sir." Kanemaru approached. He pretended to be friendly. "Hey, congratulations." Kanemaru suddenly ran closer. "The match must have been very difficult." "You did very well." He had to defend him. "Sorry, the kid is still a little tired after the match." He immediately became annoyed. "So our new face has become the champion and the face of the organization." Kanemaru suddenly called. "Coach Shiraishi, you've trained a rare talent," he humbly said. "In the end, it was thanks to this kid's constant efforts." He continued. "Even so, Shinkawa, now that you're a champion, isn't it time to discuss a contract with the organization?" Kanemaru tried to entice him. "If you keep fighting like this in the future, your prize money for each match will soar." Shiraishi was polite, but "I can't decide that right now." He tried to persuade him. "You can't just wander around without belonging to an organization. Right. If you sign an exclusive contract, we can arrange as many matches for you as you want. Kanemaru didn't stop. If you want to fight stronger opponents, then signing a contract with our organization will be more beneficial. If you continue like this, you'll get more favorable terms than even the fighters competing in the UFC. He was still skillful. Thank you for the offer, sir. However, I would like to reflect on this matter before saying anything. He was surprised. Kanemaru hoped. Remember to reply soon. Things are always changing every day. As our father said, act immediately when opportunity comes. Please think carefully about my offer, Mr. Shinkawa. He nodded, I understand, hearing that Kanemaru could only leave in frustration. Kento was confused. Why did you tell me to wait? I don't care about money and those terms as long as I can compete, Shiraishi repeated. There have been some rumors about the last match, he revealed. John Sholby, who has had his eye on Hariyama for a long time, has contacted us. He focused. He revealed. You know his name too. Right. He's the number 2 ranked fighter in the UFC. In other words, there's a high probability that you'll be going to the UFC. She was curious, how so? Kanemaru was angry. Making us wait for an answer when we haven't even heard the terms proves that the UFC got there first. She was surprised. Since when? He predicted. They probably won't discuss a contract right away. Kanemaru predicted. From now on, they will probably decide based on the last match. He had already seen through it. Shinkawa is a fighter that I single-handedly brought up to the heavens and discovered. I can't let him go that easily. She wondered. So what are you planning to do? He was vicious. I'll have to block that contract deal, at any cost. Arriving at the hospital, she was quite surprised. You're saying you had hallucinations again during the match, Kento recounted. Yeah, suddenly, I had a sudden urge to kill. He found it scary himself. I even thought about breaking his head and twisting his arm. Kento tried to describe it. It was like suddenly recognizing the opponent as an enemy that needed to be eliminated. She wondered. So how did you control it? Kento recounted. I heard a voice. She asked for more details. A voice. You mean like a hallucination? He replied. No. Kento still remembered it clearly. It was his wife's scream. My love. He was jolted awake. From that moment, I gradually regained my consciousness. Kento became more thoughtful, from a long time ago, to be more precise. The image of a family from my dreams appeared. She was curious. So you even have a family in your dreams? He nodded. Yeah. Kento was in pain, but I lost them in the war. He was a little disappointed, even though it was just in a dream. I loved them very much. Kento was still very much in pain. I still can't forget the pain of that loss. She decided. Then I'll prescribe more medication. He was surprised. What for? She explained. It's an atypical antipsychotic, a type of drug that suppresses hallucinations and delusions. But what Kento was more concerned about was, will it be detected in a doping test? She was certain. No, there's no problem at all. It doesn't have any performance-enhancing effects. He asked further. So, what about the side effects? She informed him. When you start taking it, you'll feel a little heavy or your tongue might feel a little numb. You might also feel sleepy. Kento gradually understood. You mean my movements will become slow? She just said. Nowadays, the medication has been improved a lot, so I don't think it will be that severe. She suggested further. If you want, you can take it orally. There's also a type that has to be injected once a month. Kento decided. If that's the case, then I'll take it orally. The doctor didn't ask much and immediately wrote him a prescription. Understood. I'll write you a 1-week prescription. Remember to come back for more after you finish it. Understood. As soon as Kento stepped out of the room, someone called him. Mr. Shinkawa, your medication is ready. Looking at the prescription in his hand. Kento narrowed his eyes, not knowing what he was thinking. At the same time, in the doctor's office, the doctor was still maintaining her typing posture. She took off her glasses, revealing the doubt in her eyes. Kento Shinkawa, a mixed martial arts fighter. Remembering the Greek battle he described, the doubt in her heart grew stronger. Fighting and killing, continuous hallucinations for a whole month, thinking of another possibility. The doctor frowned tightly. It's possible it's schizophrenia. This case reminded her of the former lightweight co-champion, Tony Ferguson. He was once a fighter who had won 100 consecutive fights and became the co-lightweight champion in the UFC. However, thinking about what happened afterwards, the doctor felt a little sad. During his peak, he used a lot of drugs. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and his hallucinatory symptoms continued to increase. He began to harm those around him, and finally, at the urging of his family, he sought a psychologist. The doctor couldn't help but worry about the side effects of that drug, and was prescribed bipolar disorder medication, an uncommon form of schizophrenia. The side effects of this drug made weight cutting more difficult, leading to a decline in performance. And then, he lost his championship belt. If this continues, then Mr. Shinkawa will also. And at this time, Kento had stepped out of the hospital door in a daze. Looking at the bag in his hand, he was lost in thought for a long time. Then Kento clenched his fist and crumpled the bag in his hand, then threw it straight into the trash without a second thought. At this time, a few dark lines suddenly appeared on Kento's face. He narrowed his eyes, not knowing what he was contemplating, after a few seconds of being dazed. Kento turned around and ran away from the hospital, leaving behind the prescription that was meant for him. The comments kept popping up. Shinkawa's fighting style is fucking crazy, becoming a champion in just 2 fights. It seems MMA is getting popular thanks to Shinkawa. Shinkawa is currently the top open-weight fighter in MMA. Looking at the image of Kento, wrapping his hands, people couldn't help but admire. At this rate, he will definitely be a target for the UFC. I really want to see how far this guy will go. This guy is definitely at least an A-rank fighter, and dreaming of becoming a champion is definitely not a pipe dream. The audience continued to buzz with discussion, but it's still too early to conclude. I just have a feeling this guy will suddenly decline. No way. He's been smashing every opponent he's faced since his professional debut, including a champion. Probably the same with those who dare to challenge him in the UFC. At this time, the camera moved closer to his face, causing some to admire. And also, Shinkawa is very handsome. Maybe this guy will have quite a few female fans too. And that physique too. Just then, an off-topic comment suddenly appeared. But wasn't Shinkawa bullied in middle school? I heard that's why this guy skipped school. Some people asked with suspicion. For real. The other person, having achieved their goal, quickly replied, "Go check Xtube, dude." The guy who used to bully him tried to pick a fight with him but got scared off. At the same time, Kento and Shiraishi were throwing kicks at each other, standing on the side. Kamada was reading the comments and exclaimed, "Holy crap, now everyone is talking about Kento." After exclaiming, he frowned jealously and mumbled, "But how did this guy suddenly get so strong?" Shiota walked over and laughed. "Isn't it obvious? He has always trained hard while you've always supported him." Kamada disagreed and retorted, "But he was like that before too. And it still didn't get him anywhere." Hearing that, he narrowed his eyes and expressed his thoughts. I guess this guy has always had talent. Maybe he was facing some psychological problems before. Seeing this reason as plausible, he also nodded along. Yeah, lately he looked so emotionless, while the two were talking. On the ring, Kento had quickly blocked Shiraishi's left kick. Kamada admired, like a completely different person. In a flash, he had gathered his strength preparing to throw a kick forward. Looking at this scene, he widened his eyes in surprise. Kento's face darkened as he charged forward like a leopard. His arm pulled back with force. Quick as a flash, he swung a powerful punch straight at Shiraishi's face, but he moved back and dodged it. Under his attack, Shiraishi angrily gritted his teeth and raised his knee. Then he kicked hard at Kento's calf. A sudden pain shot up to his brain, causing him to grit his teeth and groan. While Kento was immersed in pain, he quickly rushed forward and grabbed his calf tightly. Then he headbutted Kento's abdomen hard, causing him to grimace. Despite Shiraishi still trying to push him down, Kento quickly regained his composure and tried to plant his foot on the floor, realizing he was trying to stand firm. A flash of surprise immediately appeared in his eyes. He can still stand after that. And right at this moment, he quickly kicked a hooking sweep at his leg. Then Shiraishi gathered all his strength and hugged Kento tightly, pulling him backwards. With a loud thud, now the two master and disciple were rolling around on the ring. Shiraishi gritted his teeth and squeezed his calf tightly. The pain coming from his calf made Kento frown and roar. He quickly tapped Shiraishi's thigh several times to signal that he had submitted. Standing below, Kamada's eyes lit up with admiration. The coach is so cool, still in his prime as always. Shiota, standing on the side, also clicked his tongue in admiration. You know, he was once the number 3 featherweight in the UFC. Looking at Kento sitting dejectedly on the ring, he comforted him. Congratulations, you have a lot of talent, Shiraishi said seriously. However, you still need to learn how to lose a battle, but win a war. He didn't answer, but just gave a light nod as a symbol. Just then, Kamada walked over and handed him the phone. Coach, someone's calling. Shiraishi put the phone down on the floor and asked, Hello, this is Shiraishi. Hearing that, the person on the other side exclaimed happily, Is that Coach Shiraishi? It's me, Kanemaru. Kanemaru continued to say, I was wondering why I haven't received an answer from you yet. Then I heard rumors about the decisive match for the UFC. He hesitated for a moment, then replied, Yes, in the end that's how it turned out. On the other side, he immediately got straight to the point. As you know, just because he's participating in that match doesn't mean he'll definitely get into the UFC. Even if he wins, whether he gets their call or not still depends on them. Kanemaru narrowed his eyes, revealing a calculating look. Let me be clear. with just 2 fights. Joining the UFC is too difficult. His calculating voice came from the other end of the phone. There's no reason to rush. If the UFC saw his value, they would have approached him right after the match. After a series of threats and enticements from Kanemaru, Shiraishi frowned and asked, "What do you want?" At this time, his plan was revealed. "I have a proposal. Instead of participating in a match where he won't get a single penny, how about a title fight with the Thunder Emperor? We'll have him fight as FFC's representative." On the other side, after hearing this proposal, Kento gave a light nod to indicate his agreement, following his wish. Shiraishi slowly replied, "I understand. A match with a big organization will definitely attract a lot of audience. If he gets to fight their champion, Shinkawa will definitely be very happy." Seeing him agree so quickly, Kanemaru couldn't hold back a smile. "Understood. I'll contact you again as soon as the schedule is set." Waiting until the call ended, the secretary walked over and said with a smile, "Everything is proceeding according to plan," he replied casually. "Of course, it's a big deal." She probed again. "If their champion defeats Shinkawa, will the UFC reconsider?" Kanemaru laughed eerily. It would be great if something like that happened. But a dangerous expression appeared on his face. Even if Shinkawa wins, if he gets injured while competing, then he won't be able to perform at his best in the decisive match. Right. Hearing this, the secretary immediately clapped her hands in praise. "I see, that's a very good plan." She praised him profusely. "You're the definition of a villain." Kanemaru, hearing this, bristled and scolded. "Don't talk bad about me like that. This is how this industry works." At the same time at Cornerman, Shiraishi reminded him, "I've already transferred the $300,000 prize money to your account." Kento, hearing this, just replied flatly, "Thank you, coach." Seeing this, he frowned and explained, "Not as much as when you fought Oji, but it's not a small amount either." He showed a frustrated expression and didn't argue back, but just said, "Yes, I understand." At this time, Shiraishi suddenly looked down at the large scar on his knee and said softly, "For fighters, if they get injured, they will inevitably have to take a temporary retirement to recover." Kento was a little thoughtful as he listened to him confide. Unlike other sports, there is no fixed annual salary, so if a fighter has mental problems, it will be very difficult to continue. Shiraishi continued, "You need money to live, so make money whenever you can." He seriously advised, "You can even teach one-on-one to earn extra income." Hearing the main point in those words, he repeated doubtfully, "Teach one-on-one." Seeing that he seemed interested, Shiraishi smiled happily and introduced, "Well, right now many people want to be privately tutored by the champion," he carefully instructed. "Most of them are just people learning for fun, so remember to teach them gently." Kento didn't argue back and agreed. Yes. 2 days later, on the tutoring day, a chubby little boy suddenly appeared at the gym's entrance. Seeing the boy, he was surprised and turned to ask, "Today's student is?" Kamita sighed and replied, "I heard he's being bullied at school. This boy joined after reading an article about you." Then he turned around and smiled friendly. "It's Jun Ikitani. Right, 15 years old." The boy seemed shy. "Yes." Facing Kento, Jun froze and bowed low to greet him. "It's a pleasure to meet you." However, as soon as he looked up, the boy turned pale with fear because of his cold and murderous expression. The next day at the training center, Kento stood facing Jun and asked, "I heard you're being bullied at school." The boy hesitated a little. "Yes." He narrowed his eyes and questioned, "Why don't you fight back?" Being asked so suddenly made Jun not know how to answer, and he kept stammering. "Hitting someone, I feel a little." Just then, Kento suddenly praised him, leaving the boy completely stunned. "Good." Facing the boy's eyes, he calmly explained, "Almost everyone is like that. That means you were raised well." After hearing that Jun was stunned, Kento continued, with a somewhat defeated tone, "Not liking to hurt someone is a normal thing." Jun hesitated for a moment, then mustered up the courage to ask, "Could it be Mr. Shinkawa doesn't want to fight either?" Kento didn't hide it and replied, "I used to, but now, I don't run away from it anymore." However, an answer like that didn't satisfy the boy's curiosity. "Why is that?" He just coldly crossed his arms and said, "I'll teach you." A serious expression appeared on Kento's face. He stared at Jun and introduced, "The first martial art you will learn is boxing." Kento carefully asked, "You don't like to hit someone with your own fists?" "Right." The boy didn't need to think and immediately replied, "Yes." He coldly continued, "That's exactly why you will learn boxing. Not because it's the strongest, but because it's the one that requires the most endurance." With that, Kento picked up a jump rope and instructed, "We will start with some light jump rope exercises. Then we will move on to techniques." Jun excitedly agreed. Okay. After that, under his constant attention, the boy also trained very seriously. Then the two switched to learning the standard fighting stance. While teaching Jun, Kento's usually sad face gradually became gentle. Looking at the two master and disciple being serious over there, Shiraishi praised. I thought the kid would be very strict because he's very shy, but he teaches well, doesn't he? Kamita laughed and continued. Do you see him and feel nostalgic? Back to the master and disciple. Jun bowed politely. Thank you very much, sir. Kento smiled lightly and praised. You did well for your first day. At this time, Shiraishi stepped forward and asked, how did your first time teaching feel? He let out a sigh of admiration. Maybe I did a very good job. He suddenly became serious and talked about Jun's problem. I heard that Jun is having a hard time at school. Do you think that kid will be able to handle it? Hearing that, he just looked at him coldly and replied, that's why I taught the kid boxing first. Receiving a reasonable answer, Shiraishi stroked his chin thoughtfully and said, in the end, it still depends. If that boy perseveres for about 2 to 3 months, he will be able to punch quite a few guys. Kento nodded in agreement, probably sooner than that. After a moment of admiration, he narrowed his eyes and got to the point. Does he have talent? Kento looked him straight in the eye and answered with firm conviction. Yes, although not entirely sure, Shiraishi mused. I understand. As he was speaking, he suddenly remembered something. Oh, by the way, you have a match scheduled for the 4th of next month. Kento was also startled. Is it with that organization? Shiraishi quickly confirmed. Yes. Your opponent is Aoi Tenshin, the lightweight champion. Remembering Yu's image, he said in a low voice. If you've been following his recent matches, you'll see he's rated as one of the top fighters in the country. A tough opponent on a level you've never seen before. So it probably won't be easy. He didn't forget to remind him. Remember not to get injured. If you take too much damage, you should consider surrendering. Hearing this, Kento was a little annoyed and asked back, are you telling me to give up halfway through? Seeing his attitude, Shiraishi frowned and continued. Showing respect to your opponent is very important. But you still have the UFC. At this point, Kento narrowed his eyes and coldly murmured, it seems everything with the UFC is already settled. At this time, Shiraishi added, 2 weeks after fighting Aoi, you will face Rose Rosen, a UFC newcomer, an African fighter with very high expectations from the UFC. He considered a series of potential problems, with not enough time and facing 2 opponents with completely different fighting styles. There are too many tactics you need to prepare. However, all were defeated by his firm reply. I'll still participate. Both of those fights are too good to pass up. Seeing that unwavering spirit, Shiraishi laughed in praise. Well said. Chairman Kanemaru doesn't want to lose you, so he will definitely give you a considerable fee. Kento asked directly. How much? He didn't hesitate to report the number, 30. Not bad for an event match. Shiraishi couldn't hold back a smile when mentioning the prize money. A fight with a foreign fighter considered the strongest. And you, the most recently famous person. 30 is very normal. Right. Then he laughed out loud and reminded him. Don't get lazy in your training just because you're making a lot of money. Hearing that, Kento quickly replied sullenly. I won't. Time shifts to the next day. At the training room, Kento was patiently teaching Jun. Since you're a southpaw, only use it when the opportunity arises. Unless you're sure you can take down your opponent, keep your hand close to your chin to defend. He moved his foot to the side while teaching. To balance your body, always step evenly when you dodge or move your upper body steadily. Then, Kento punched the punching bag in front of him hard, instead of hitting one hard punch. Then he switched to the other hand, hit 2 or 3 punches with proper technique to create even more damage. After demonstrating, Kento said while wiping his hands, this is how I, who have an advantage in both physique and punching power, can defeat opponents who are stronger and bigger than me. Jun didn't answer but nodded with determination. Right after that was the two's training session. He counted for the boy to hit the punching mitts. Okay. 1, 2. The counting echoed throughout the center. Once again, 1, 2. Shiraishi said nothing and just stood there observing everything. Then very quickly the day of departure for the match with Aoi arrived. Inside the car, Shiraishi turned to talk to Shiota. Wait here. I'll call. A moment later, he had arrived in front of Kento's apartment, his hand constantly knocking hard on the door. After a while, the closed door finally opened. However, the scene inside made him have to peek in. What hit Shiraishi's eyes was the trashed room as if a war had just happened. He hesitated in panic before finally speaking. What happened to this room? Kento didn't answer but greeted him. Good morning, coach. I'm just finished getting ready. Shiraishi was confused for a moment, then continued. It seems you packed quite violently, huh? Or were you robbed? Or did someone come to beat you up? Hearing that, He glanced at the room and replied quietly, "I'm just not good at cleaning." Looking at the mess around, he was a little speechless and scolded. "If you're the one who made this mess, then we have a bigger problem than the match right now." Kento didn't pay attention and quickly cut in. "It's fine, coach. I'll clean it up later when I get back." He hurriedly walked out of the room. "If we don't go now, we'll be late." However, before he could take a few steps, the man had already pulled his shoulder back. "Are you really okay?" Kento, being grabbed coldly, glanced at Shiraishi's hand and reassured him. "I'm fine. It's not the first time." Faced with this dark and brutal side of him, he was a little dazed and replied quietly, "Yeah." As soon as he got down, Shiota had already come out and asked, "Hey, champ, how's the condition?" Responding to the enthusiasm was his curt reply, "All good." After everyone had settled in, he smiled and teased, "Coach, don't forget to buy me a souvenir." Hearing that, Shiraishi clicked his tongue and agreed. "Okay, got it." With that, the small car sped off on the road. He constantly turned to remind him. "From now on, until the match is over, I won't ask anything. I'll ask about everything as soon as we're done." Seemingly afraid of Kento's psychological state, Shiraishi seriously instructed, "Come talk to me whenever you need to. Your problem is the whole team's problem too." Faced with his care, he just quietly agreed, "Yes, sir." Looking at that haggard face, a hint of worry appeared in Shiraishi's eyes. "Kento," he sighed to himself. What the hell happened? The car was still heading towards the airport. After a long while, the two of them had finally boarded the plane. At this time, Shiraishi was putting a suitcase in the overhead compartment. Below, Kento was intently scrolling on his phone. Looking at the phone screen showing Aoi's match, he said in a low voice, "As everyone knows, the reputation of MMA at the moment is very high." Shiraishi sat down and continued to tell. "Among them, the most famous one has to be Aoi, the one we will have to face this time," he said worriedly. "He is rated even higher than fighters who have been in the UFC for a long time. There are also rumors that Aoi is about to join the UFC." Even so, Kento's face didn't change color and he commented, "I don't see any weaknesses." Shiraishi looked over and nodded. "Yeah." As they were talking, a flight attendant came over and reminded them, "Excuse me, sir. We are about to take off. Please turn off your phones." He replied shyly, "Oh, sorry." And so the two's flight took off. The wheels began to roll on the runway. On the plane, Kento was gradually becoming more restless. The scenery under his feet suddenly changed. In front of him suddenly appeared a huge staircase leading upwards. At this time, on the long bench, a figure was sitting quietly there, on the face covered by darkness. Only bloodshot eyes and a constantly trembling body were visible. Back in reality, the flight carrying the two of them had successfully taken off. The plane sped across the huge airport. At this time, Shiraishi turned to talk. "We still have some time before we arrive. Until then." However, he was quickly terrified by Kento's pale face and strange expression. "Hey, what the hell is wrong with you?" His eyes were completely white, causing Shiraishi to shout in panic, "Kento!" Hearing the shout, a flight attendant hurried over to inquire. "Sir, is everything all right?" He replied confusedly, "I don't know what's wrong. This happened so suddenly." Looking at that pale face, she hesitated and said, "It seems he's lost consciousness. Can you unbuckle his seatbelt and lay him on the floor?" He frowned worriedly, hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed. "Okay." Shiraishi quickly laid Kento down on the floor, while the flight attendant kept explaining, "Please understand that if things get worse, we will have to turn back." Hearing this, he looked up startled. "Actually, he's a fighter. This is probably from the weight cut," the employee repeated in surprise. "A weight cut. If someone faints, they need to be given an IV." Shiraishi quickly bent down and repeatedly called, "Kento, wake up." Seeing him not waking up, the flight attendant had to say, "Please wait a moment, sir." The flight continued straight to its destination. A moment later, Kento finally opened his eyes. Seeing this, Shiraishi quickly asked, "Are you awake, kid?" Kento said drowsily. "What happened?" he explained worriedly. "You fainted right after we took off." After that, Shiraishi continued to tell. "They said if things got serious, they might have to turn back. So I told them about your match, so they prepared a seat for you in first class." Saying this, he stubbornly made a decision. To be safe, "We'll go to the hospital as soon as we land." Although he knew his body wasn't well, Kento still refused. "I'm fine. I think it's just from the weight cut." Even though he said that, the man still frowned worriedly. "Is that all?" Shiraishi was doubtful. "You're not just lying because you're afraid you won't be able to fight, are you?" Kento quickly sat up to assure him. "I'm really fine. Actually, I feel even better now." Seeing this, he frowned even deeper and asked, "What is our gym's principle?" He didn't need to think and recited, "Everyone must help each other." Shiraishi quickly reminded him, "That's right. We are a team, don't forget that. Kento didn't answer much but just mumbled a single word. Yes. Seeing that he didn't seem to want to continue, the man had to sigh and take out his glasses case. That's enough talk. Take this. Kento asked suspiciously. What is it, sir? Shiraishi smiled and explained. Sunglasses. I bought them for you. Looking at the sunglasses in his hand, he said softly, Thank you, coach. Seeing that dazed face, the man frowned and reminded him, Remember to wear them when you get to the arrival hall at the airport. Kento was a little confused. Why, sir? Shiraishi leaned back without explaining. He just said vaguely, You'll know when you get there. After a long flight, the two of them had finally landed at the airport. The master and disciple, both wearing sunglasses, were slowly walking out of the arrival hall. Welcoming the two was a group of reporters constantly flashing their cameras. Mr. Shinkawa, please look this way. How are you feeling right now? The continuous shouting in his ears made Kento freeze on the spot. What is your strategy for your opponent right now? Just then, a beautiful foreign woman suddenly appeared next to them shouting his name, Shinkawa. In her hand she was holding a sign. Welcome, Shinkawa Kento. Shiraishi enthusiastically rushed forward to greet her in front of Kento's suspicious eyes. Oh my. Thank you for taking the trouble to come here. He turned his head back to introduce. This is the CEO who will provide us with a place to stay. She is a huge fan of martial arts. She used to help me a lot in the past. She quickly rushed forward to hug him. Welcome. The flight must have made you very tired. Faced with this enthusiasm, Kento was a little shy. Yes. Thank you, ma'am. After that, the three of them got in the car and returned to their accommodation for the next few days. In the car, she smiled and chatted. It's been a long time since I've seen you here, Shiraishi happily continued. Yeah. Remembering it now feels nostalgic. A hint of nostalgia appeared in his eyes. It's quite embarrassing, especially after making a big deal out of a close loss and vowing never to set foot here again. She, hearing this, laughed. A fighter's life has many hardships, so don't take it as something embarrassing. Then she suddenly called his name. Shinkawa. If someone says something harsh to you, just ignore it. Remember, it's all just petty games. Hearing that well-intentioned reminder, Kento calmly agreed. Yes, I'm not the type to pay attention to that stuff. Seeing that calm demeanor, she laughed a few times in praise. Good. After that, she happily offered. So, my treat tonight. Just tell me what you want to eat. Halfway through her sentence, she exclaimed, I forgot you haven't had your weigh-in yet. A moment later, at a rundown old boxing center, Shiraishi looked up at the familiar building in front of him and said softly, You must be wondering why we're doing the weigh-in here. He turned around and smiled to explain. Actually, it's more efficient this way. The fighters can weigh in as soon as they arrive and leave immediately. Let's get this over with quickly and go eat. Inside the room filled with projectors, there was only one scale placed on a bright red platform. Kento, with a cold expression, stepped onto the scale. The group of reporters below all admired him. Damn, look at those muscles. Damn, it's to the point where his handsome face is overshadowed. Maybe he'll give you a hard time. Speak of the devil. A mysterious figure suddenly appeared and quickly attracted the attention of the reporters. It's Aoi. Uwe without haste took off his robe, revealing his firm and toned muscles. Looking at the weight displayed, the reporters roared wildly. He must have cut weight really hard. What a class act. Wei coldly listened to the endless praise. As expected from Aoi, there's no way he could lose. After the weigh-in, the two Kento walked up to face each other. Wu extended his hand and said with a smile, Good luck to both of us. Let's do our best. He just coldly glanced at the hand held up in midair. Then the two of them shook hands tightly, seemingly friendly on the outside but with an undercurrent of tension on the inside. A few days later, at the Big Thunder Competition Center, Shiraishi spoke up and said to Kento, How's your condition? He replied. Fine, sir. He continued. Lately you've looked like a soulless person, but now you look much better. He also replied, It's probably because I ate well just now. He agreed. That's good. He instructed him with a serious expression. Listen, if you get injured in this match, the UFC trial match in 2 weeks will be cancelled, Shiraishi pointed. Above all, try not to get injured. Winning can be second. Then his face became very serious. Making the match exciting is great, but now that's not important. Understood. He also replied indifferently. Yes, sir, he exclaimed. What's with that face? Soa walked in and said, Excuse me. They heard the voice and said, Miss Soa, please come in. Then she asked Kento, Do you have some time for me, sir? He replied, Yes, I do. She asked the first question. This is your first time fighting on the road. How do you feel? He replied. Very good. Soa gave a forced smile but thought to herself, It's still as hard to interview him as before. So, do you have a few words before the match? Shiraishi and Kento looked at each other. He didn't understand what was happening. He had a very determined expression. I will turn this match into a match. That is extremely interesting. Hearing this, Shiraishi looked at him with a helpless face. This kid. On the day of the match, the surrounding was filled with extremely lively cheers. Kento walked out, followed by Shiraishi. The crowd cheered, "Shinkawa, go, go Shinkawa." He took off his robe and hung it up. Soa was standing in a corner holding a camera. She looked at him thoughtfully. Suddenly, someone appeared and attracted everyone's attention. It's Wei. Then the one who walked out was Wei. The crowd seeing him became even more excited. He also waved to everyone. Kento looked at him with a scrutinizing gaze, and his face looked very unsightly. The two faced each other with killing intent. The referee in the middle announced, "The honorable match between the two organizations FFC and Big Thunder is about to begin." That guy smiled and continued, "Now we will begin the match between the two fighters, Wei Tenshin and Shinkawa Kento." Then the referee pointed to Shinkawa and introduced, in the blue corner, the youngest and fastest fighter to ever win the lightweight championship belt, Shinkawa Kento. Then the referee introduced Wei again, and in the red corner, the strongest and greatest fighter in history, the lightweight champion of the MMA Big Thunder tournament. That person announced, the one who has successfully defended his title 8 times, an unprecedented record. The undefeated king, Wei Tenshin, accompanied by his murderous gaze. Then the referee spread his arms, both fighters to the center of the ring. Soa looked around the arena. Wei looked at Kento seriously. Then he told him, "Shinkawa, I've never met a decent opponent before. You probably haven't either." Then he gave a very arrogant smile. "So, don't disappoint me." Then he turned and walked back to his corner. Kento's corner of the mouth twitched up. "I'm also looking forward to it a lot." He turned away but still glanced at him. The aura Wei was emitting was completely different from yesterday, Soa observed. Kento thought to himself, he looks calmer. On Wei's side, he also assessed, and today he looks a bit nervous. The referee waved his arm to start the match. Round 1. As soon as he finished speaking, Wei charged forward panting. Kento was just like him. He swung his fist and thought to himself, "Now let's see what this Shinkawa guy is like." As for Kento, he still had a focused expression. He fought and guessed. It seems this guy isn't planning to dodge. Don't just stand there like a moron, thinking that Oji kicked. The two fought fiercely, neither giving an inch. Wei couldn't believe his eyes. He just moved. He thought further. This is something completely different from the video of his last match. If so, then his gaze focused, thinking that Wei attacked. Who was surprised by Kento's strategy. What the hell is this? He looked at him and guessed the move. Southpaw. Soa was also very shocked. Switchboxing. Shiraishi sat analyzing. What is this kid doing? Don't tell me this kid thinks he can fight like a southpaw against Haruyama. As for Kento, who was still throwing punches, only use this move when you've mastered it. Otherwise, it's no different from suicide. He gave Wei a punch to the face. Then came the next punch. He couldn't react in time and could only curse to himself. This son of a bitch. Wei was able to counter him with a punch, but he dodged it. This time Soa was so surprised her mouth was agape. No way. He completely understands how to use switchboxing. Shiraishi was equally shocked and asked himself, this kid, since when did he learn how to use southpaw? Could it be? Then he remembered something. He guessed. Could it be that he learned this while he was teaching? But he was still very doubtful. No. Is that even possible? In the arena, Kento was gaining the upper hand, relentlessly hitting Wei. He wondered, is it possible? Wei faced Kento thinking, a stance-switching strike. Then he charged forward to attack, as if I would fall for that trap. But before he could strike, he was met with a punch that twisted his face, whose gaze became cautious and calculated. His foot swung back to gain momentum. Wei instantly swung his leg to trip Kento, but it was too late. Soa gaped in astonishment. Is Wei Tenshin being toyed with? Everyone around was also utterly stunned by the ongoing scene. As for Kento, he was still charging forward. Then he unleashed a fatal blow on Wei. He continued to use his legs to attack him. Wei also countered fiercely. He rushed forward to fight back. He raised his arm intending to throw a punch, but Kento grabbed him tightly, leaving him no time to react. He gripped his shoulder tightly, preparing for a takedown. Wei was terrified. Sweat poured down his face. Shiraishi urged from the side. That is right. Push that guy harder. Wu's face darkened as he wondered. What kind of monstrous strength is this? Then he tried to brace himself and counterattack. Kento continuously closed in and pressured him. Soa said loudly, he cannot get the takedown. Mr. Shiraishi pondered thoughtfully. No, the kid did that on purpose. At this moment, Wei had a chance to counter, throwing a punch. The corner of Kento's mouth curled into a confident smirk. Then he dealt him a devastating blow to the face. The punch was so strong, his face seemed to contort. Wei calculated, if I do not stop this offensive rhythm, I will surely lose. Then he raised his hand. Get off me. He landed another straight punch to his face. The following punches rained down on his face. Soa shouted joyfully, he is starting to get stunned. Wu's face was beaten red, but he still tried to fight back. Kento quickly used his hands to block the blow. Then he was sent flying. Wu guessed to himself, a hand parry. He charged forward again to attack him. He was extremely furious, only able to curse inwardly. Damn it. Shiraishi spoke up. That is right. Keep applying pressure and move forward. Being beaten so badly, you thought, is he planning to finish me in here? Then he raised his leg to kick at him. Get away! He quickly caught his leg. Soa and Shiraishi exclaimed in unison. A leg catch. He rushed like lightning, flying over him intending to grab him. But this time Ue luckily dodged it. Kento's eyes were icy cold, pensively assessing the situation. Shiraishi encouraged from below. Do not panic. Kento rushed forward with an angry face. A few drops of strawberry syrup splattered. Afterward, there were red splotches on the ground. One of his eyes was now stained with a bit of blood color. Shiraishi called out his name worriedly. Kento. He did not care, continuing to attack Ue. His hands clenched tightly. Then drops of blood erupted outwards. Kento flashed a dangerous smile at Ue Tenshin. He was bleeding syrup and thought to himself, this guy. Ue looked at him with extreme horror. Is he planning to kill me or something? He was pinned to the ground trying to escape. First, I have to get out of this situation. Ue's face showed a hint of joy upon seeing an opening. All right, now I can. Before he could finish his thought, Kento landed a kick to his face. Ue took another blow to his right cheek, his head tilting to one side. His body was covered in injuries. He swayed and then fell. Kento looked angrily at him lying flat on the ground. The referee saw the situation and rushed in to stop it. Stop. The match is over. His eyes were still filled with murderous intent. Then he looked at his own syrup-stained hands. After that, Kento looked up. The audience did not understand what was happening. He thought to himself, this silence. My body is shaking too. This pain. He was lost in thought. This is the proof. Then his eyes closed, as if savoring the moment. Kento wore a satisfied smile. For being alive. That match was truly top tier, wasn't it, everyone? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the Miss Manhua channel to follow the dramatic developments with us. Soa cheered happily. Kento's coach walked over angrily. I remember telling you to be careful and avoid injuries. Remember. His face contorted by him, he tried to justify himself. Well, I was trying to take him down quickly. Hearing this, Shiraishi couldn't help but chide him. This kid. Then he let out a sigh of relief and smiled. Anyway, congratulations to you. Oe was using a towel to nurse his wounds. Staring intently at Kento, he watched the staff wipe his sweat, thinking to himself, this guy really scared the shit out of me. He propped himself up with his hand and shook his head. I even had to put on a brave face to avoid being overwhelmed by his pressure. Ue's face fell. He had silently admitted to himself. I was completely outclassed. On the TV screen, the referee declared Kento the winner. The little boy watching TV shouted excitedly, awesome. Jun cheered happily. He won. The boy's mother lying on the sofa pointed at the screen with an annoyed tone. Don't you think that is too brutal? Oh no, no, don't tell me you are learning that stuff. The boy turned and answered without hesitation. Yes, I am, and he is my teacher. The mother was stunned and shouted, what? That person on TV? Jun stared at the screen and asked her. Yes, ma'am, he's cool, isn't he, Mom? The mother sat up and exclaimed, wow. His face is not bad. She then reminded the boy, but if you get a black eye, you will look ugly. The boy seemed unhappy and replied, do not say that, Mom. This was a historic match. She looked at the TV screen and said, anyway, it is over. Right, give me the remote. On the stage, Ue extended his hand, not forgetting to offer praise. I never expected a fighter as strong as you. The two shook hands. He congratulated Kento. Congratulations. He looked at him and replied, yeah, you fought well. Ue happily took Kento's arm and raised it. The audience could not help but cheer excitedly at the sight. A reporter with a mic came to interview him. Mr. Ao, could you share your thoughts on this match? He gave a forced smile. Should not you be asking the winner? Kento, this question. The reporter laughed. Of course we will. We have to ask the champion last. Hui took the mic and shared his thoughts. This was a match where I truly gave it my all. But Kento was simply too strong. He looked at him and continued his speech. From the very first moment he saw through my style, and timed my openings to completely defeat me. It felt like I was fighting someone stronger than myself. Ue then bowed deeply. Unfortunately. Today the result was not on my side, but I will definitely do better next time. Thank you everyone for watching. A while later in the locker room, an angry voice rang out. What a bunch of cheapskates. Shiraishi was filled with anger. Those guys did not even bother to ask the winner. Soa, standing beside him, was equally frowning, and they even used the excuse of not having enough time. She turned to look at him and continued. It seems they are really bitter that Kento won. While they invested a lot of money, Shiraishi replied. Even so, this is a different issue. He clenched his fists angrily. We cannot just silently endure this injustice. I am going to complain right now. Kento suddenly spoke up. I do not mind, coach. Hearing this, he got even angrier. Stop being so naive. I am already annoyed that you got injured, he argued back. But I won before all the rounds were over. As planned. Soa also agreed. That is right. The good thing is, you won in the first round. But considering the atmosphere, if the match had gone to a decision, your opponent would have had the advantage. He stood to the side in silence. Kento looked at the two. An icy voice rang out. You are right. But anyway, the kid did very well. That fight was a real treat to watch. She looked at him with admiration. And you analyzed all of your opponent's strengths, weaknesses, movements, and habits in detail, and capitalized on them. Right. I am impressed. He replied calmly. I just followed my coach's instructions. So exclaimed. You always say such polite things. Her mind was filled with thoughts. Did he really beat Uwe that easily? I got goosebumps when Kento won. Was Uwe that strong to begin with? No way. Uwe is very strong. It is just that Kento is on another level. The MMA fans have been pretty quiet after that match. I think Kento would survive quite well in the UFC. He could even fight on par with the top-ranked fighters. Even I, who knows nothing about combat sports, know about Kento. I became a Kento fan right after this match. His face, body, and fighting style are also very captivating. This guy possesses everything a man desires. Watching Kento fight reminds me of Shiraishi Kan in his prime. Between Shiraishi Kan in his prime and Kento, who would win? Shiraishi watched him train and spoke up. Hey, I told you not to overdo it before the stitches are out. Are you listening to me? He reminded him. Look, your face is all red from sweating constantly. Kento glanced at Shiraishi and quietly reminded him. Someone is here, coach. He angrily replied. Don't change the subject, you. Suddenly Ue's voice was heard. Excuse me. Soa exclaimed in surprise. Mr. Ue! Shiraishi was surprised to see him appear. Wow. Why are you here? Ue explained. I am here on behalf of my organization. I have something to give to Mr. Kento. He held out a belt, even though it is just a replica. But we tried to make it look like our championship belt. He gave the belt to Shiraishi. This is a congratulatory gift for Kento from the Big Thunder organization. Shiraishi took the belt and replied, You did not have to do this. Ue smiled and replied, I was also told to invite Mr. Kento to join the Big Thunder organization. Soa's eyes widened in surprise upon hearing this. What? Big Thunder wants Kento. Shiraishi was equally surprised. But, if you agree, would you not lose your championship belt? He sighed. That is right. Currently, no one can surpass me in terms of skill. But if Kento joins, then of course I will have to give up the championship belt. Shiraishi narrowed his eyes slightly. Your organization is really cruel, to make a top fighter say this. Oe quickly waved his hand. No, he explained. Actually, I was the one who proposed this to them. He was immediately surprised. Why would you go that far? Ue replied without hesitation. Currently at Big Thunder, there are no fighters with a skill level that can beat me. And Mr. Kento is the same. Right. No one is on our level. Shiraishi hesitated. What about factors like ability and the internal factors of the fighters? So I am not sure. Ue looked at him and lamented. Actually, after fighting you, I had an awakening. You punched so hard that when the match ended, I was so happy. He then turned to look at him with praise. It is only natural that you are strong. After all, Mr. Shiraishi here, who was once a high-ranking fighter in the UFC, is your teacher. Ue's voice continued to ring out. I could not say this during the match, because we were opponents. But Mr. Shiraishi is one of my favorite fighters. Shiraishi scratched his face in embarrassment. Well, this is embarrassing. Suddenly, his voice became sad. So, Mr. Shiraishi must understand, right? The feeling of disappointment when you are undefeated in your weight class. The stronger the opponent you fight, the stronger you become. I think that is why fighters in Asia are having trouble improving. He bit his lip, lost in thought. Kento spoke up and asked, Is that why you came here? Even if it means sacrificing your championship belt, he replied. Not many fighters can get into the UFC, and it is even rarer for those who can help each other. Ue's voice became determined. What I want is to become a true champion, not just the champion of an organization. If Mr. Kento joins our organization, then we can fight each other. We can be both rivals and comrades, working towards the common goal of the UFC. Ue looked at him with an expectant gaze. I am looking for a training partner who can positively influence each other. Kento spoke up. His cold voice rang out. Want to fight stronger people. Shiraishi heard this, his eyes widening in surprise. His gaze became sharp. I am sorry, but I cannot stop here. Soa could not help but exclaim. He said it. Suddenly he smiled. I understand, Mr. Kento. Ue held out the belt with a sincere voice. But at least, please accept this gift. Shiraishi sighed softly. I am sorry. Ue held out his hand and smiled. We will meet in the UFC. The two shook hands happily. Suddenly, someone walked in and exclaimed, "Oh my!" Tomiko Hojo walked in with her hands on her hips. What a beautiful sight. Kento, who was shaking hands, suddenly stopped and looked at her. Tomiko looked at them, letting out a cunning laugh. Tomiko's excited voice rang out. "I came to see Mr. Kento, but it seems I have also met a rather unexpected guest." She held out a business card and introduced herself. "It is a pleasure to meet you. I am Tomiko Hojo, a screenwriter for a variety show called Go, Sports on the JBS channel." After introducing herself, she apologized. "Because I could not find any contact information. So I am very sorry for coming to see you in person like this. I know it is very rude, but I was really at a loss." Soa also came forward to introduce herself. "It is a pleasure to meet you. I am Soa, a journalist from Rank 7. Tomiko looked at her coldly and said, "I am sorry, but I am out of cards." Soa laughed in embarrassment. "I see." Wei held the business card and exclaimed, "Is it that show?" Shiraishi, standing next to him, asked in surprise, "Is it that famous?" He turned and replied, "Yes. Athletes from different sports come there to talk and demonstrate their skills." She smiled upon hearing that. So we seem to be quite famous. Then this will be quick." She then turned to Kento warmly. "We would really like to have a trending person like you, Mr. Kento, join us." Shiraishi immediately declined on his behalf. "I am very sorry for making you come all this way, but his schedule is quite busy." She heard this and suggested, "We are the same way. At least can I ask some questions when he returns to the country?" He hesitated and replied, "We are planning to stay here for about another 10 days. She exclaimed as if seizing an opportunity. "Oh my, that is wonderful. Actually, we have another week before filming starts. Of course not to replace anyone. It is not like that." Tomiko then offered the fee. "The filming takes about 2 hours, and we will pay you 40,000 yen if you participate. How about it?" He turned to the two. 40,000 for a 2-hour shoot. "Sounds not bad," Soa suggested. "It's a deal." She quickly presented a contract. "I thought you would say that. So please fill out this contract." Shiraishi held the contract in his hand and exclaimed, "This is quite detailed." We also glanced at the contract. He read the clause with confusion. "Neither party shall be held legally responsible for any injuries or unexpected situations that occur during filming." "What is this for?" Tomiko immediately explained. "Well, we will be filming live on TV, so the higher-ups are quite cautious. This is just a formality." He spoke up. "I will discuss it with the kid and contact you later." She was surprised. But the terms are not bad. Tomiko had no choice but to leave. Before leaving, she instructed, "Please let me know by the end of today. If it does not work out, then I will have to negotiate with someone else." Shiraishi replied, "Understood." In the room, Soa could not help but be suspicious. "This looks very suspicious. This reminds me of the Yukio Hatanaka incident." Wei mumbled. "Yukio Hatanaka." She began to tell in a low voice. 3 years ago, Hatanaka, the flyweight champion, appeared on a variety show, but the show's production arranged for her to spar with a man who was 20 kilograms heavier than her. Speaking of which, Soa's gaze became sharp, and Hatanaka was injured. Shiraishi continued with a pained voice. "Being physically hurt is hard enough, but the mental aspect is even harder." Wei spoke up. "If only I could have asked for more details." He replied, "It is impossible. That is our job." Shiraishi looked at Kento and gently reminded him, "Kento, you should just focus on your next match. If you get injured on some silly TV show, then..." He punched the punching bag hard and said, "I will do it." He watched Kento continuously punch the bag. "You are famous enough without being on TV. If I do that, then I will just be attacked by anti-fans again." He shouted, "It is not enough." Shiraishi exclaimed in surprise. Kento continued to punch the bag. "Only hardcore MMA fans know about me." "Right. That is why I have to become more famous." Shiraishi seemed to understand something and thought to himself, "I see. The UFC wants viewers who have the potential to become MMA fans. That is why the UFC always looks at popularity and ability. But could it be that this kid knows that and is intentionally saying that?" Wei said worriedly. "But a variety show is a bit tough. Before, they used a foreign champion who beat me as a joke and then made him spar with some ridiculous rules." Soa, standing next to him, also agreed. "That is right. Even the contract says you will get injured if you go there." Kento swung his arm and punched the bag hard. "It is fine." He smiled smugly. "That is because they will be the same." Kento overwhelmingly defeated Uetenshin. A new champion was born. "I am the strongest fighter." Kento will appear on the show Go. Long live sports. Rewatching the Hatanaka incident. In the meeting room, a shout rang out. "What is this?" Kanemaru Joe sat in the middle of the room with an angry voice. "He is planning to go on TV without saying a word to us. This is an unacceptable act." His secretary immediately reassured him. But the effect from Kento has brought results beyond expectations, and the reaction from investors is also very positive. he growled. So what? He is not under our authority anymore. Kanemaru frowned angrily. If Kento signs a contract with another organization, they are gone. She continued her report. According to our sources, Big Thunder has also expressed interest in inviting him. Kanemaru frowned and shouted. What? He was trembling with anger. Those thieves dare to target my Kento. Kanemaru shouted angrily. First the UFC, then Big Thunder. If we do not act fast, everything will fall apart. The secretary sitting next to him was confused. But wasn't he just a last-minute backup plan from the beginning? We did not even negotiate the terms with him when he was a replacement, Kanemaru replied shyly. That is true. But, are you on his side? He rested his chin on his hands in thought. Well then, let's focus on the UFC for now. Even if he participates in a trial fight, it is not certain he will get a contract. Before signing a contract, we must find Kento's weakness. Even the strongest fighter has a weakness, if necessary. Just throw in a heavier person or someone from a different discipline. Anyway, find a fighter who can defeat Kento. I will justify it later. His gaze became determined. If we can make the UFC doubt his ability, then there is a possibility that Kento will start to rely on us. The secretary cut him off. But sir, you just called the other organizations thieves. Kanemaru shouted angrily. Shut up. What do you guys think of this chapter? Do not forget to like and subscribe to the Miss Manhua channel to not miss the unexpected developments in the next chapter. He then clenched his fist and laughed loudly. Kanemaru was determined that Kento was a once-in-a-century talent. We must not let him go at any cost. Over here, Kento was having his makeup done. Shiraishi looked at him happily and said, when he is made up and styled, he looks quite handsome, doesn't he? Soa looked up at him. With just that face. He could be an actor. Tomiko walked in from outside and exclaimed, Oh my, Kento. I knew my eyes did not deceive me. She began to explain the program's format. I will explain briefly before we start filming. The MC will host the show. So Mr. Kento, just answer the questions. Besides that, you will even have to perform or spar, Shiraishi replied. Yes, I have watched it a few times, the staff member said. Then you probably understand the rules quite well, he asked worriedly. However, Kento has an eye injury, so can everyone please avoid his face? Tomiko immediately replied. Yes, of course, no need to worry. We just want this handsome fighter to become famous. Soa, who was looking at her documents, also looked up at her with a sharp gaze. On her laptop, a camera was attached. The staff member happily explained. The sparring session is just for fun. His opponent is just a comedian with a pretty muscular build. Shiraishi was somewhat relieved after hearing this. If that is the case, it is fine. Outside the show had begun. The MC's voice rang out, bringing the Sunday night energy. The two MCs cheerfully welcomed everyone. Welcome to Sports Day. The male MC looked at the female MC next to him and asked cheerfully, By the way, do you watch combat sports? The female MC replied, Of course, I also really like fighting games. He continued to ask, In games, what kind of character do you like? The female MC smiled widely. I only choose the beautiful characters. The male MC let out an "oh" upon hearing that. You are lucky. Then let's introduce today's guest. The female MC's eyes filled with anticipation. Sounds good. A staff member happily said to him, It is about time. The male MC pointed towards Kento and introduced, Today's guest is the most famous handsome fighter right now, Shinkawa Kento. Shiraishi reminded him, If anything seems strange, back out immediately. Understand? Kento nodded slightly. He watched his retreating back, a sense of unease rising within him. I have a bad feeling about this. He walked on. Not yet. The symptoms of hallucinations and panic are still ongoing. Kento looked at his reflection in the mirror. What is truth and what is deception? He walked out with a murderous aura. I need to confirm. In the studio, the filming was still in progress. The female MC held up a question card. And for the last question. Oh, this is a rather interesting one. She began to read the question. If a professional fighter fights a larger ordinary person, who would win? We want to test this with the strongest fighter, Kento. The MC's voice faltered. That means, I knew this would happen. So we got Kento's prior agreement to spar. Right. Kento nodded slightly. Yes. If it is just a demonstration, then it is okay. The male MC held out his hand in thanks. Thank you very much. Actually, we already have a lot of comedians waiting in the back. However, if things end too quickly, then we will have nothing to show everyone. So this time, we have invited 2 people to participate. Shiraishi fell silent. The female MC looked at him, her voice filled with excitement. This is going to be interesting. The male MC enthusiastically commanded, Bring them in, here they are, come on in. Muscular men walked in one by one. Soa's eyes widened in surprise. Those are comedians. 2 muscular men, with murderous auras, walked up to Kento. The male MC continued to explain the rules. We have ordered some special boxing gloves just in case. and this sparring match will be under boxing rules. Shiraishi's eyes widened. What? Soa exclaimed in surprise. Boxing rules. Kento took the reps, replying, okay. Shiraishi looked towards Tomiko, thinking to himself, I had a feeling this would happen. She smirked, a smug and triumphant smile. Soa looked at him worriedly and asked, but it is still combat sports, so it should be fine, right? Shiraishi frowned deeply. MMA and boxing are two different concepts. Just because you can run fast does not mean you are good at soccer. Right. Even with an advantage. They are still two separate sports. He watched him on stage start to take off his shirt, and continued to explain. In MMA, if someone comes forward, you can create distance with a kick, and even if the opponent clinches, there are many ways to deal with it. But in boxing, if you get closed in on and clinched, you cannot attack. For an MMA fighter, it is like a fish out of water. Soa seemed to understand, and asked worriedly, now that you mention it, I see what you mean. Even if they are ordinary people. Isn't using heavyweights against a lightweight a bit much? She looked at the two muscular men, her voice becoming more panicked. It seems those two have quite a background. They are not exactly amateurs. Shiraishi looked at the two men, frowning slightly. Those are 8-ounce gloves, and they are not even using headgear. He gritted his teeth angrily. Damn it, we have been tricked. Kento put in his mouthguard. The two men looked at him and jeered. I do not care if you are the strongest MMA fighter or what. In the ring, we are regulars from the Japan national team. This is our home turf. Hiroshi stepped into the center of the ring, smiling confidently. He beckoned with his hand, taunting him. Kento walked forward with a murderous aura. The male MC looked at the female MC's expression and asked in surprise, what is it? The female MC's eyes widened in fear. Mr. Kento's expression. Kento's entire body was filled with a murderous aura as he stepped into the ring. The match between the two began. He threw a powerful punch towards him. Hiroshi was in a state of concentration, his lips pursed tightly. A powerful blow from Kento landed on his stomach. Hiroshi was not one to back down. He threw a punch at him. Kento was nimble as a cat, dodging his punch. A flurry of punches from Hiroshi flew at him, but he easily dodged them all. One of his punches grazed his face. Tomiko stood there with her arms crossed, thinking to herself, this is why I love idiots. Guys who have only ever played sports are easy to deceive. I will use you to your fullest potential, Mr. Kento. Kento's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Boxing is, from long ago. It originated from a battle for survival. Kento threw a punch to his right side, then directly attacked on the left, in the blink of an eye. A blow from the elbow was unleashed. The soldiers he knocked down lay at his feet. It was the first skill I had to master to survive without a weapon. In reality, Kento landed a punch to Hiroshi's face. He cried out in pain. He growled, you bastard. He quickly countered by throwing a punch at him, but he dodged it again. He quickly retaliated, with a straight punch to the chest. Hiroshi swung his fist at him, shouting angrily, stop jumping around. Kento looked at him silently, not answering. Soa, witnessing the match, could not help but exclaim. His quick footwork and amazing control of distance have completely shocked them. But normal jabs are not effective against that large body. Should not we stop this? Shiraishi, standing next to her, spoke. It is fine. I know what his lead hand is like. But it is like having your flesh clawed by a bear's paw, all the way to the bone. His gaze darkened. If Kento were fighting seriously, these guys would not stand a chance. Tomiko stood to the side, silent. Hiroshi thought to himself, even if he is just playing around, he is still just a lightweight. He silently assessed him. His punching power is strong, but his stamina cannot. To a former heavyweight athlete like me, this guy is nothing. I will press him against the ropes and smash his face in. He looked at him with a few beads of sweat on his forehead. His eyes glared coldly at him. Take this. He threw a powerful punch towards him. He quickly dodged his attack. Suddenly, Kento landed a powerful punch to his face, breaking one of his teeth. Hiroshi cried out, in pain. He cursed to himself. Damn it. I have to watch out for those counters. In that case, I will use peekaboo, a boxing stance, with two hands held high in front while constantly bobbing to dodge. Shiraishi frowned deeply. There is no doubt about it. He is not an amateur. Soa, standing next to him, was slightly surprised. He continued with some concern. Someone just having fun would not have the ability to use peekaboo for close quarters combat. His eyes were sharp, looking at him. Right now, Hiroshi was like a giant standing in front of Kento. He stood still, preparing to throw another blow. Hiroshi then unleashed a powerful punch, aimed at him. Another punch from Kento landed on his face once again. Hiroshi cried out in pain, covering his mouth. Streams of red flowed from his face. Before Hiroshi could react, another punch from him flew in. A powerful punch landed directly on his forehead. This punch affected Hiroshi's brain. He cried out in pain, while Hiroshi was clutching his face in pain. He threw another strike. An uppercut was unleashed by him. Kento had put all his strength into this blow. He fell in pain. This single blow from him directly defeated Hiroshi. The man who came with him exclaimed in panic, "Hiroshi!" A crowd quickly rushed over to check on his condition. Someone suddenly shouted in panic, "Quick, call an ambulance!" He ran after Hiroshi while calling his name worriedly. "Hiroshi." The stretcher bearers were constantly clearing the way. "Move aside. Make way. We need medical attention now." That guy worriedly turned to Tomiko. "Are you going to continue?" She crossed her arms, her voice full of sarcasm. "What? Are you going to give up here? Then why not just say I'm too scared? I can't do it." He turned back and gritted his teeth. Damn it. Facing that guy was Kento standing in the ring. He roared in anger. "That bastard! I am going to crush him!" Tomiko shouted loudly. "Calm down!" She crossed her arms, her voice angry. "The contract clearly states we are not responsible if something happens. Remember, don't play the blame game when you are the one who brought this trouble on yourself." She walked over and threatened. "Listen closely. If you lose too, then there will be no place for you in the entertainment industry." He stammered. "That's..." Suddenly, Shireishi's voice came from behind her. "Can I say something?" For some reason, those guys did not look like ordinary people at all. She jumped, startled, and turned around, quickly explaining. "No way! They are definitely just amateurs. They don't even have a license to compete." She walked over to Soa and gave a forced smile. "Because this is just a hobby, they are still amateurs." "Right," Soa angrily questioned. "Do you think that reasoning will work?" Tomiko's gaze suddenly became sharp. "Anyway, as stated in the contract, we did not force anyone to participate in this." Kento stood there, his eyes filled with a murderous aura. She smiled smugly, and it seems he has no intention of giving up either. "Right." Shiraishi gritted his teeth. "That idiot." Soa looked at him with eyes full of trust, but for some reason, "I don't feel like he will lose." He also agreed. "Maybe you are right." He growled, filled with a murderous aura. "I will kill him." Kento was no less. His body was brimming with fighting spirit to face his opponent. He quickly threw a punch at him. Kento quickly rushed to attack the opponent, but he reacted quickly, throwing a punch at him. Soa could not help but exclaim, "He is more cautious now." He replied, "That is right." Shiraishi looked at the guy who was clinching Kento's body tightly and said, "He is trying to use the boxing rules and his physique to wear down Kento's stamina, I guess." Soa turned and could not help but wonder. "So what should Kento do?" He replied, "Since the opponent is a heavyweight, just one wrong move could be costly, so he needs to find an opening." Kento's eyes were filled with a murderous aura. He exclaimed in surprise, "Peekaboo! Don't tell me he is planning to fight a heavyweight boxer in close quarters." He quickly rushed towards him. Shiraishi shouted worriedly, "What the hell is he thinking?" The guy laughed loudly, throwing a punch at him. "Idiot! Die!" Kento threw a punch to his side. The guy frowned, letting out a cry of pain. Without letting him react, he quickly threw a punch at the opponent. This blow landed squarely on his face. Shiraishi witnessed this scene and could not help but doubt himself. What did I just see? That Kento. He has completely mastered peekaboo. He got into his stance, preparing to unleash a series of vicious blows. Kento rushed forward, using his right hand to punch his face, before the opponent could recover. He took a full blow from his left hand. He grabbed his shoulder, shouting, "Get off!" Kento's feet were planted firmly on the ground. The guy could not help but be scared. "My strength is not working." He then swung a blow. The powerful blow landed directly on his face. The opponent cried out in pain. Tomiko, as if she could not believe her eyes, shouted, "No!" A storm of his blows rained down on his face. In the end, the guy fell with a thud. He lay sprawled out, right in front of Kento. A man shouted worriedly, "Get a stretcher here now." She was angry, gritting her teeth. His boxing glove was now stained red. His eyes were sharp. Kento carried his imposing presence, glaring down. Producer Hojo Tomiko was flustered by this unexpected development. Let's Go! Sports Festival was a widely recognized popular program. But she always felt something was missing. One day, when she happened to watch an MMA match, at that time everyone was excitedly cheering for Ue. She witnessed the whole process of Ue Tenshin, who many called a legend, collapsing in a pathetic way. It was a sight that was incredibly shocking. As the MMA legend took successive blows, his skin tore and a stream of red liquid trickled down. The audience grimaced in pain. When Ue's body collapsed in the octagon, they were silent, as desperate as if they were experiencing the pain themselves. And there was only one person responsible for that silence, looking down at the audience from the ring with a calm expression. She excitedly covered her mouth. This is it. With Ue's defeat, the anti-Kento sentiment reached its peak. The stage and actors were all set. If they could drag Kento on television and then put him down, they could tap into the audience's emotions and solidify the show's popularity. But now, it has all come to nothing. It was all because of Kento. The male MC standing beside him said worriedly, "What should we do now?" Everything has gone off script. Tomiko whispered to the male MC, drag Kento into an interview and ignite the audience's backlash. Seeing Kento getting dressed, the male MC ran over to interview him. Kento, why did you throw such powerful punches that your opponent had to be hospitalized? Kento's cold voice rang out. Is it not clear enough? The male MC asked in surprise. What did you say? As he removed the hand wraps, he calmly replied. My opponent was a heavyweight, so I had to respond accordingly. The male MC broke out in a sweat and asked, but even so, the opponents today were just comedians, and they had to face the strongest fighter, Kento. He replied without changing his expression. For comedians, this is not funny at all. They looked very serious. The male MC seemed not to understand and asked again, Huh? What do you mean? Kento directed his gaze towards Tomiko. If you wanted to beat me and turn me into a joke, you should have brought a few more comedians. Hearing this, her gaze turned sharp. After finishing the interview, he walked out of the studio filled with a murderous aura. Tomiko stood in front of him and said angrily, Where are you going? We are still filming. Shiraishi stepped forward to explain. The filming time is up. It is not our fault the show ran over time. We will be taking our leave now. After saying that, the three of them left. Before leaving, Soa even threw her a contemptuous look. Tomiko seemed to have been provoked to anger. Outside, Shiraishi crossed his arms. I never taught you that, Kento replied. You mean boxing? He looked at him. Peekaboo style, Kento asked in surprise. What is that? Shiraishi looked at him and clicked his tongue. Playing dumb. Kento still did not understand and replied. No, really. I do not know. He made a punching motion and asked, So how did you perform that peekaboo move? He let out a small "oh." That. I just copied what the first guy did. Shiraishi's eyes widened, and he shouted, What? He could not help but be surprised. Even Mike Tyson could only master the peekaboo style. After countless repetitions under the guidance of legendary coach Cus D'Amato. Although in the end, he still fell to Holyfield's rough play. In your case just now, it was perfectly right for the opponent to push you out. He seemed unable to accept it. Yet you could knock down such a large figure just by imitating him. Kento smiled, not using Tyson. My opponent was just a comedian. His voice became serious. They just called themselves comedians for fun. Shiraishi let out a soft sigh. Anyway, I need some time to understand this, Kento calmly replied. No need to think too much about it. He refused. No, I cannot be your cornerman or coach if I do not understand you. Shiraishi frowned deeply. A coach is not a critic. Instead of analyzing the opponent, our job is to understand our fighter's abilities and give guidance within that scope. Saying that, he turned and walked away. If you think of it that way, then I still do not understand you well enough. He suddenly opened his eyes wide, his gaze filled with thoughts. News of that day's sparring match made the papers. Comedian suffers brain injury after facing MMA champion Shinkawa Kento on TV show. Comedian now in intensive care unit. Dirty tricks targeting Shinkawa Kento exposed on a variety show. Kento and those involved released details of the contract provided by the TV station to the producer before the broadcast. Similar incidents have occurred with this show before, causing a rising tide of criticism online. Fighter Hatanaka Yuki. Hearing this story feels like it's her own. My heart aches. Have some shame. MMA champion Ue Tenshin criticizes dirty tricks on variety shows. The man who recently had a match with Kento shows true sportsmanship. Ue Tenshin sees Kento off at the airport. Their friendship and the recent incident are like water off a duck's back. Ue Tenshin left and Shinkawa Kento right shake hands. The two happily shook hands. Ue happily wished him. Good luck in your match in America, Kento happily replied. Thank you. He smiled. I will be following soon. Wait for me. The two fist bumped each other, full of promise. Shiraishi couldn't stop thanking Soa. Miss Soa, thank you so much for everything. He smiled. I do not know what would have happened without you, she replied shyly. It is nothing. I was just doing my duty as a journalist. Shiraishi looked at her with a fond gaze. See you when I get back. Soa was embarrassed. Yes, I am sorry I can't go to America with you. She smiled and said goodbye. I will take my leave here. I need to buy some local sake for the editor-in-chief. Looking at the two of them leaving, Soa shouted loudly, Kento, I will be cheering for you from here. Good luck. In faraway America. A crowd stood in front of a bakery. A man bought a loaf of bread. The man asked, Hey, King Kong, I hear you are fighting a Japanese fighter soon. Rose calmly replied, That is right. The man continued, dieting while distributing food. It must be tough, he replied. It is fine. In my hometown, having nothing to eat is normal. The man realized he had said too much. I see. I asked something I should not have. Rose's voice was cold. So just eat your fill. If there are leftovers, I might eat them all. In a street corner, a shout suddenly rang out. A man in a cloak shouted, I am not asking for food. I want drugs. Rose stood still. silent. In the distance, a man clutched his arm in pain. The man angrily charged at Rose with a knife, shouting, "What is wrong with you? You looking for a fight?" He slowly walked forward. "In my hometown, people die in war without a single drop of water to drink." He roared angrily. "Shut up. What does that have to do with anything here?" He swung his knife at Rose. "Shut your mouth, you bastard." His face unchanging. He used his bare hand to block the knife stabbing towards him. Rose's hand gripped the knife tightly. His cold voice rang out. "What I learned from that is, only those who are prepared to die have the right to kill others." Rose slowly uttered, "Are you prepared to die?" He looked at him, his eyes filled with fear. Rose swung out, a blow. The blow was so strong it sent him flying. He groaned in pain, a few times. Rose looked at him, his eyes filled with a murderous aura. Soa smiled happily into the camera and introduced, "Hello everyone, it is time for the Rank 7 Corner. Today, we will be discussing the hottest topic in the martial arts world right now, fighter Shinkawa Kento." She looked to the person next to her and introduced, "But before that, we have a very special guest today, that is former FFC flyweight champion, Yukio Hanataka." Yukio happily greeted the audience. "Nice to meet you all. I have retired from MMA. Now I am a Jiu-jitsu and CrossFit coach," Soa asked. "So have you watched Shinkawa Kento's matches?" She happily replied. "Of course, I have watched them all and am always cheering for him." Soa continued to probe deeper. "Do you know about the recent incident on the Go Sports Festival show?" Yukio frowned slightly. "Yes. An acquaintance told me. I went through something similar a few years ago." Soa then introduced, "Today, instead of watching the edited broadcast, we will be watching the original footage recorded live on the scene. We want to analyze what happened that day with Miss Yukio." She started the video. "Please watch this," Soa asked. "What do you think about the size difference between the two?" She replied softly. "At a glance, there is about a 20-kilogram difference." Yukio looked at the man in the video, surprised. "But, is that other guy really a comedian?" She then pointed out the man's unusual points, even when throwing with full force. His body's axis does not shift at all, based on the number of punches thrown per minute. There is no way he is an amateur. I think he is definitely at a professional level. Kento looks calm even when facing an opponent like that. Yukio continued to assess Kento's opponent. The opponent has a longer reach, and is in a heavier weight class. The punching power is definitely on a different level. Normally, Kento would not stand a chance, but his ability to switch between close quarters combat and distance fighting is extremely fast. She continued to assess. The problem is, no matter what strategy he uses, he cannot inflict significant damage on the opponent. Yukio exclaimed. "Something is strange," Soa asked in surprise. "What do you mean?" Yukio replied. "Kento's punches are all on target. If they only hit the face, it would be understandable. But even the abdomen, which has more fat, does not show much impact." Soa seemed to remember something and said, "Now that you mention it, Coach Shiraishi said the same thing. But could that really happen?" Yukio let out a gasp. She looked at the screen and suggested, "Let us pay attention to his punching form. It is a twisting punch. He uses his shoulder rotation to create a punching angle." She exclaimed in surprise. "Isn't that a punch that puts a lot of stress on the shoulder joint? He must know the risks, but still does it to win." Soa could not help but worry. Kento's shoulder. I wonder if it is okay. At the same time, Kento reached up and squeezed his shoulder. In the car, he reached up to rub his shoulder. Kento looked at his shoulder blade, in pain. The car arrived and stopped. Shiraishi woke up and coughed slightly. He complained. "Jet lag is exhausting. This kind of schedule is really too much to bear. The match in America is only 2 weeks after the title fight." Shiraishi turned to look at him. "I feel exhausted too. And you are even cutting weight. It must be tough." Kento looked outside and replied, "I am a natural short sleeper, so it is fine." He looked at the photo in his hand and was stunned. Shiraishi spoke up. "Rose Enkanoran. Even though he is still far from the top rankings, he is a hard-hitting fighter, on a 3-fight winning streak. The UFC has a deep roster. It is not easy to climb the ranks like in the domestic leagues." Kento looked at him and exclaimed, "This guy is strong," he interjected. "Of course, there are no weaklings in the UFC." He looked at Rose and calmly said, more like, "He is not easy to take down." "Ah, I heard he had a very tough childhood. Perhaps that is the pride of someone who chose the path of fighting to survive." Kento's sharp eyes mumbled, "Fighting to survive." He frowned and reminded him, "Of course, you cannot let your guard down. But being too tense is not good either. Remember that. You have knocked out 2 heavyweight boxers before. Your punches are the real deal. If you land one solid blow, any monster will fall." Shiraishi clenched his hand tightly. He sat there, speechless. Somewhere else, Rose was having his wounds treated. The The man was bandaging the wound, while scolding. You dare to catch a knife with your bare hands when you have a fight coming up. Rose clenched his injured hand and spoke. From the age of 10, I had to wield a pickaxe all day in the mines. Suddenly he stood up, his skin peeling, revealing raw flesh. My hands were always bleeding, but I had no other choice but to wrap them in cloth and continue working. The man beside him exclaimed, I see, you have been through a lot. Rose prepared to take a shower. Meanwhile, on Kento's side, he was also preparing to take a shower. Shiraishi squatted beside the bathtub, shouting out, Hey, get the bath salts out of my suitcase. As he stirred the water in the tub, he said, Soaking in hot water with salt helps you sweat more due to osmosis. Shiraishi looked at his red hands from the hot water and exclaimed, It is so hot. Kento soaked himself in the bathtub, sweating profusely. He looked at his condition and asked worriedly, Are you okay? Kento replied. Fine. I think so. Shiraishi looked and gently reminded him, Get out after 10 minutes. Soaking for too long will make you dizzy. When you get out, switch to using an electric blanket. Saying that, he walked out, leaving him alone to soak in the bathtub. Meanwhile, on Rose's side, he was in a sauna. The man beside him turned and asked, Can you still take it? He closed his eyes and replied, I am fine. My hometown is always this hot. Rose remembered his time back home. The sky hot and humid. He was digging the earth. Rose tiredly looked up at the sky. As for Kento, he felt as if he was walking in a desert. Kento tiredly knelt down on the ground. With sweat beading on his forehead, he thought to himself, The pain will not kill me. Kento lay on the bed and kept mumbling, Will make me stronger. Shiraishi said, in surprise. He lay on the bed and replied, I heard that is a quote from a German philosopher. He looked at Kento's condition and smiled. After going through all this suffering, have you become enlightened? His dry lips curled into a faint smile. Shiraishi saw this and teased him. You can still smile at a time like this. Are you still sane? Kento replied softly. Yes. He continued to tease. Your lips are so dry that even smiling makes them crack and bleed. It was time for the press conference. Kento and Rose stood facing each other. The two looked at each other with eyes full of a murderous aura. The murderous aura emanating from both of them was equal. Suddenly, Rose raised his thumb in front of Kento's face. Then Rose leaned close to his face and whispered, I will use you as a stepping stone. Kento's sharp eyes looked at him. A man holding a glass of wine spoke. John, is that the person you are waiting for? The man sitting opposite replied coldly. Yes, that is the man who defeated the FFC champion in just 2 matches and beat an MMA champion 2 weeks ago. He is John Shelby, the UUFC's second rank. Dana Heyman, the UUFC representative, was surprised. He doesn't look like anything special. They were discussing. Also, he is Asian, right? Even though this fight is not the main event. He just fought 2 weeks ago, and this is a trial match. Is that not too unprofessional? I do not like it at all, John said in a low voice. On the contrary, you could say he is risking his life. Dana took a sip of wine. Rose is a monster, no matter how you look at it. The one who will climb to the top will not lose to someone like that. He could not help but be excited. Tomorrow we will confirm everything. That is the reason for this trial match. Night fell. Shiraishi looked at his phone and said, I thought we could eat at a Japanese restaurant nearby, but they are all closed. Kento scooped a spoonful of porridge and replied, I can eat porridge. He watched him eat porridge in silence. Suddenly, Shiraishi frowned and commanded, Hey, Kento, raise your right hand. The hand holding the spoon in his right hand trembled slightly. Shiraishi's voice was full of worry. Since when? Does it hurt? Kento replied calmly. It hurts a little when I throw a punch with my right hand. He could not help but be surprised and shouted, You! Shiraishi shouted angrily. Why have you been silent about something so important until now? If it is a training injury, then it did not just happen yesterday or today, he calmly said. I thought you would tell me not to fight. Shiraishi looked at him with a worried voice. Are you going to fight with this hand when the conditions are already difficult enough? He let out a soft sigh. No, it is my fault. I should have noticed without you saying anything. Shiraishi could not help but blame himself. I am losing my mind. Arranging a fight just 2 weeks apart. I should have known how reckless that was. I was too greedy when you said I could do it. Kento glanced at him without saying anything. His voice was full of regret. Even though humans have limits, maybe I will regret this for the rest of my life. He interrupted him. Coach, he asked in a low voice, do you know why I did not give up despite losing 10 times in a row? It is because you were always there cheering me on. His voice was full of gratitude. The feeling of having someone who believes in me. I have never experienced that before. He was stunned upon hearing this. Shiraishi said in a low voice, Why go to such lengths? Is the fight more important than your career as a fighter? He said in a low voice. Yes, because that is why I live. He jumped up in surprise. He looked at his hand without changing his expression. I do not care about my current condition. My right hand is not all I have, Shiraishi questioned angrily. Do you think I would be happy to hear that? Shiraishi's hand reached towards him and was suddenly blocked. Kento looked at the hand without saying anything. He looked up and asked coldly, You really understand? Don't you, coach? Shiraishi frowned tightly and replied, I understand better than anyone how big of an opportunity this is. That is why I am so angry with myself. He ran his hand through his hair and shouted, This is so frustrating, I cannot do anything. He looked at Shiraishi and said, That is not true. I am not alone. That is more than enough. Shiraishi ruffled Kento's hair. Oh God, you. If you think so, why don't you listen to me for once? At the training gym, Rose was crazily punching forward. The man shouted loudly, Good job. That is a beautiful punch. He growled, I will tear that Asian apart piece by piece. He touched his forehead to Rose's and repeatedly said, That is right. Fight like your life depends on it. You know what I mean, don't you? The guy ordered. Beat him to a pulp. Rose threw a powerful punch. I will definitely finish him. He continued to instruct Rose. You fought for this day. Put your all into it. He threw a powerful punch and shouted, I am the strongest in the world. Rose was like a monster unleashing consecutive punches. A few days later, the match was held. Shiraishi was wrapping Kento's hands. He looked at him and asked, Is it too tight? Kento moved his hand slightly and replied, It is fine. Shiraishi wrapped the other hand and said softly, I will not tell you to go easy. If I was going to say that, we wouldn't have come this far. That is why I am saying this. If you lose because of this injury, you wouldn't have won, even if you were uninjured. He threatened coldly. I don't care about Rose or wine or whatever. If you lose to someone who is not even ranked, you might as well pack your bags and go home. Shiraishi frowned deeply and reminded him. So fight with the determination to kill your opponent, even if you have to sacrifice your body. If it gets to that point, the referee will stop the fight anyway. Kento clenched his fist tightly. His eyes filled with a murderous aura, he replied, Understood. Afterward, Kento looked up at the stands. Rose was also brimming with fighting spirit, ready for battle. The two stood opposite each other in the ring, just waiting for the referee's signal. The referee raised his hand to signal, Fight. A fist was immediately extended from Kento. He also nimbly took the offensive. A second later, both of these punches landed directly on their opponents' faces. The MC's voice rang out, Ladies and gentlemen, we are broadcasting live. Fans across the nation. The wait is over. In the blue corner of the stands, the MC introduced an MMA fighter, 1 meter 77.8, 70.3 kilograms, Shinkawa Kento. Then the male MC turned to continue the introduction. And in the red corner, with a professional record of 3 wins and 0 losses, a kickboxing fighter, 1 meter 80.3, 70.3 kilograms, Rose Enkanoran. At the San Francisco homeless shelter, the crowd watching the match roared non-stop. King Kong, take him down, beat him down and move on to the UFC. You are our rising star. Suddenly a man suggested, Hey, anyone want to place a bet? Hurry up. The match has not started yet. A woman shouted loudly, No betting. You were just caught for that and now you are trying to do it again. The man gave a forced smile. All right. Anyway, no one would bet on anyone but Rose. It's not even worth it. On the side of the stands, the audience cheered non-stop. John saw this and said, You can tell the odds just by listening to the cheers. I'm guessing around 7-3. Dana smiled triumphantly. No, it has to be 9-1. He spoke. Even though it is not the main event, we need some excitement, he said sarcastically. Well, as long as it is not a boring match, I am grateful. In the stands, the referee spoke. Are you both ready? Fight fair. Now. Touch gloves. The two immediately raised their hands to touch gloves. The referee shouted loudly, Fight. The two directly unleashed powerful blows. Shiraishi couldn't help but be impressed. He shouted. A fierce exchange right from the start. The audience in the stands had a similar reaction. Rose cried out in pain. He exclaimed in surprise, What is this? Rose looked in surprise and couldn't help but doubt. Left-handed lead. Shiraishi stood in the stands thinking to himself, His right hand is useless. It is right to switch to a left-handed stance. Kento directly threw a punch at Rose. He quickly dodged his blow. Very quickly, Rose also threw a counterpunch, then threw a series of punches at Kento, but they were all dodged by him. Kento's sharp eyes looked at Rose and let out a small yelp. He threw a punch at him, thinking to himself, You plan to win with a left-handed stance. Kento's gaze immediately shifted elsewhere. Rose growled, Where are you looking? The man in the stands happily exclaimed, That is right. Do not exchange blows. Circle around. Shiraishi cursed under his breath. Damn it, he thought to himself. He adapts so quickly. He moves as if he has fought a southpaw before. Rose thought to himself, Are you scared because I switched stances so quickly? The coach's advice is useless against a southpaw like me. The moment he charged in with that ridiculous act, He had already lost. Dana observed the match and frowned slightly. Kento directly landed a powerful blow on him. Then he continued with a right-handed punch. He frowned slightly in pain. Rose smiled, thinking to himself, that punch has no power at all. Is he pretending to use his left hand because his right is injured? Then I will beat him to death. Thinking that, he immediately threw a punch at Kento's face. Shiraishi shouted loudly, "Hey, don't let him circle out." He directly rushed to attack Rose, but before he could throw a punch, he was hit by a blow from him. Kento immediately raised his other hand to punch, throwing a powerful punch at Rose. His coach shouted excitedly, "This is it." Rose directly landed a powerful blow on his face. The crowd watching could not help but shout loudly. Kento opened his eyes, his pupils dilated to the maximum. Shiraishi shouted worriedly, "Get away from him." Yet he threw a counterpunch. The punch landed on Rose's face. He thought to himself, against someone so weak. Kento continued to throw another punch at the opponent. He took his punch squarely. He thought to himself, I do not need to hold back. Kento cried out in pain. The punch was so strong it sent him backward. Rose's eyes were filled with a murderous aura. Injured right hand. I do not care. The battle between the two became extremely fierce. This is a battlefield. It is either kill or be killed. And on that battlefield, Kento's right hand was pierced by an arrow. His eyes were filled with a murderous aura. Kento suddenly backed away. Rose smiled smugly, thinking to himself, you finally realize your cheap tricks are useless, huh? He smiled and threw a punch. This is the finishing blow. The blow landed on him, but Kento quickly dodged it. Rose couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. What? No way. This guy. His eyes filled with a murderous aura, he threw a punch at his face, making Rose confused. He is using his right hand. Rose could not help but exclaim. Damn it. A punch of this size is nothing. Before Rose could recover, Kento rushed in. He threw a blow to Rose's calf. He grabbed Rose's leg tightly. Rose could not help but be surprised and said to himself, he cannot trade blows with me, so he is switching to wrestling, huh? Rose immediately bent down and grabbed his neck, thinking, I will choke his carotid artery. Shiraishi shouted worriedly, Kento, watch out for the guillotine choke. He lifted Rose off the ground. Rose could not help but be surprised. Shiraishi thought to himself, good, attack. Kento then slammed Rose to the ground. Everyone who witnessed it was stunned. Even Dana was equally surprised. The people watching at home were also worried. This is not good. Rose, he has taken the mount position. Rose gritted his teeth, thinking to himself, I have to get back to the initial position quickly. Suddenly, he spun Rose around. Kento exerted all his strength. Rose was lifted by him with ease. Rose's face showed disbelief as he shouted, no way. Shiraishi could not help but be surprised. Can he lift that gigantic body? He lifted Rose's body high up. Rose was panicked. This is it. Kento suddenly did a somersault. Dana and John exclaimed in surprise, it is a suplex. Shiraishi could not help but exclaim, that idiot. Rose was slammed hard onto the ground by him. He cried out in pain. Rose's coach shouted worriedly, get out, Rose. The hand gripping Rose's body suddenly increased its force. Rose broke out in a sweat on his forehead and could not help but be surprised. Dana's eyes widened as he exclaimed, Suplex City. Kento continued to slam Rose hard onto the ground. Rose groaned in pain. In the homeless shelter, the man exclaimed in horror, no way. The person next to him was equally surprised. I can't believe there is someone in the world who can overwhelm Rose like that. Looking at Kento on the TV, he could not help but be curious. Who the hell is he? Rose said to himself, I will never go back to that life again. I will be the winner. Kento's hand tightened more and more. His face was filled with a murderous aura. Rose roared loudly. Dana couldn't help but shout excitedly, holy shit. Rose swung a punch at his face. Rose's face was filled with pain. Rose's coach shouted worriedly, hey, tap out, tap out. Kento grabbed Rose's hand and snapped it. Rose's eyes widened in pain. The referee then came over and declared, the match is over. The audience who witnessed the match was stunned. Even those watching at home on TV couldn't help but be worried. Rose clutched his arm, filled with pain. In Rose's eyes, the image of Kento was overwhelming. Rose thought to himself, until now, I have always entered every match with the mentality of killing my opponent. Rose remembered his childhood image. Because if I don't, the one who dies will be me. But what is this guy fighting for? In the stands, two men were discussing the match. That last match was too amazing for an opening match. The person next to them happily replied, luckily we got to see it live. Those who only watched the main event on broadcast will regret it. Dana then stood up. John saw his appearance and was surprised. What's wrong? Dana's eyes contained many thoughts. John was beside him. He called out, Dana. He walked over and snatched the mic from the MC's hand. He happily said, that was amazing. Dana was full of pride. Did everyone see that? This is why our tickets sell like hotcakes, a man suggested. Dana, put him in the UFC. If you do that, I will buy those expensive tickets again. Dana glanced away. In the face-off. I thought he was a boring guy. Who knew he had this side to him? Kento in the ring looked down with a sharp gaze. He saw his appearance and teased him. What's wrong? After the match, you turned into a shy little girl. Say something. You are the star of the show tonight. Dana pointed his finger at his face and declared, no need to watch the main event anymore. The star of today is you. Kento asked coldly, so, does that mean I get to fight in the UFC? He immediately replied, of course. We will drag you into so many fights you will get sick of it. So tonight just drink as much as you want and enjoy yourself. The audience cheered nonstop after hearing that. Kento's gaze was distant. In the stands, people danced exuberantly. They danced happily to the music. In the room, Dana also laughed and said enthusiastically, Octopus, long time no see. Shiraishi looked at him, his voice cold. Do not call me that anymore. I am almost bald. Dana heard this and burst out laughing. He smiled and explained. Octopus was the nickname I gave him, and he also competed in the UFC. Dana recalled when he was young. His jiu-jitsu level was top-notch. He could handle anything. Wrestler, judo. Name any sport, he could take it. He was like a monster. Every time he pinned an opponent to the ground, he looked just like an octopus. He pointed at Kento. So I will give you a ring name too. Dana closed his eyes and thought. Normally shy. But once he enters the ring, it's like he turns into a beast. Then let us go with the name Janus. Two-faced fits perfectly, doesn't it? Kento remained silent. He looked at the people dancing in front of him. In a flash, those people turned into warriors. At this moment, Shiraishi also noticed Kento's condition. Dana laughed loudly. Anyway, congratulations. I was curious who trained such a terrifying fighter. It turns out to be a legend. I will send the draft contract tomorrow morning. Remember to let me know which hotel you are staying at. He bowed his head low. At the hospital, a collective "oh" was heard. A short-haired girl held up her phone and asked suspiciously, was not he a patient here? The person sitting next to her looked at the phone and replied, yes, yes. It's Mr. Kento. I heard he was going to compete in the UFC. I never thought it was true. The other person asked again. This is in America. The girl sitting next to her replied, I also heard he just defeated an MMA champion recently. The short-haired girl then understood. So he is a fighter. The female doctor walking by heard their conversation and couldn't help but be curious. She walked over and looked at the screen, exclaiming, Mr. Kento. The girl with her hair in a bun looked up and asked, Doctor, you remember him too, don't you? The short-haired girl said worriedly. I have not seen him recently. I wonder if he is okay. Hearing this, she let out a sigh and thought to herself, he seems fine on the outside, but has he really recovered? Then she reassured herself. He is probably fine. Nighttime in Sacramento. On the side of the road, Shiraishi held his phone and said, Good, I called a taxi. It should be here soon. He happily asked him, you know, they only broadcast the main events here, but in Japan they also broadcast the preliminary fights. Shiraishi's voice was slurred. Thanks to the contract between the UFC and Japanese media, any match with a Japanese fighter gets aired, which means you are about to make a lot of money. He continued to ramble on, not to mention there is also a $50,000 bonus for the most impressive performance of the night. Kento next to him was now covered in sweat. Shiraishi's voice was full of excitement. Man, this reminds me of my debut at the UFC. Back then, I really wasn't. He turned to look at Kento and shouted in panic, Kento! He worriedly shook him. Hey, you are sweating so much. Are you okay? You are acting really strange. He reached up and grabbed Shiraishi's hand tightly. His eyes were sharp as he looked at him. Shiraishi cried out worriedly, Hey! Kento threw a punch at him. Shiraishi quickly dodged it. He now seemed to have lost control. He shouted worriedly, Kento, what's wrong with you? His voice trembled. Don't tell me. It is like that day. Shiraishi looked at him and asked, Kento. He didn't answer but continued to charge at him. Shiraishi was worried. You still have a shoulder injury. Kento seemed not to hear anything around him and continued to throw punches at him. Shiraishi bent down and hugged his legs tightly. He was in a takedown position. Shiraishi quickly took Kento down to the ground. He held his legs tightly. Shiraishi roared angrily. Calm down, you idiot. Kento cried out in pain. He continued to speak. What the hell are you thinking? Where is your arm wrestling? He immediately swung his leg and kicked him. Kento stood up like a wild beast and looked at Shiraishi. He looked at him and shouted angrily, I know you have a habit of sleeping with your eyes open, but this is too much. Kento rushed to attack with lightning speed. Shiraishi glanced down slightly. A yellow light flashed. He stepped back slightly. Shiraishi bent down and held his head. He sat down and held Kento's head tightly. He continued to struggle. After a while, Kento's arm went limp. He was unconscious. Shiraishi let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, a noise from behind made him turn around. The driver stammered, I am a taxi driver. The two of them quickly helped the unconscious Kento into the car. The driver asked suspiciously, You are not a criminal, are you? Shiraishi frowned slightly and replied, It is fine. Please let us off. The car started to move. Sitting in the car, he looked at him and frowned slightly. Kento, What are you thinking? Shiraishi let out a soft sigh. What do I do now? A voice was heard. A nightmare. Shiraishi turned to the side and asked, You mean yesterday was because of sleepwalking? Kento sat leaning back and replied tiredly, Sorry. That nightmare was terrible. He offered some advice. Do not just treat it as a dream. You should get a proper checkup. Hearing that, he replied, I went to the hospital, but it did not work much. Maybe I pushed myself too hard yesterday. Shiraishi next to him immediately called his name sternly. Kento. Kento relented. I understand. I will get it checked again when I get back to Japan, he continued. And your grappling skills are terrible. When we get back, you have to practice no GI seriously, he said calmly. I know. Shiraishi sighed in helplessness. No. Seriously, it is terrible. Kento had no choice but to agree. Okay, I will practice. Scene changed to the next morning at the apartment complex. He was seen eating with others. Dana cut his meat and said, So the contract states that if you knock out all 3 opponents, you will receive a 10-fold bonus. That is quite a gamble. He put a piece of meat in his mouth and continued. You already know our organization is highly international. Dana chewed and said, So most rookies are not good at English. Hearing this, Kento asked, Is English really that important? He took a swig of wine and replied, Of course, shining when you perform brings in money. Knowing English is a huge advantage. Now that I think about it, you speak fluent English too. You are even more talented than Octopus was when he competed. Shiraishi frowned and growled, Please stop calling me that. Dana swirled his wine glass. Accept the condition that Octopus offered. Hearing that, he laughed. That is why you have to cherish the ring name your fans give you. He then turned away. Then I will send the contract right now. Excuse me for a moment. Seeing this, Shiraishi glanced over and said, It seems he values you more than I thought. We should have proposed a pay-per-view deal. Kento narrowed his eyes and said, I thought you were a humble person. He frowned and replied, Hesitating in negotiations with these people is a sure loss. I wish I had realized that when I was still competing, Shiraishi said seriously. But since you have already received the money, they will demand corresponding results. They might even arrange for you to fight some crazy opponent just to avoid paying you. He also narrowed his eyes in agreement. Suddenly, Kento smiled and declared confidently, I am ready to accept the challenge. Kento wins his debut at the UFC, year 2000 Dekso de Dixik. At the same time, a picture of him punching his opponent in the face appears. Below are the praiseworthy comments of everyone for him. He is the strongest person in the human world. To be able to play around with a muscular monster like that. He also speaks English well. Does that mean he is smart too? I am worried he will be exhausted from fighting so many matches. Anyway, I am grateful that he is back. It's okay. This is Kamikawa, who once finished 4 consecutive matches in the first round. Why do I feel like I'm getting stronger too? Rose. Sounds like wine. The match with Rose will definitely be a huge shock, especially in front of the president, undefeated and all wins in the first round. Sounds unbelievable. On the day of his return to Japan, the airport was empty without a soul in sight. At the same time, Kento and Shiraishi pulled their luggage and walked out together. He turned and asked, Has the money been transferred yet? He looked at his phone screen and replied, Yes. Seeing the notification of the change in his balance, Shiraishi couldn't help but sigh. Fighters earn so much these days. Kento also agreed. That's right. At the same time, he thought to himself, the amount of money I could never have before is now automatically flowing in. What's the difference between then and now? Suddenly, Kento turned and said, It's thanks to you. Shiraishi also smiled and replied, It's rare to hear you say that. Hearing that, he narrowed his eyes slightly. It's obvious to say that. He glanced over and laughed. I knew raising you was worth it. Don't forget this debt. Next, Shiraishi gave some advice. I still have to prepare for Shioda's match, so I will go to the gym now. You should go to the hospital right away to get your health checked. And let me know when you are done. Kento replied. I will. He continued. Remember to go for counseling too. He also immediately agreed. Scene changed to inside the hospital. Kento was seen lying on his stomach on the bed, with a doctor examining him beside him. The person touched his left shoulder and asked, What about here? He replied, It does not hurt at all. He lifted Kento's arm and continued to ask, When did you get injured? Kento replied honestly, 3 days ago. The doctor asked, Did you ice it? He hesitated. No, the situation did not allow for it. Hearing that, he sighed. You should have iced it immediately to reduce the inflammation. Kento immediately said, I will do it as soon as I get home. Suddenly, the doctor said, There is no need, making him look confused. He sat down at his desk and immediately gave the diagnosis. Just as you said, Shinkawa, there is almost no swelling. And hearing this, Kento also said, The pain also subsided a lot the day after the match. The doctor immediately burst out laughing. That sounds strange. It must be the migratory fish type of muscle we always talk about. Hearing this, he looked confused. Migratory fish. He held up a model bone and explained. I have examined many athletes over the years, but their muscles are not that different from ordinary people. The doctor then looked straight at him and continued. After carefully reviewing the video of your match, I saw damage in your shoulder, back, and thighs. Kento immediately agreed. It is true that after the match I felt severe pain in those areas. Hearing that, he picked up the model and said, when muscles are strained due to incorrect posture or excessive movement, they become distorted. The doctor did not stop, like tangled threads. At that time, the blood vessels inside are compressed, unable to circulate to remove impurities, leading to inflammation and pain. He continued to analyze. As a result, the muscles become stiff, their function decreases, and even a slight stimulus is enough to cause pain. After hearing that, he asked, so is my condition quite bad? You mean I should not exert myself anymore? Suddenly, the doctor interrupted him. No, quite the opposite. Your muscles are intact, like a child's. Kento looked more and more skeptical. The doctor kept talking. This type of muscle is very hard to injure, and even when injured it recovers very quickly. So sometimes we call it the migratory fish type. Kento continued to show a surprised expression. He then looked down and sighed in relief. I thought migratory fish had a negative meaning. Hearing that, he laughed loudly. No wonder you were so tense. After the physical examination, Kento immediately went to the counseling room. The female doctor heard this and hesitated. Migratory fish muscle type, huh? Sounds interesting. She wondered. But why are you telling me this? Kento also asked honestly. Do you know about cases of inactive nerves, self-regeneration, or miraculous recoveries? The doctor did not stop. I have heard of some rare cases like that, but it is beyond my expertise, so I do not know the details. He narrowed his eyes and said, people like that usually have a very strong ability to maintain homeostasis. Hearing that, she frowned slightly and thought to herself, homeostasis, meaning the body tends to return to its original state. The doctor looked straight at him and said, you mean you are gradually returning to the body you had in your dream, returning to the body when you were fighting as a slave. Suddenly, Kento stood up and took off his shirt. Seeing this, she was flustered. Wait, what are you doing? He paid her no mind and held out his hand saying, here it is. She blushed and looked up with a curious expression. At a glance, there is nothing unusual, Kento spoke. When I returned to this world, I was still moving with the feeling of that other world, which made my muscles unable to bear it and get bruised. That condition lasted until the match with Oji, when I had to lose weight quickly. Hearing that, she was silent for a bit. He put his shirt back on and continued. After the FFC title match, that phenomenon began to subside and completely disappeared after the trip abroad. I still feel pain, but I am no longer bruised, and the recovery speed has also increased. The doctor seemed overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information and said to herself, he is talking too fast. He doesn't want to give me a chance to refute. She then spoke. You said another world, not a dream anymore. I have chosen to believe that reality is this world. Kento replied, that is what I have decided to believe. The doctor began to look worried and thought to herself, this is not good. His delusions are overwhelming his sense of reality. And at the same time, she asked suspiciously, did you take the medicine I prescribed last time? He was also very honest. I threw it away. Hearing that, she was shocked. What? But Kento said calmly, at this point, I do not care if it is a dream or reality anymore. What is important is that those experiences have made me who I am today. She immediately narrowed her eyes and replied with some anger. Instead of thinking that I am returning to the body from that other world, do you think your recovery ability has increased thanks to continuous training? What do you think? Suddenly he called out, Doctor, the reason I come for regular checkups is because I was afraid I might go back to that other world. But now I do not have to worry about that anymore. The doctor could not help but worry and immediately said, Shinkawa, with this condition, I can send a medical opinion to the UUFC to request the cancellation of your match. But he refused. No need. Kento turned away and said, all fighters have some abnormality, whether it is physical or mental. Do you think the UFC will listen to a doctor? Hearing that, she exclaimed in surprise. What? She then showed a look of displeasure, and then she spoke. The patient refuses treatment. During the initial consultation, he said he was having dreams, but now he believes he has been to another world. He did not take the prescribed medication, meaning he has stopped treatment for a long time, making his current condition extremely dangerous. The doctor then ran her hand through her hair and said helplessly, we should not continue this anymore. At the same time, she pursed her lips again. but Kento slammed the door shut. In front of him was a chaotic scene. Kento walked over and drew the curtains. A faint ray of light from the window shone gently on his face. Suddenly, Kento's hand gripped one side of the window, and then he forcefully smashed it with his hand as if he had wanted to do this for a long time. At this moment, inside the dark room, only the faint light from the window shone in. Kento tried to breathe, telling himself over and over, "Calm down." Looking at the bustling crowd below, he thought incessantly, "The people who wanted to kill me are no longer here." A sharp pain in his chest made Kento double over. Accept reality. Things like that will never happen here. In the end, he sat down on the floor, huddled, and told himself, "I am back." On the other side, a hand slammed down on the table in anger. Kanemaru angrily questioned, "Who is our challenger?" The secretary quickly replied, "I have already prepared someone." She continued, "But Shinkawa is rumored to have signed with UFC. Will he really be interested?" He frowned and sneered. "Making the impossible possible is my specialty. Open your eyes and watch me make it a reality." Saying that, but his mind was constantly calculating. What kind of trick is he planning to pull this time? Kanemaru calmly ordered, "Connect me." The secretary made a few taps and announced, "Connected. Sir." The other side of the screen immediately showed Dana's face. "Hello, Kanemaru. Long time no see." He smiled back. "Thank you for your time today," he asked. "So what do you need?" Kanemaru didn't hesitate and asked directly, "I heard a rumor that you have already signed a contract with Shinkawa." Hearing that, Dana burst out laughing and admitted, "Yes, a phenomenal talent has just emerged. I think it would be strange if someone hadn't signed him." Kanemaru smirked and continued, "That's also why we spent a fortune training him at FFC. But now if he moves to your side," he put on a troubled expression and said, "then all our investments will go down the drain, and the championship title will be vacant." Knowing what he was up to, Dana raised an eyebrow and said, "That sounds troublesome. But what can we do now?" The fighter himself sought a bigger opportunity. Kanemaru immediately made a condition. "We accept the loss and are ready to congratulate him on the contract. So we hope you will make some concessions as well." He frowned and asked back, "Concessions?" He began to reveal his greedy nature. "We want Shinkawa to fight one more match as the FFC champion." Under the horrified gaze of his secretary, Kanemaru didn't hesitate to propose a plan to compensate for the losses, and also as an opportunity for you to test Shinkawa's strength. She was speechless and asked herself, "Oh, do you think such an offer will be accepted?" After a while, he spoke. "Listen carefully. Kanemaru, it is because I respect martial arts organizations around the world that I agreed to participate in this conversation." Dana's face darkened and he continued, "But this is a completely different matter. Negotiations should be a give and take." "Right. What kind of nonsense are you spouting when you are completely broke?" Seeing the other person's dangerous expression, Kanemaru stammered in fear, "No, there is no need to think so complicatedly." But he still narrowed his eyes and warned, "I just cannot stand seeing my people being looked down upon. The god has found a worthy home. Kanemaru, it seems you should know your place." At the same time, in a certain building, Kento was training hard despite his drenched body. He bit his lip hard, trying to suppress the pain as his muscles were stretched. The next morning at the hospital, a voice was heard. "Are you still doing the oppressive exercises I mentioned last time?" Kento replied calmly. "Yes." I was very surprised that even though I did not train with high intensity, I was still drenched in sweat. The doctor opposite him nodded. "That is right. This movement helps to stretch and adjust the muscle groups without putting pressure on the joints." He smiled and said, "That's it for today's session. You can do some light exercises now." Hearing that, he hesitated and asked, "You mean I can go back to the gym?" Seeing that expectant look, the doctor burst out laughing and teased, "What a migratory fish." Kento had already stepped out the door. "Thanks a lot." Looking at the closed door in front of him, the doctor mumbled with some suspicion, "What's his hurry?" A short while later, at the training center, as soon as they saw Kento, everyone started cheering wildly. "Oh, isn't that Shinkawa from UFC? Please give me your autograph. And take a picture too." He frowned in suspicion. "Why is it so noisy?" Hearing that, everyone excitedly shouted, "How can we be quiet?" An amateur who lost 10 in a row entered UFC less than a year after turning pro, and even won in the first round. A person walked over and asked with a smile, "Being famous must be tough, huh?" Kento calmly replied, "No, I only go out when I have a doctor's appointment." Hearing that, Kameda clicked his tongue and complained, "What a waste. If it were me, I would be walking around the neighborhood." He began to tease. 3 girls joined just because of you while you were away. There are also a few middle and high school boys too. But never mind them. Everyone around also joined in. That's right. Forget about the boys. Kamita excitedly opened his arms and said loudly, "Listen up. Our fighter's area finally has a flower." Hearing that, Kento couldn't help but open his eyes wide and ask back, "A flower?" He smiled happily and introduced, "Yes, it's Tsumugi Ueda, the ADCC Jiu-jitsu champion." Kento, with an unchanging expression, sighed in admiration. "That sounds impressive." The person opposite him clicked his tongue and complained, "Yeah, I got a lesson I will never forget. Her grip is no joke." He asked with suspicion, "But why would a jiu-jitsu fighter like her come to our gym? Does she want to switch to MMA?" Kamita grumbled with envy. "I hate it. Lucky bastard." The other person nodded in reply. "Yeah, she said she was looking for a place to try out MMA, and chose our gym because of you." He sighed and reminded him, "She will come after school, so remember to greet her properly." Hearing those important words, Kento exclaimed in surprise, "After school? So she is still in school?" Seeing that, Kamita excitedly shouted, "Exactly. She is a university student." He smiled teasingly. "Just the other day I saw you fawning over Sister Tsuji." He blushed furiously and quickly defended himself. "Hey, Sister Tsuji has nothing to do with this." While they were gossiping animatedly, a loud shout suddenly rang out. "Female students this, female students that. You guys are really idle." Seeing Shiraishi, everyone greeted him in unison. "Coach, good morning." He did not reply but assigned tasks. Takeshi and Ryo, get ready for sparring. And Kento and Shuji, I need to talk to you two, follow me. Everyone shouted in unison. "Yes, sir." A short while later, the three of them, Shiraishi, Kento, and Kamita, were sitting and staring at each other. He began. "I heard FFC is planning to arrange a match for Kento and has already contacted Dana." Kento was confused by the serious tone. "So is there a problem?" Kamita glanced at him as if looking at a fool and replied, "Of course there is. You have already joined UFC." Shiraishi continued. But Dana refused because he was afraid it would devalue UFC. He didn't care and said, "As long as I get to fight. I don't care about anything else. If they keep canceling matches just to maintain their image, I'll terminate the contract." Hearing these reckless words, he rolled his eyes and exclaimed, "Oh shit." He let out a long sigh. "Ah, I know. So I made it clear to UFC. They said they would arrange a higher level match." Kento replied calmly. "Then there's nothing to worry about." Shiraishi crossed his arms and frowned, complaining. "But Kanemaru at FFC is being quite difficult about this," Kamita quickly asked. "But we don't have a contract with FFC. What right do they have?" Hearing that, Shiraishi smirked and said, "That's why I recommended you to replace Kento. This is a championship match." Kamita's eyes widened in disbelief and he asked back, "Huh, but I'm a featherweight, and Kento is a lightweight." Seeing his shocked face, he laughed slyly and announced, "So if you win this time, you'll be at the top of both divisions." After joking around, Shiraishi became serious and reported, "Your opponent is Yukin Umeda. This guy was almost ranked in UFC." Kamita wasn't scared and replied excitedly, "I'll gain weight quickly." At this point, Kento spoke up and asked, "Hasn't Umeda-san retired? Is he coming back now?" He nodded in confirmation. "Yes, I heard if he wins at FFC, he will be considered for the UFC selection process." Shiraishi talked about the plan he had already made. It will probably coincide with Takeshi's match. "I'll be cornering for Takeshi, so I want Kento to corner for Shuji. This is your first time cornering." "Right," he said seriously. "Shuji has experience, but this time it's a step up in weight class, so it shouldn't be too hard. Besides, you're both in the same lightweight class, so you'll be perfect training partners for everything from drills to sparring." Kento, hearing that, repeated with suspicion, "Sparring?" Shiraishi narrowed his eyes and laughed in reply. "Yeah, didn't the doctor say you could start moving again? Sparring should be fine. Give it a try." He stiffened, not knowing how to respond. After that, Kento stood up and suggested, "Shuji-san, let's practice now." Kameda was confused. "Wait a minute. You're my cornerman." "Right, I haven't even analyzed Umeda's fighting style properly." He didn't bother to pay attention and urged, "I've watched Umeda's match footage dozens of times. It'll be fine. Hurry up, let's go." He frowned with suspicion. He knows I'm a featherweight champion and still says that. How should I handle this? At this moment, Shiraishi, sitting on the side, also chimed in. Maybe that's why he's looking forward to it. Provoked, Kamita excitedly mumbled, "All right, if that's the case, let's do it." Seeing his expression, he quickly reminded him. He might not have recovered his form yet. "Don't push him too hard." Kamita coldly snorted. "Big brother, don't stop me. He was the one who asked me for a serious sparring match." Shiraishi huffed and scolded. "Who are you calling Big Brother?" A short while later, Kamita with a red headguard was panting nonstop. Opposite him was Kento, with his 1,000-year unchanging expression. Without saying a word, he swung a punch straight at his opponent's head. He quickly backed away from the powerful punch just now, but Kento quickly landed another uppercut from below, catching Kamita off guard. In the end, he collapsed onto the floor in exhaustion. The shock caused Kamita to gape, and his mouthguard fell out with it. It took a while before he trembled and exclaimed, "So strong." Watching the fight on the mat, a person walked over and sighed in admiration. What a fierce spirit. Jun didn't pay attention to the newcomer and excitedly shouted, "That's what a fighter's corner is all about." The newly arrived girl glanced at the ring and wondered to herself, "I wonder if he's also strong in jiu-jitsu." Hearing that, Jun frowned with suspicion. Jiu-jitsu. At this moment, the girl noticed the boy's focused gaze. She smiled and introduced herself. "You know, I'm extremely good at jiu-jitsu. You could say I'm undefeated." At the same time, Kento on the other side was wrapping his hand. She walked up to him and said, "Are you Shinkawa?" Ueda didn't hesitate to greet him. "I'm Tsumugi Ueda, a new member of the team." Hearing the familiar name, he was surprised to realize. "Ah, so it's you." She smiled brightly and continued, "I'm also 20 years old." Contrary to her warmth, he just replied coldly, "Oh, really?" After this brief conversation, Ueda was a little speechless and laughed awkwardly. "Is he the quiet type? If you're interested, do you want to spar in jiu-jitsu?" Before he could finish speaking, Jun stepped in and interrupted. "I'm learning first." The boy's face was filled with extreme annoyance, seeing the boy. Kento turned and apologized. "Come to think of it, I haven't been able to check on you lately." "I'm sorry." Jun quickly waved his hand. No, Kento, you don't have to apologize." He didn't reply but asked directly, "What did you do while I was away?" Jun happily recounted the past few days. "Shuji took care of me." Hearing the familiar name, Kento raised an eyebrow and continued to ask, "How much progress has been made?" The boy enthusiastically recounted. "We practiced 1-2s and uppercuts. And low kicks too." Kento nodded and continued. "If you can do that, you can pretty much take down most opponents." Hearing that, Jun was so surprised his jaw dropped. The boy quickly went from surprised to self-conscious. "Really? But I'm shorter and fatter than everyone else." Ueda, standing on the side, sighed in admiration. His attitude towards this person is completely different. At this moment, Kento had walked up to the boy and said coldly, "If you think of yourself like that, you'll definitely lose." He continued, "First of all, you need to change that way of thinking." Faced with that seriousness, Jun stammered, "How do I do that?" After that, Kento began to explain. "Think of it as a game, not a fight." The boy repeated with suspicion, "A game." He nodded in agreement. "That's right. Start with defense first. After all, your initial purpose for coming here wasn't to attack, but to defend yourself." "Right." Hearing their conversation, Ueda fell into deep thought. The way he guides is so natural. I wonder if he has experience teaching others before. After explaining, Kento immediately had Jun practice. He calmly taught. Most fights follow boxing rules. They usually start with punches and end with punches. The boy was both in his guard and in awe. "I see." Kento began to move his feet back, his mouth still not stopping its instruction. Distance is important when you get out of the opponent's striking range. Before Jun's horrified eyes, he rushed in front of the boy like a flash of lightning. "You have to quickly close in on the area where they cannot generate force," Jun asked with a pale face. "But what if the opponent keeps throwing punches wildly?" He rolled his eyes at the boy and replied, "As long as they don't hit the face." Kento swung his fist out in a serious guard and taught, "When they aim straight for the face, use your guard." Right after that, Jun quickly threw a punch following his instructions. "Hey, 1-2. Kento blocked the boy's punch and said, "For straights, just do as we practiced. Next is the curved punch. Try a hook." The words had just left his mouth. The move used to block a straight is called a parry. Blocking a curved punch with your hand is called a block. Remember these two things, and the number of opponents who can hit you will be halved. Under Kento's explanation, Jun gritted his teeth and put his strength into the punch he was throwing. Even though he used all his strength, the boy's punch was still easily blocked by him. Kento spoke again to explain. The move used to block a straight is called a parry. Blocking a curved punch with your hand is called a block. Remember these two things, and the number of opponents who can hit you will be halved. He then spoke while moving his feet back and forth for the boy to observe. The important thing is to move continuously. This reduces the opponent's accuracy, even though he had been taught. Jun still wasn't very convinced and asked back, "Is this really enough?" So Kento held out his hand and said, "Want to try?" The words had just left his mouth, and the two immediately got into the stance of professional fighters. The boy quickly got into position. Jun listened seriously to his introduction of the rules. If you block the opponent's punch, you get 1 point. If you land a punch, you also get 1 point. Okay, let's begin. As soon as it started, Kento moved like a machine around Jun, causing the boy to freeze for a moment. And just as Jun was distracted, he quickly threw a punch straight at his face, startling the boy. Kento sternly reminded, "Just keep moving like this. Gently bring your hand towards the opponent's face. Don't tense up or get greedy. Just focus on your feet. The punches and kicks are just to distract. It doesn't matter if they land or not." Following his words, Jun quickly moved back and forth on the mat. When the opponent stops moving, you will definitely have the advantage. Just when the boy thought he had hit him, Kento bent down and rammed straight into his stomach. If you feel the opponent is about to combo, rush in. He didn't show any mercy and used his shoulder to send Jun flying. To the boy's amazement and push, a merciless fist closed in on the boy's face amidst his teaching. After that, 1-2 straight to the face. Jun didn't have time to react and took a full blow from Kento. The boy didn't give up and got back into his stance during the teaching, even if the opponent attacks continuously. Another punch landed on the boy's face. "Just keep your distance and close your eyes again." He looked at the boy and asked, "How does it feel?" Jun panted and replied, "Extremely uncomfortable and tired." Kento explained, "That's right. For someone who hasn't trained seriously, it's very uncomfortable. Now it's your turn to counterattack." The boy replied with great effort, "Yes." He tirelessly guided. "Next is the real fight. Try to keep up with my movements. Use movement to maintain distance and exhaust the opponent. Remember, you don't need to use muscle strength to fight." Jun also replied politely, "Yes, sir." Hot beads of sweat fell on the mat. The boy practiced with great effort, sweat pouring down, struggling to block each of Kento's attacks. Jun remembered those heartless people and told himself, even with headgear, his punches are much stronger. The boy still forced himself to say in his heart, "But is this the blow a professional fighter has to endure?" Quickly, Jun threw a counterattack. Although it didn't land, it was enough to surprise Kento, just as the boy bent down, completely exposed. Without mercy, he immediately threw a hook punch. But Jun wasn't hit at all. His progress surprised him. The boy quickly turned and moved, nimbly counterattacking his opponent, landing a powerful blow on Kento. He also had to praise him. That was good. Just as the boy was caught off guard by the praise, he immediately counterattacked, causing Jun to cry out in both pain and surprise. He looked at the boy fall and said, "But now aiming for the body is more effective. Anyway, it's not bad. Initially, I told you to aim for the face." Kento sat down accordingly. "A good match. Keep this up, and you'll easily take down those bullies. Be confident." The boy was drenched in sweat but couldn't hide the joy in his eyes. "Yes." Kento stood up and said a single sentence, "All right." At this moment, he noticed Ueda, who had been standing here watching the fight from the beginning. He asked, "Shall we begin?" She didn't reply, but quickly stepped onto the mat. Her stretching movements were masterful, bending over straight to make all her muscles as supple as possible. Ueda beckoned with her hand, signaling it was time to start. Physical martial arts require great strength, like mixed martial arts, or even wrestling. These modern martial arts, almost all originated from pankration. Kento tightened the belt on his guy, thinking grimly that jiu-jitsu was different. He narrowed his eyes, looking forward with extreme caution. On the other side, Ueda was observing him carefully. She wore a white gi with a black belt, representing the one art not from pankration. Without a word, the two moved forward and tapped fists, a show of martial respect. Immediately after, both of them lowered themselves into a ready stance. Kento quickly reached out, trying to catch her before she could react. But Ueda was already on alert, and she quickly backed away. She fell to the floor, but immediately gripped his outstretched hand, not to be outdone. Kento hurriedly grabbed her thigh to stop her movement. But at that very moment, she suddenly twisted her body with incredible force. Using that momentum, Ueda used her strength to lift Kento's body up. She gritted her teeth, kicking hard against his chest with both feet. Just then, Kento suddenly gripped her shoulder, forcing Ueda to wrap her legs around his waist to escape her control. Kento forcefully pinned both of Ueda's hands to the floor. However, at that exact moment, she quickly wriggled her hand to escape his hold. Right after that, Ueda swiftly grabbed the back of Kento's knee. With her other hand, she gripped his shoulder tightly. Then her arm at his knee tightened, causing Kento to lose his balance. He refused to yield, coldly pressing down on her shoulder to reverse their positions. Kento frowned and swung his arm wide, as if preparing to do something. Just then, Ueda bucked upwards with great force from beneath him. In just the blink of an eye, she had successfully flipped herself over. As Kento stumbled forward off balance, Ueda quickly trapped his leg with her own. She squeezed her eyes shut, her arms gripping his calf as her legs swung up for the lock. And then before Kento's resentful gaze, Ueda successfully locked his leg completely. Facing his unyielding expression, she just shot him a cold glance. Stared at by her indifferent gaze, he pursed his lips in slight embarrassment. After a moment, Kento had to tap Ueda's leg to signal his surrender. Seeing this, she immediately let go and stared at him with wide, surprised eyes. She asked dumbfoundedly, "Are you really a blue belt? How many years have you been training?" Kento calmly replied, "1 year," making Ueda exclaim in shock. "Huh, it usually takes over 2 years for that belt." "No, this level is far beyond a blue belt." She began to share her experience. "I practice rolling often. I think it is more useful than sparring." Kento asked back with some doubt, "Why is that?" Ueda stood up to stretch. "Because the physique difference is too great. It feels light. Maybe that is unavoidable as a girl." But he immediately refuted. "Not at all. I actually forgot I was fighting a girl." Hearing that, she frowned unhappily and questioned, "What do you mean by that?" By now, Kento had stood up and exclaimed, "That was really fun, because we both gave our all in attacking and defending without thinking." While Ueda looked at his stoic face and thought speechlessly, "Do people who are having fun usually make that face?" Kento's face suddenly brightened, and he said softly, "I see I still have much to learn. Because despite the clear physical gap, you can handle every situation and create your own advantages. Just as you said, if we focus on rolling, we will both surely improve. From now on, I am counting on your help." Looking at the handsome face before her, Ueda couldn't help but blush and think flusteredly, What? What is this? Do not praise me with such a serious face. It is so embarrassing." She smiled shyly and suggested, "Let's help each other improve. You can teach me some stand-up techniques too." Kento nodded in agreement. Of course, watching the two of them chatting happily on the mat. Jun's jaw dropped in amazement. Amazing. He can even fight on par with the coach. The kid could not help but think in awe. The rumors about her being good at jiu-jitsu were true. Time passed quickly, and in the middle of a vast arena stood an octagonal cage bathed in light. In the waiting room, Kento was carefully wrapping Kameda's hands. As he wrapped the tape, he thought absently, "In the end, I have never won against him in a single sparring match." At that moment, Kento's thoughts drifted. "I wonder if Moon Sung-jun is better than Chibiom." After a while, Kento finished, asking softly, "How does it feel?" Kameda clenched his fist to test the fit. He then looked up in praise. "It is good. Did you learn this at the dojo?" Kento nodded. "Yeah." Kameda looked at the tape on his hand and muttered, "That dojo does the best taping. You have learned quite a bit." However, his expression suddenly changed as he asked probingly, "Hey, Moon Sung-jun isn't stronger than you, is he? Because if so, I am done for." At that moment, Kento's gaze noticed Kameda's thigh trembling uncontrollably, knowing he was nervous. Kento gently reassured him, "No matter how strong your opponent is, you will win." As the words left his mouth, Kameda stared at Kento with wide eyes, the two of them looking at each other without a word. Finally, he broke the stiff atmosphere, "Because I will be fighting alongside you." At this point, the surprise was overflowing from Kameda's eyes, and he was so stunned he could not speak. It took a moment for Kameda to recover his composure, stammering, "Our youngest is truly a reliable pillar. Maybe I should start calling you Big Bro," to which Kento calmly replied while adjusting his gloves, "I would not like that." Hearing this, Kameda frowned unhappily and grumbled, "This kid is so cold." A moment later, he was standing on the stage amid endless cheers. "Go Ban Jin-young. Let's win the double championship together." Kento stood below, coldly listening to the crowd's buzzing. "Wait, isn't that Shin Chi-beom in the corner? I wonder if he'll be a good cornerman." "I hope so. Up close, he really does look like a thug." At this moment, the aura around Kento suddenly changed, his gaze becoming colder and more bloodthirsty than before. The scene shifted abruptly. Kento was now in armor, walking slowly through a line of people. Everyone bowed their heads in fear before his cold presence. The man could not stop trembling, his lips pressed tightly together. The gate opened, and Kento led a troop of soldiers out with firm steps. He bent down and grabbed a handful of sand. Kento coldly watched the sand slip through his fingers, muttering, "Believe." A murderous glint flashed in his eyes as his voice deepened. "Today, they will be the only ones to fall." Encouraged by Kento, the soldiers behind him roared with excitement. At the same time, the group of soldiers on the opposite side appeared. Kento's group let out a roar and charged forward to attack without hesitation. He gritted his teeth, refusing to be defeated. Back in the present, Kameda was crouched low on the ground, his eyes warily watching what was ahead. At that moment, Kento's mind returned to the fight. He narrowed his eyes coldly and told himself, "We will win here, too." The coach below yelled, "Song-jun, that guy is nothing compared to you. Get in there and take care of him." His eyes narrowed as he looked at Wei, and Wei looked back up at him. Then he bit his lip in excitement. Kento was standing below with his arms crossed. "Can you hear what I am saying?" Wei replied, "Yeah, I can hear you clearly, and and I can hear everything those guys are saying too. It is because the venue is small and there are few spectators. His opponent began to rush forward, his face scrunching up. Kento's voice rang out. One punch is not enough. You have to throw two as you charge in to reach him. A punch was thrown by Sung Jun. Sung Jun jumped backward to dodge the punch. He looked behind him and froze. His eyes narrowed. Why is this place so cramped? Kento taunted from the side, running away like a coward. Stay on him. Sung Jun looked annoyed. That disrespectful bastard. I can hear everything. With that thought, he jumped to the right. I fought in the UFC long before you brats. You think I am retreating out of fear? You punk? His leg lifted up. His attack was a kick straight to U's leg. The crowd was stunned. Whoa. Did you hear that sound? It was insane. Someone replied. Moon Sung Jun's low kick is brutal. That guy's leg looks like it is about to break. U ducked down and threw a punch at Sung Jun. He stepped to the right to dodge it. Then he countered with another kick to Ui's calf. Wei grimaced in pain. Damn it. He hopped on the balls of his feet. Sung Jun took advantage of Ue's pain and lunged forward, swinging his fist towards him. His fist connected squarely with Ue's face. His face flushed from the impact, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. He swayed back and forth unsteadily. Ue's eyes turned sharp as he rushed forward. Sung Jun stood still before the punch with his eyes half closed. He stepped back as a sharp pain shot through his foot. Ue's face contorted, his fists still clenched. The coach yelled, "Do not fight defensively. Use in and out. His legs are short so he can't reach you anyway." Kento also roared. Again, rush in while throwing 2 or 3 consecutive shots. Suddenly, Sung Jun kicked Ue squarely in the chest. Ue staggered back in pain as Kento reassured him. It is okay. Do it again, heeding his words. Ue regained his composure and charged forward again. Sung Jun was startled. He is rushing in again. The coach below watched with intense focus. He can only do that if he completely trusts his cornerman. He was in a defensive stance, waiting for Ue's attack. His leg took a step forward. Kento shouted, "You caught the kick." Sung Jun rushed forward with a clenched fist as Kento yelled. Number 3. Upon hearing Kento, he threw a punch. Seeing this, Sung Jun pulled back his hand to block the blow. But the punch hit his arm, and he wondered in confusion. Was that a feint? Another powerful attack came from the right hand. The fist slammed into Sung Jun's face, contorting his features. His body flew backward into the cage mesh, seizing the opportunity. Wei gritted his teeth and rushed in. He unleashed a flurry of punches, forcing Sung Jun to block with both arms. Suddenly, Sung Jun grabbed his punching arm tightly. Sung Jun held on with both hands, leaving Aoi stunned. He quickly regained his composure and pulled his arm back. But Sung Jun kicked his leg up, making Wei think in fear. Is this Jiu-jitsu? The sole of his foot slammed painfully into U's chin. While his opponent was disoriented, he stood back up. Then he wrapped his arms tightly around Ue's calf. Kento yelled anxiously. Number 2. Hearing the signal, Aoi bent down and grabbed Sung Jun's other leg, surprising him. Sung Jun immediately kicked hard at Wei's arm. He quickly backed away, balancing on one leg. He bit his lip hard. Ban Jin Young knows ground techniques. Suddenly, his foot gave way, causing him to lose his balance. Sung Jun was in pain and stunned. My leg. Not giving him any time. Wei rushed forward like a storm. The coach yelled worriedly, "Block it." But it was too late. Wei had already unleashed a series of punches to his face. His feet left the ground. A kick from Ue landed squarely on his face. His face was grotesquely distorted from the blow. Following the momentum, Sung Jun fell backward onto the mat. The referee quickly started the countdown as Ue tensed up and roared in triumph. The bright stage lights illuminated the entire arena. Ue joyfully vaulted over the cage. Everyone please like this video to share the joy of victory, and do not forget to subscribe to Miss Manhua for more top-tier fights. He landed on the ground with a radiant smile. U's eyes were full of excitement as he looked down. He squeezed Kento's cheeks while shouting, "Holy crap, you see? Compared to your low kick, that was nothing. Your movements made that nothing. We won, kid." Kento praised Ue. "You did great." But he continued to ramble. "I moved just like you said. With you, I feel like I can beat anyone. Damn it. Tell their whole gym to come at me." Then he hugged Kento tightly. "Kid, can you be my cornerman forever?" But Kento broke the mood. "Well, that is a bit difficult. Besides, I am not the youngest one anymore." But Wei just hugged him tighter. "You really have no sense of romance." After the match, Sung Jun sat in a daze, still unable to believe what had just happened. Just then, Jin Young glanced at him and spoke up. "You worked hard." Seeing Jin Young suddenly extend a hand towards him, Sung Jun froze and let out a small huh. He bowed his head with his dull eyes fixed on the ground. Only one thought echoing in his mind. "I lost." Then Sung Jun reached out, accepting the result with a quiet, dignified handshake. Pulled to his feet by Jin Young, he smiled warmly and praised him. "You prepared really well," Jin Young replied. "With such a good cornerman, what can you do?" Hearing that, Sung Jun looked over at Kento behind him and asked, "Can I meet that cornerman?" Jin Young nodded. Of course, after getting the okay, Sungjun walked straight over to Kento. He raised his hand and said frankly, I wanted to fight Shinchi Biome from the start. If I had fought you directly, I would have lost even more badly. Sungjun continued to praise him. You are not only a great athlete, but also an excellent cornerman. Kento shook his hand with a deadpan face and replied, Thank you. Kanemaru clenched his fist, his regretful eyes fixed on the now empty ring. Damn it. He frowned with a displeased expression and complained. He stands out so much just as a cornerman, and now I have to let him go. The match ended with an explosion of cheers, and the announcer called Jin Young's name as the winner. In the audience, people chattered excitedly. Why is it so interesting even when Shinchi Biome isn't fighting? Everyone was talking animatedly. Ban Jin Young is crazy too. He is great at jiu-jitsu. Maybe he can get into the UFC. Yeah, if Ban Jin Young moves up to lightweight, it's possible. Over here, Kanemaru's secretary voiced her thoughts. The audience's reaction to Ban Jin Young is quite positive. It's probably because he's from the same gym as Shinchi Biome. He explained seriously. Yongmu Seong too. All the fighters at Cornerman are skilled and have distinct personalities. She understood the point and said, If you cannot have a phoenix, a wild chicken will do. Kanemaru nodded in agreement. That is right. The scene shifts to the locker room. The upcoming events are sure to be full of surprises. Please subscribe now to follow along with Miss Manhua. A man sat leaning against a locker, a contented smile on his still bruised face. The other man looked over and also laughed, but it was a hearty laugh full of happiness. Unable to contain their joy, Jin Young and Shiota shouted in unison. We won! Jin Young asked. What happened to your face? He replied. Shouldn't I be asking you the same thing? Shiraishi stood to one side with his arms crossed, a helpless look on his face. You two are both beaten up, so what is there to say? Then he changed his tone and looked at Kento. Anyway, you worked hard too, Chi Biome. Kento replied with his usual icy expression. Thank you. A second later, Shiraishi announced seriously, We have received a call from the UFC. They have scheduled a fight. It is the main event of a numbered card. Kento replied very calmly, Okay, which made his two seniors' eyes widen in shock. With disbelieving faces, they exclaimed, That is it. What kind of reaction is that? Jin Young approached Kento asking repeatedly, Don't you know what it means to be in the main event of a numbered UFC card? He still answered nonchalantly. I know. Shiota pointed at him. Director, why is this kid so calm? Shiraishi stated the obvious. That is just how he is. Just then, the door to the room suddenly opened. Kanemaru and his secretary walked in smiling. Hello, everyone, Shiraishi said in surprise. What are you doing here? He replied with a friendly smile. I came to congratulate the winner. With that, Kanemaru approached Jin Young, offering a hand with an appreciative gaze. Ban Jin Young, that was a great fight. You might even become a two-division FFC champion. He shook his hand with a respectful tone. Thank you, sir. Then he turned to Shiota. If Yongmu Seong also wins a championship, Cornerman will have 3 champions. He nodded and laughed loudly. Haha, that is right. Only then did Kanemaru look at Kento. Chi Biome's skill as a cornerman is also incredible. Kento replied with a slight smirk. The fighter is the one who did well. He patted Kento's shoulder and said, So humble. Even when you go to the UFC, I hope we can maintain our relationship with the UFC. Then Kanemaru got straight to the point with a proposal. Because of that, I am thinking of unofficially sponsoring you. I mean, I will become your sponsor. Kento asked blankly. A sponsor? The secretary behind him began to speak. The proposed sponsorship is for 50 million won. You only need to appear on the official channel to promote major FFC matches and say a few words to the athletes. He replied indifferently. I think it is better to discuss that with someone else. Hearing that, she asked curiously, Have you signed a management contract yet? Shiraishi interjected to explain. I am handling it myself. The secretary turned to him in surprise and asked, Is that so? Then could you clarify the terms? He then explained. The terms you just mentioned sound more like a promotional sponsorship than a regular one. So I think we need to clarify that point first. After hearing that, the secretary understood. I see. Since it can't be for free, I will specify it as a promotional sponsorship. Kanemaru frowned with an annoyed expression and asked, Is that really so important? Shiraishi quickly replied, Yes, because we have received so many sponsorship offers, we are in the process of filtering them. Hearing this, the secretary's eyes widened in surprise. What? He crossed his arms with a proud look. Since I only pick what does not affect Chi Biome's training time, the number of contracts we can take is limited. With terms like those, I think it should be at least 30 to 40 million won. Making her once again exclaim in disbelief. 40 million. Kanemaru also frowned, unable to hide his disbelief. What, that sounds absurd. How popular can MMA be in Korea to demand 30 million? Shiraishi spoke up, his voice calm but firm. It seems the incident in Japan made bigger waves than I thought. I did not expect to receive this many offers either, seeing how serious he was. The secretary whispered to her boss, "It doesn't seem like he is bluffing." "You should review the conditions first," Kanemaru replied with a grimace. "Everyone sure is good at smelling money." He then changed his expression to a bright smile and said, "I will contact you after adjusting the terms. If the conditions are comparable, let's work together. We are the top mixed martial arts organization in the country after all." Shiraishi replied with a friendly smile, "I will consider it favorably." That very evening, at a pub in the city, Shiraishi's group was raising their glasses in celebration, the air filled with laughter. Jin Young raised his glass and shouted, "Cornerman is still alive and kicking," a colleague shouted back. "Ban Jin Young is still alive." "Since when, you old fossil?" The atmosphere was filled with laughter as everyone cheerfully teased each other. That is what they call having some fight left. It is true, but who cares? The match is over. In contrast to them, Shiraishi spoke seriously. "Based on your criteria, the most suitable brand is Hard Puncher," Kento asked while pouring a drink. "So I should switch to Hard Puncher equipment. Should I introduce it to the other athletes too?" He replied, "It is always best to use the sponsor's gear. Introducing it is up to you." Beside them, the atmosphere grew rowdy. Everyone was getting tipsy, and their laughter echoed through the pub. Annoyed by the noise, Shiraishi turned and angrily yelled, "You are too loud. Just eat quietly." Seeing this, Shiota teased, "Wow, you are such an old geezer." Jin Young chimed in, "I can hear your dentures clacking." A moment later, after a loud thwack, both of them were slumped over with steaming lumps on their heads. After the hit, he took a sip of his drink and continued, "The condition is, you have to post a 30-second clip of you wearing Hard Puncher gloves on your Outstar account and training. Oh, and a 1-minute sparring video." After hearing that, Kendo replied quickly, "That is it. Then there is no problem, is no." Shiraishi explained further, "There are also some dietary supplement companies, health foods and diet foods, but they are a bit lacking in criteria. But I think it is better to take them all," he replied indifferently. "I do not need that much money." Overhearing their conversation, Jin Young spoke up, "I am so jealous." Shiraishi made a serious suggestion. "No, if you want to avoid being at a disadvantage in the UFC, setting up a training camp in America is beneficial in every way. It costs a lot of money, but the results will match the investment." At this point, Kento's eyes suddenly widened, as if he had just had an epiphany. He rested his chin on his hand thoughtfully. "I had not thought of it that way. All right, then I will take them all as long as it does not affect my training." Seeing this, his coach smiled in praise. "That is the right way to think." Shiraishi raised his chopsticks. "First create an Outstar account," Kento asked curiously. "What is that?" This sentence made his two seniors feel helpless. "Hey, are you kidding me?" he explained with a serious face. "I really do not know what it is." Just then a slender, tan hand reached out. "Here." So Kento unhesitatingly gave his phone to that person. It turned out to be Ueda. She took his phone and tinkered with it for a moment. A few seconds later, she returned the phone to Kento. "I used your phone to create it. I also followed you from my account," Kento asked innocently. "Followed." Nearby, his seniors also eagerly suggested, "Hey, follow me back too. Me too, me too." Looking at Kento's account, they exclaimed in amazement. "The account is completely blank, but by tomorrow it will blow up with views." Just then a senior asked, "Chibium, can I tag you?" Although he did not know what that meant, he replied, "Okay." Ueda started to get interested in him, and she asked curiously, "Do you have a girlfriend?" Kento's reply was very brief, "No." Hearing that, her face flushed. Why would he not have one? Seeing the awkward scene, Shiraishi coughed lightly from the side. After a moment, Kento took his phone back. "Is everything done now?" the senior replied with a bright smile. "Yes, thank you." So he turned and said, "I will be leaving first, I am really tired." Jin Young immediately asked, "Hey, how can you be more tired than the fighter who just fought? Eat something before you go, you idiot." Kento explained with an emotionless face, "I have a fight coming up, so I have to control my diet." Hearing that, he frowned and exclaimed, "Man, you are always so strict with your diet." But he understood Kento and did not hold him back any longer. "Well, you worked hard, so go home and rest." Kento tapped his hand and replied, "I will be going now." The people who stayed behind called out, "Get home safe. What Chibeom is leaving already. He must be maintaining his weight. I could never do that. See you tomorrow." Over here, Ueda sat quietly, her eyes following Kento as he left. It seemed she had fallen for him as her face flushed and she mumbled with a small smile, "No wonder he does not have a girlfriend." Is a new love story about to blossom? Like and subscribe to the Miss Manhua channel so you don't miss the most exciting developments.